Good morning, everyone. While we continue our golf series, I think it's time we start something new that we announced recently, that being our playthrough of Final Fantasy IV.
And with a new Final Fantasy game, we've decided to add yet another character to join us on our playthrough.
Oh, I didn't know we were even playing a game. Who is here with us?
Please welcome 43rd President of the United States, George Bush.
Hey, what's up, guys? I don't really know what a Final Fantasy is, but I'm happy to be here.
I can explain Final Fantasy is a franchise by Square Enix, and this is the fourth entry. This is actually the second game in the series that people in America played, as the second and third games were only released in Japan.
But why are we doing the fourth one right after the first one is done?
We actually did play the second and third games. You just slept through those.
No, you didn't, although I think that would be realistic. This one is the game I'm most familiar with out of all of them. And I don't think the other two are going to be as entertaining, but that could change in the future. This is the beginning of much more important characters in the franchise, as Cecil Harvey is the Dark Knight we follow for the game. Right now, he is the captain of the Red Wings, stealing the crystal from a town called Mysidia. He is visibly upset at having to follow his orders, but had to follow them.
Did that clear it up for you at all?
Not all that much, but honestly, as long as we're all playing together, then that's what really matters most.
Don't worry, Barack can explain everything since that's just kind of what he does in these Final Fantasy adventures. He just doesn't stop talking most of the time.
Keep in mind that Ben also might go on what feels like an endless tirade against any boss fight we have with his subpar roasts.
Subpar, you say I might just get my roast game on you if that's the attitude you're going to be having with me.
Whoa, guys, there's no need to be doing a lot of arguing here. Do you always get like this when you play games together?
It actually happens quite often, but usually by the end of our gaming session, we're able to get over it.
Granted, it's usually you starting our arguments, but you were correct about it being a fairly common event. Don't take it too personally, though. If you're on the receiving end of it, George.
Oh, okay, good to know. I'll keep that in mind. And Ben, I don't mean this the wrong way, but why are you here? You're not really a president like the rest of us are, so I'm not sure why you're in the group.
Well, I started playing with Donald Joe and Barack back when we played the first Final Fantasy game, and continued on when they started playing golf together, although sometimes I do feel a bit out of place due to the lack of presidency for me. That's not really something that has impacted the group so much.
Besides, Joe has a hard time staying awake most of the time, so it's kind of like there's only 4 people here if you think of it that way.
What did someone say my name? I dozed off, but I'm back to commentating over our game of Chrono Trigger.
Joe, I don't really know what this game is about, but at least I actually know the title of the game. Are you doing okay, or do you need to sleep some more to get yourself more alert?
George, Final Fantasy 38 is going to be out by the time Joe sleeps enough to be half aware of his surroundings.
No, I promise I'm completely aware of what is going on in this game.
Okay, Joe, what is the main character's name? Joe, are you still alive there?
His name is Joe Biden.
How do you even mess that up that badly on a question like that?
Joe, do you need me to get you something to help you stay awake? This sounds like a pretty long game, and if you're having trouble a couple minutes in, I don't know how you're going to make it the whole way.
We all know he's not making it the whole way. You really have to lower your expectations a lot when it comes to him.
Barack, in an attempt to get these two off my back, can you explain what's going on at all?
I was just about to jump in with that, thank you. Cecil, as I mentioned earlier, is very conflicted on what he has done in the past, especially the scene where he killed people in Mysidia. So this is the point where he is going to start questioning the king.
Cecil is definitely wrong for questioning the authority of the king. A true patriot would go forth with no questions asked.
I'm sure glad the king isn't inciting him to storm any capitals. That would be really bad. I hope that doesn't happen here.
But hypothetically, if he did, then he should be able to go through with those orders with no regrets.
Somehow that doesn't sound right to me.
Hold up, guys. The king's giving these two a bomb ring. This isn't even subtle that the king is bad. It's just very clear that he's using them for nefarious purposes at this point.
Yeah, I can't really make sense of that. In some versions, it's called a carnelian signet, so it's a little harder to tell that what the king is doing is bad, although here there's nothing hiding the fact that the ring is used for nefarious purposes.
I think there was another guy with Cecil a minute ago. Who was he? He seemed kind of important.
That was Kane Highwind, Cecil's childhood friend and member of the Dragoons. He is iconic in the franchise for the stance he makes on some versions of the box art, along with influencing other Dragoons in games design.
But wait, who is this lady? Why is she so concerned with Cecil? Why are there so many presumably important characters that are showing up within the span of a few minutes?
Yeah, I can't figure out who any of these people are or what they're supposed to be doing.
Okay, since I have a moment with just exploring, the lady there was Rosa Farrell, Cecil's love interest and white mage, who is best at healing and defending the party, though she's not joining the party now.
Hey, Donald, do those prisoners down there remind you of all those people kept in cages at the border at all?
It's not like you let them all out or anything. Plus, since you're so bad with the border, I'm surprised you haven't let all of them out already.
Guys, stop talking. This is more important, yet another named important character that I assume we will have to remember.
This is Sid. He is part of a tradition where there's been a Sid in nearly every Final Fantasy game, though this is the first time he will be playable. Though again, not for quite a while, and even then, he's not that great in battle.
Okay, before we move on, are there any other really important things that we need to know? Or are we finally done with all of the things to pay attention to now?
I hope not, since I'm feeling like I need to take a nap after all of this explaining.
For once, we can't even make fun of you for that, since this has been quite an eventful few minutes for some of the characters in the game, and yet very little gameplay on our side.
Well, there are actually 2 moons in this world, and one of them is going to be very important later on.
I don't know how that's supposed to be important. Are we going to visit the moon or something? I've always wanted to be like that Neil Armstrong guy.
Joe, I don't think we're going to go to the moon. From what I've gathered, this seems like more of a fantasy-based setting like The Lord of the Rings, so I don't think space travel seems likely by comparison.
Okay, I suppose you're right. That would be a pretty weird thing to happen in this game. I'm thankful this world doesn't have its own space force, since that would be really dumb, especially if nobody is going to or from space.
Hey, the Space Force was a great idea, and you'd better believe this game would have sold way more if it had its own version of Space Force in it.
Donald, the idea of a Space Force is completely ludicrous, at least with branches of the military that we have, they're for specific purposes, whereas there is no proof of any threat of aliens that would constitute a Space Force being necessary.
Oh, thanks, Ben. When I want more unsolicited opinions from a non-president, I'll ask you later for sure.
Stop talking, guys. This is the important introduction for the game. Let's just hope it goes better than the last playthrough we did.
Hey, George, since you're the new guy here, do you want to be the one that starts us off here?
I wasn't really planning on it, but I suppose I could do that.
Yeah, I believe in you. You got this.
Just read exactly what it says, and I think we can make it through without any major issues.
And so the Dark Knight Cecil was stripped of his command as captain of the Red Wings. He and the Master Dragoon Kane head for the Foggy Valley and the Village of Mist.
We're actually getting through okay, and the sentimental moment hasn't fallen away yet.
Hey, Barack, I can do the next part here.
I feel like I'm going to regret this, but sure, go right ahead.
The advent of the airship marked the realization of Baron's dreams, but also the birth of Hunter Biden, importing his illegal substances from around the world.
Wait, that's not what it says there.
And now the sentimental value has completely fallen apart.
It had to happen. I don't know what you expected from me after last time.
Okay, let's focus back up to finish this off. Now, as monsters multiply and stir unrest, Baron only exploits its power to collect the world's crystals.
This is only one word. Can I say this one at least?
Yeah, you might as well at this point.
Why?
Wow, I could hear you actually struggle to not come up with something awful to say, but you did it.
The crystals merely shed their light in silence, ...
Well, of course, they're going to be silent unless the crystals talk in this world. Barack, do the crystals in this world talk?
No, they do not talk. That was just kind of a weird line at the end.
Well, I think we did great. I'm very excited to actually start on our journey out of the castle without senseless death like the introduction of the game.
I think it would be best if we continued on without mentioning Hunter Biden's substance issues. Otherwise, it's just going to get really weird for the rest of the playthrough.
Now, don't worry, I hear about it a lot at this point.
Hey guys, what do you do to prepare in a game like this exactly? Like, how do you get stronger for later parts of the game?
Well, typically we fight enemies which come up randomly in the overworld, but there are also towns to visit, and they'll have equipment that we can use to become stronger. Plus, it's also good for the world building to see what's going on.
Plus, there are also some invisible spots that have items, and while we likely won't be using them much, if at all, it is good to show the viewers where they're at if they want to get them as well.
Wait, what do you mean by viewers? Are people going to be watching this?
Yeah, George, this is being uploaded to President's Central, one of many places where various political figures play video games together.
Why does it sound like advertising something that people are already watching? I'm not sure that's how that really works.
Sorry, sometimes we just have to break the fourth wall every once in a while to remind people how they're spending their time.
I don't know what walls you're talking about, but as long as people enjoy it, I think that's what matters.
Yeah, Donald also likes walls a lot, or mainly just the one that he didn't even finish building.
Hey, it would have been very successful if only Mexico did their part and paid for it like I planned on. Then it would have been fine.
Could have, would have, should have, but it didn't.
Joe, I need you to look away from this part for a little while for your own good.
Why, what's going on?
Oh no.
Oh my goodness, she's dancing. Guys, I don't know if I can handle this. This is the best game ever. Oh yeah, this is the best. Thank you, Barack, for playing this. No, please go back. I can't have it end like this. Whoa.
Joe, what is actually wrong with you? That was an insane reaction, and there is no way we are ever stepping foot in this town again.
Is he always like this when these games are being played? I don't understand why that would happen.
Usually it's not that bad. Typically it's just wanting to sniff Princess's hair, which isn't that much better now that I say it.
Chuck will dance for me. I'll take what I can get. Oh.
Joe, we're going to need you to calm down, otherwise you're going to drown out our insightful commentary with your insane ramblings.
Just go back to the dancer again and I'll stop. I can stop anytime I want.
Barack, please talk about the game while Joe calms himself down.
Thank you, Donald. The battle system in this game is different, as it introduces the active time battle system where each enemy and main character has their own speed and can attack when they're ready, instead of making all of the team's decisions at once, which has an interesting element of strategy where sometimes it's beneficial to wait for the right time to attack.
What was that setting you just changed a moment ago?
It was to make the settings for choosing attacks active instead of wait. The difference is the game will pause the progress of when characters will be ready to attack while choosing an option when it's in wait mode. But if it's in active mode, you have less time to make your decision.
This really sounds like a lot to keep up with, from the characters to the battle mechanics. I hope I can get a hold of everything so I can understand what we're watching.
Don't worry, I'm sure you'll be able to understand well enough. It might seem like a lot if this is your first time you're seeing this, but I'm hoping the game will give enough time to make sure you're not wondering what's going on.
I hope I don't regret asking this, but Joe, it's been a bit since you've spoken. Are you doing better now?
Yeah, I think so. Thanks for making sure I'm all right. I don't know what came over me.
Glad to hear it. Not because I enjoy your comments necessarily, but more so that you're not going insane over a bird creature and some dancer.
Hey, is there anything else we should be paying attention to now that I would need to know, or did we get through all of the major details?
Actually, yes. Each character has their own signature move. Kane's being to jump in the air and do more damage while also avoiding attacks, while Cecil can use darkness to hit more than one enemy while also hurting himself in the process. Though we won't be using those attacks much, so don't worry if you don't focus on that right now.
That's good to know, though. I do think that jump attack would be pretty useful. I can see why that darkness attack won't be used that often.
Hey, I was wondering, why exactly are we going through this one cave? Is there no other way to reach a town than to go through here? You'd think it would be more convenient to find a better way.
That does make sense, although based on what the map showed earlier, there's no real way of getting over that, I could tell. But I do agree with the sentiment that there should be a better way of getting through.
No, these towns and castles are very strangely far apart from each other and in very weird places. That'll be more obvious as we continue on, but if most of these places were in the real world, they would be uninhabitable based on a variety of reasons, though Baron seems okay since there's a town near the castle and nothing treacherous around it.
Sorry to interrupt, but there's something that clearly doesn't want us to be going through. Is this our conscience coming through, or are we going to have to fight something?
No, I don't think it's our conscience. I think there's something that's going to stop out progress, or at least it'll try.
The mist is gathering. Are we going to fight the mist itself?
It definitely looks like it. That was definitely unexpected. Is the rain going to start fighting us next, or maybe the condensation in the air becomes a boss battle?
Should I even bother asking how we're fighting mist, or does there exist a satisfying answer?
No, don't bother. Even while playing the previous game, this makes absolutely no sense, so there's no point in trying to rationalize this.
It's time to be strategical, everyone. The dragon will turn itself into mist, so if any attacks hit it, then the dragon will counter with another attack.
How does the dragon turn into mist? Isn't that already what it is? If it's turning into mist just now, then what was it before? Is there a harder mist that exists here?
The more you think about it, the less sense it will make. I think it's just better now to accept what it is and kill it, so we don't have to think about it anymore.
It should be solidifying now, so this is the moment to attack. Honestly, I'm not sure why I'm telling you all this when I'm the one playing the game exclusively, but I want to feel like you're all included.
It's nice for us to feel included, even if we're not really doing anything gameplay-wise.
Oh no, I forgot to get my roasting skills out when the fight started. Now I've missed my opportunity to absolutely destroy our enemy. But I swear the next major battle, they are going to wish they never met us.
I'd like to hear your roasts at least once. Maybe they'll make things more entertaining instead of just waiting for half the battle.
I've got to say, Barak, this part where there is absolutely no input necessary from the player, while we arbitrarily wait for the game to decide when we're able to participate, is such a fun way to experience a masterpiece.
I hate to ask this, but since this isn't bringing us anywhere, can we just skip to the end this one time?
All right, I see your point. I'll skip ahead now, but don't expect me to do that other times, especially the more important fights we'll experience.
Oh, thank you. I was getting so bored of that, George. I hope this doesn't come across as a bad first impression to the series. I imagine it will get a lot better from here.
Don't worry, I don't think it's bad. There's just a lot to take in. Since I'm new to the series, I believe it will get better too.
Now that we're done with the Mist Dragon, let's see if we can deliver the very not dangerous bomb ring to the other town.
Yo, what up, peeps? It's your boys, Donald Trump and friends. We come bearing gifts for you all. Well, mainly just one gift.
Is this glowing bad at all? I don't think rings are supposed to do that.
Oh yeah, the bombs are here. I haven't felt this way in a long time.
Barak, what's going on? Are you feeling the same way Joe did earlier?
No, I'm perfectly fine, believe me.
Barak, you have to get a hold of yourself. If I was able to, then you can too. I believe in you.
I believe in you less than Joe does, but you do have to get yourself together, otherwise you won't be able to guide us.
Wait, who is also here with us? Is she another villager?
I guess we're about to find out.
Ooh, is that another dancer guy? I don't think I can do it now.
No, Joe, that's just a child with green hair, which is very unusual.
Fighting the Mist Dragon killed her, unlike the boo-boo bombs.
You have to come back with this, please.
This group has completely fallen apart, and I don't know if it's humanly possible for this to get worse.
As long as we can calm down Joe and Barak, then I think we can make things easier for us outside of the game. But I'm not sure what we can do in the game itself.
Don't worry, guys. Oh, well, I'm fine.
You are most definitely not fine, Barak and Joe. I'm going to need you to help me get Barak to stop going insane over the bombs.
No. I'm busy trying to get the ooze. You have to cooperate.
Can't we just use one of our items to revive her? I saw something earlier that said it was a phoenix down. Could that work?
For some reason, no. If it's plot related, they don't work. But if there are party members, then it's fine.
Wait, I just thought of something, Ben. If we have to fight this girl since she won't want to go with us, does that mean you'll have to bring out your roast game as you promised earlier?
Oh, no, you're right. I did promise.
This is a disaster.
Hey, girl, you look like one of the green-haired liberals I constantly owned. The only thing that is more fire than my roasts are the bombs that burned your village.
Bombs.
I hope you have family in another town, as this one is gone forever.
Girl,
You are not good at life, but neither was your mother's Mist Dragon or your mother.
Hey, guys, sorry about that. I don't know what came over me there. I hope things went okay.
Oh, it was fine. You went nuts over bombs. Joe went nuts over a girl, and Ben roasted a girl who lost her mother and village, all within the span of 2 minutes, in which a giant was summoned that destroyed the area even further.
That was all really weird. I hope you all are better now. I don't know how you manage to play these games sometimes.
I frequently wonder the same thing, but I'm better now. I have to be more careful not to make promises that will hurt others. But in all fairness, it's not like I could have predicted what happened.
Okay, everyone, I think I'm better now. I think I finally got a hold of myself. If we're going to be playing through this, I need to be a good role model, especially if the girl will be a party member.
Wait a minute, you're the President of the United States and you just now realized you had to be a role model. How did it take that long to figure that out?
Like I said earlier, you really have to lower your expectations when it comes to Joe.
Okay, now that we're all doing better, I'm going to ask Barak, what's going on with these two now that such an important even has happened in both of their lives?
Well, the even, that's what you called it. Most others would say it's an event where she had her home and mother taken from her, puts her in a strange place where Cecil and Cain are still responsible, despite not knowing they were pawns by their king. It's not good for either of them to really be near each other, but the circumstances lead them to a place where they have to work through it, even if it's not developed much past this scene.
That sounds pretty sad. It would be difficult for someone to be forgiven after what Cecil has done, even if he never meant for any of that to happen.
I suppose him fighting against the soldiers from Baron should show her that he does mean well, even if he had the worst first impression of all time.
I'll skip ahead a bit, but yes, you are right. This is a very unique scene in the series and is more complex than what was shown in the first few games, and even more than most later games too.
It is nice that they seem to able to work with each other enough to make progress despite the terrible place they've been put in together. I can only wonder what happened to Cain amongst all this.
The girl's name is Rydia. I'm sure she won't be thrilled to meet Cain later either, but maybe there will be some way they can move past all of this.
I don't mean to ruin the mood, but how is this girl going to be helpful in battle? It's not like she's a knight or a dragoon. She doesn't sound all that useful.
She summoned a Titan just a few minutes ago. I think she's capable enough.
She actually can't use him again for a while. We'll be getting some items in here, but they're not too important to show off now.
I suppose that's fine, as long as they're effective in battle.
Are you serious? Are we doing this again?
No, I got this. I can hold myself together. The dancer won't attract me.
This is still a train wreck, even if you're getting better.
I think we have to end this now. Thank you for everyone watching.
We'll keep the series going the whole way through.
And if the dancers are here, I'll be here too.
That's rather disturbing, but thank you for having me on. I look forward to seeing more.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe as well.
Next time, we're going through the desert and through the caves.
See you later, everyone.
Peace out, people.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Final Fantasy IV. We're back in the town, as I forgot to stop in this house, as this has Rosa, whom we need to encounter before progressing through the cave.
Hold up a moment. Who is this person? There were a lot of people introduced in the last video.
I believe she was the love interest for Cecil. Before we go into that, Barak, do you have any idea of what we will be doing in this video?
Assuming I don't mess any part of my planning up, we will be going through the cave, past the desert, and entering the next castle, though not much else past that for now.
That sounds good. I can't wait to see what's in store for our characters. I can't remember their names most of the time, but if I did, I'd be even more excited.
Normally, I joke about your inability to remember, but in this case, I can't blame you, since even I can't remember who everyone was from last time. This was so much easier when the characters were named after us.
I believe there are naming ways around the world that will let us change the names, but I think for story reasons, we should keep them the same.
That does make sense. Though what I'm confused about is how Rosa even got to the town. The only way over was through the town of Mist, and the path over there was destroyed last time, and she would have needed to leave after us. So she logically couldn't have even gotten here. This game is lacking in facts and logic, and I will not have it.
I'm only guessing, but I don't think the game designers really thought that part through. I think it's just something about the storytelling that we need to accept, even if it doesn't really make sense.
I think you're right on that. This game's story was very important for the time, but as we'll be seeing later, there will be points that don't make any sense.
What really doesn't make sense is that we're fighting bubbles and clams. These hardly seem like much of a threat.
No, they don't. Although I can't think of much else that would occupy this cave that seems like much of a threat, especially so early in the game.
Oh, hey, a potion. Are we going to be using that much?
I don't think so. Honestly, I'm just getting these items to show where they are for the viewers. In reality, they won't be all that helpful to us since we'll be getting through the game with the tense cottages and white magic spells for healing.
Hey, sorry guys, I just woke up. I didn't realize we were fighting fish. Are they going to kill us?
No, these fish are not going to kill us despite the name, but you really have to stay awake in our playthroughs more. I think it's not helpful to us when you aren't even awake for the playthrough. Do you think you can make it through the whole episode without falling asleep?
Doubtful, but I'll see what I can do.
I'm definitely betting on no, he will not make it through the video without sleeping yet again.
Yeah, I really appreciate the confidence in me, Ben. Glad to have you by my side.
Well, I'm sorry if you feel bad about it, but I don't think you'll make it through, and also I'm not sorry.
Don't worry about them, Joe. I think you can do it.
George, I think I should fill you in since you weren't present for our videos on the first Final Fantasy game, but Joe must have fallen asleep at least once an episode and kept mistaking what game we were playing for something else. It's a miracle he's even alive, much less awake.
Yeah, I don't think it made the journey worse, but he's definitely correct here.
Well, sorry I was too busy in the rest of my day doing presidential activities. It was very late when we recorded the game together.
We all know that wasn't happening. You were probably watching videos of animals online for most of the day.
How can you blame me when there was that cat flying through space with that rainbow behind him, and that one playing a keyboard? I could and did watch those for hours.
That does not help your case at all. In fact, it makes you sound even worse.
I think we can stop harping on Joe for a while. And since we didn't mention it a minute ago, who is this old guy that joined our party suddenly? He seemed to have just been standing at the bridge.
That would be Tellah. He's another magic user who isn't very strong physically, but has more magic capabilities since he learns more spells soon, though there's not much right now. If you didn't see Rosa in the house at the other town, we wouldn't have been able to get past him as he won't move.
That's kind of weird. You'd think he'd remember a lot more spells since he has been around so much longer than Rydia, but she has nearly the same amount of spells and can summon others.
Yeah, he definitely isn't as good as Rydia, but we all know she's the best character here.
We all know how you feel about Rydia by now. You made that abundantly clear at the end of the last video where you couldn't control yourself at all.
Hey, I'm a changed man now.
Whoa, is this some secret cave?
It is, Donald, probably one of the harder ones to find in the game since there's not much indication you can really go here and it's not on the required path, so you would likely miss it completely.
Unlike Joe's napping sessions, which he never seems to miss.
Nah, I'm gonna prove to you that I'll stay awake. You have my word that nobody will be sleeping here, especially me.
You can probably do it, Joe. I believe in you.
It is very telling that our group has gone away from actually talking about the game and is now entirely focused on having the current president of the United States just be able to commentate properly. This is clearly not going well.
To be fair to us, I'm not sure how much we can really talk about. When the game is only giving us bubbles and clams to fight, there's not a lot of great discussion we can really have there.
Hey, Barack, since you know more about this game series than the rest of us, do you have any suggestions on what we can talk about here?
I can't think of a lot. There's only so much we can really get out of fighting the same enemies here, especially when they're not even that hard to get through. I'm pretty sure there are some character developing scenes later that will give a little more to work with.
Well, if it isn't too much to ask, how are things with you, Ben? I don't think we've really talked much at all in a while.
Oh, it's been great for me. I've recently had a sale on Daily Wire Plus subscriptions, so that's gotten me about 20 million new people listening to our fantastic exclusive content from Jordan Peterson, Candace Owens, Brett Cooper, and of course myself, Ben Shapiro.
Hold up there a moment. I'm more likely to win the lottery than you get 20 new subscribers, much less 20 million. And I saw that argument you had with Candace on Twitter. I'm surprised if she's still going to be on there by the end of the year.
Wow, even Joe is aware of that. Maybe he is going to stay awake after all. But yeah, Ben, there's no chance you got that many people on your site.
I definitely do have that many, ensure her. And I did have a bit of an argument online, and maybe I should have dealt with that more privately. But nobody needs to be doubting my successes.
I'm not doubting your success, only the degree of how much you're actually successful. In this case, Joe's estimate of less than 20 is probably much closer to being correct by comparison. Hey, that does give me an idea. Can I buy your site and make it Trump Plus, hosting all content and news approved only by me exclusively?
I'm willing to think about it. What are you willing to pay exactly?
Based on my previous experience as an intelligent businessman, I've had many successes, and though I haven't quite gone into the subscription service you have, I am good with social media, so I'm willing to pay $400,000.
Good with social media. You got banned off Twitter, made a new account called From the Desk of Donald Trump, which lasted like a month, then got Truth Social, which is a copy of Twitter, and that's hemorrhaging users like nothing else. That's way too low of an offer to give him.
Yeah, I've got to agree, Barack. There's no way I'm taking that deal. I'd have to give my inferior coworkers a portion of that, so that wouldn't leave me with much.
Oh, well, they can stay on, and I intend to give them more money. I'm just buying it off you and taking you out of it. But yes, most of that money would go to them.
Ben, I think you have to take the deal, otherwise he's going to retract his offer.
Nobody asked you, Joe. I'm not taking that deal, Donald. If it was up to $4 million, then I'd be much more willing to consider.
I don't think Donald's deal was good either, but you can't ask him for 10 times his offer. He's never going to go for that.
I am only asking for a fair deal, and if he is trying to rip me off with an insanely low figure, then that's his fault.
Now, $400,000 is actually me being generous. You have so much less content than every other streaming platform's original lineup, yet still have the same price range. So of course I'd pay much less, since there's simply not as much there.
Not sure if I agree with the number you gave, but that is pretty sound reasoning.
There's more than just the content. There's the name recognition that comes with it. You're not going to get content from me or Jordan or anyone else on a different service.
Name recognition. I'm Donald Trump. Everyone knows who I am. Meanwhile, you go to colleges for debates, and most people there still don't know you.
Yeah, he's got you there, Ben. I don't know how you're going to get out of this one with a deal you're happy with.
Nah, I've got a great idea here, Joe. I was wondering, how awake are you right at this moment?
Honestly, I'm kind of drifting off, but I'm still here.
How much is in your defense budget?
About $6 billion.
If you give me that, then I'll give you everything at Daily Wire Plus, along with whatever your favorite ice cream flavor is, since I know you like that so much.
Done deal, I've already sent over the money.
Wow, Ben. You took advantage of Joe's sleepy state to get him to give you a much higher deal, but that wasn't very courteous of you.
Actually, that was just good business. I'm glad you seemed to learn something from Art of the Deal before you threw it in the fire, which I'm still upset about, but good job for securing that so smoothly.
Thanks, everyone. I'm much happier with my newfound wealth. So, Joe, you can do whatever you want with the website now.
What website?
Guys, I think there may have been a mistake made. If Joe gave away the entire defense budget of the country, then what happens if someone tries to attack us?
Okay, I didn't think about that, but Joe's the one who agreed to it, so it's really his fault if you think about it.
I don't know about that. Sure, Joe is at fault for giving it away, but you should have known it wasn't good to ask for all of it.
Joe gave away $6 billion for a site that 30 people use, including me, and yet I'm the one who's at fault. Are you hearing yourself right now?
First off, you should have known Joe doesn't make good decisions. And secondly, what happened to having 20 million new subscribers a few minutes ago? Now only 30 people use it.
Hey guys, I can still make this work even if 30 people use it. I'll get that money back soon enough. It'll be making a profit in no time.
How are you going to get $6 billion worth from 30 people? They would need to give on average of 200 million each if it's just them.
Well, if nobody else joins, then I'll have to increase the price of the subscription a little bit, but I can do it.
Hey guys, can we actually get back to the game today? We've barely mentioned it since I asked how Ben was doing.
Oh yeah, I suppose we could. We're actually just about to go through another boss battle now. We haven't had one since the last video.
Is this one going to include Barack and Joe freaking out while Ben insults a child?
I really hope not. That was pretty weird when it happened last time.
No, I don't think I'll be doing that this time. It just happened to work out that way before. I'll be sure there's no children to insult this time.
I can't make any promises, but if this is going to be an octopus, then I should be okay.
That's right, Joe. This is what's called the Octomammoth. Not sure why that's the name, but we just have to keep hitting him. There's no strategy we need to really implement here since it's very simple.
I would think using the black magic and standard attacks should be fine. Is that correct?
That is correct, along with white magic if we need to heal at all. He will also lose his tentacles to show his health going down.
I have to say, this doesn't look very enticing. I suppose if the characters were a lower level, then maybe this would be a challenge. But if just attacking him normally is enough to beat him, then I don't see much point in even having him here.
I'll admit it does take a little while for this game to have more interesting fights. The Mist Dragon was a decent introduction in the new battle system, but I do agree this one doesn't really have much impact.
Wait, guys, I think since I blew the defense budget, can I keep him and have him defend the country?
No, Joe, you cannot get the character in a game that's already halfway dead to protect the world. Besides, this thing is so weak, I don't think it would do much, even if it was real.
Okay, maybe you're right. I think it would have been a good idea if we needed to hide something like a waterfall.
I suppose if you wanted to keep them away from it for a minute or two, then it would be effective, but I don't think you thought that through well.
A good thing to keep in mind is if you ever believe Joe will come up with a good idea, you can just remember, oh yeah, he's Joe, and that thought will disappear very quickly.
Guys, I can clearly hear your insults. It's not like I'm hard of hearing or anything.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean it in a bad way. I just was doubting your comprehension and critical thought processes was all.
Oh, that's fine. No harm done then.
And just like that, the Octomammoth is down. He really didn't stand any chance against us. I wonder how he was guarding the exit anyway.
Who knows? I'm just glad he's gone and we can finally move on from this cave.
I hope this isn't like the last game and we get stuck in 5 different caves all in a row. That wasn't very fun. We're already at 2, so we'll see soon enough.
That sounds like a lot. At least these seem visually different, so that's something in its favor.
There will be one more, but we won't be going there quite yet. Then we'll be done with caves for quite a while, so don't worry too much.
Oh, good. I'm glad to know it's over, at least for the next few minutes. I think Tellah said we were going to Damcyan or whatever that is.
Hey, what's going on with the screen?
Oh, no, I forgot what happens here. Hey, here.
Is Barack freaking out about bombs for the second video in a row?
I can't help it. The Red Wings are... I think it's...
Barack, calm down. The bombs and destruction is over.
If that was Damcyan, I'm sure glad we didn't get there until after the bombs were dropped.
Maybe it's good that Octomammoth fought us, otherwise this game would be over much more quickly.
Hey guys, sorry about that. Yes, this is Damcyan Castle. Or at least the remainder of it that wasn't destroyed. There are some treasures on the right side outside of the castle, but the main part is coming up.
This seems really bad. I wonder if there's any survivors here, though I wouldn't bet on it based on how bad it looks in here.
There are actually a few survivors. We're going to be meeting them in just a couple seconds.
Maybe we can have them join us, since there's not much here left.
Up here is Anna, who is Tellah's daughter, and Edward, who was going to get married to Anna until all of those bombs dropped and killed nearly everyone.
Oh no, that's really sad that they were so happy and going to get married, then the whole castle gets destroyed. It happens.
Wait, why are they fighting? Edward didn't do anything.
I don't think he approved of their marriage, and also his daughter is on the floor, so that doesn't help anything.
Did Tellah just call Edward a spoony bard? What does that mean?
Very good question. That was actually a strange detail put into the Super Nintendo version of the game initially as when it was translated from the Japanese version, someone put in that line. But it's weird how unfitting it is, since Tellah is basically calling Edward something along the lines of a dummy or an idiot, whereas given the circumstances, he would likely use much more harsh language.
That does sound weird. Did they take it out later at all?
Actually, no, the game has been re-released and had script changes quite a few times, but that specific line has been kept intact due to how iconic it is, and even appears in most other Final Fantasy games as a joke.
That is interesting, but I'm more concerned about Anna here. I really hope she makes it despite her injuries.
Somehow I doubt it. This looks like the part where she dies and then we'll have to avenge her or something like that.
We'll be fine without her. It's not like she has any special skills that would have contributed to the party. Better to get rid of the dead weight.
That seems very insensitive, but also, you're probably right at the same time. I mean, Tellah and Rydia have their magic, Cain had his lance, and Cecil has his sword. I don't see anything Edward has, unless he's a musician or something.
I feel bad for Tellah. He just lost his daughter, and now he looks like he's going on some revenge quest. But Edward also lost the same person, and now his entire place where he presumably lived is destroyed.
Really sad, I know, but did anyone else forget that we're supposed to be getting that thing for Rosa? I don't even think we got anything in that cave that would have helped. And even if we did, I don't think we can go back the same way.
Now that you mention it, that does sound right. Kind of hard to think that was only about 15 minutes ago.
We will actually be getting that in the next video. Since Tellah left, we will also be gaining Edward as a party member, so we'll show off what he can do next time.
I'm going to be disappointed if he's not a magic user.
He is not.
Then I am disappointed.
Since the video is over, I wanted to say thanks for having me on again. I'm glad to continue this adventure with you all.
Anytime, George. It's been fun so far.
But with that, thank you to the viewers for still watching this. There's a lot more parts to come, I'm sure.
We'll get a lot more done next time. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe as always.
I managed to stay awake after all. Peace out, people. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Final Fantasy IV. It's been a little while since we made progress here. Can someone remind me, us, what happened?
If I remember right, we left to a cave and met some old guy named Tellah, but then he left after his daughter was caught up in a bombing incident. Meanwhile, this other guy named Edward joined us, and now we have to save Rosa with a sand ruby. Does that sound right?
That is correct, and here is what we need to know for now. Edward is a bard, but honestly, he's not useful in battle. One of his main abilities is to hide, which does nothing for us, but it's not so bad as we won't really have him in our party after this episode, though he will still show up a few more times.
Yeah, he just did like 11 damage to that goblin with his harp. I'm not even sure how that is supposed to hurt them, unless his music is so bad the enemies don't want to live anymore. That would be something.
And he barely has any health to begin with. We recruited a small child to the party, and she has nearly twice the durability. This guy provides no value to our group. He's the Joe Biden of the characters we've encountered.
Oh, I wasn't listening. Is that a good thing?
Sure, let's go with that.
So I wonder, are you all enjoying this game so far? I'll admit, it's still a lot to take in like it was before, but I think I'm understanding the game more as it goes on. Though all the rotating characters in our party seems a bit strange, like we had Cain until the end of the first video, Tellah until the end of the last video, and from what I understand, Edward will be gone soon too. It's a little hard to get invested when so many just leave as they are introduced.
Yeah, I'll admit, despite this game being one of my favorites, it is tough to stay focused on training certain characters when they will just be gone so soon. And without giving much away, this will be continuing on throughout the game, mostly in the first half.
That is a good point, though. On the other hand, it does bring a lot more variety to the game to make it more memorable. For example, in the first game, we just kind of went through it with the same abilities with the exception of higher level magic, whereas here, even the useless characters like Edward are at least more interesting in gameplay. Especially on a story level, as they have more motivation and development than the Warriors of Light, where they were just helping people around the world until they knocked Garland down.
Also a good point. You can make the argument either way, but since Cecil is playable throughout the entirety, there is at least one who you can stay invested in without worrying if he will be leaving. I can also let you know when a character is here permanently or not. It's not so much a spoiler since the game has been out for so many years.
That would actually be nice. As long as I know when Edward is gone, that makes me happy. Though I'm not thrilled about having someone like him on the team at all.
Oh, come on, it's not so bad. He can sing songs for us and play his harp to distract us from the enemy encounters.
That doesn't make any sense, though. It's not like we can actually hear his song since it's only used as a weapon, He is actually such a failure that you can't even hear his songs by design in the game. I'm throwing a party at Mar-a-Lago once Edward is gone, if anyone, even Joe, wants to come.
That's enough, you two. It's time to focus up on the Antlion. He is the boss fight for the cave, though it's not much of a fight or a cave since we're already almost done, and it's only been a few minutes.
So how do you beat this guy?
It's actually as simple as most other fights. You can use magic attacks against him just fine, though he will counter if you use a physical attack, though. Honestly, it's so weak that it's not even an issue if you do use them. Cecil takes like 2 damage, so it's basically just as easy if you were fighting a regular enemy. In the 3D versions of the game, the eyes were changing color to show what type of attacks you can and can't use, which is much better than this.
And with Edward using the items we got earlier, he's actually proving himself almost halfway competent. Though it's not like anyone else can't use them. I assume this is the most we're going to get out of him.
Yeah, that sounds about right. This guy isn't even worth it for me to do my roast since his existence is already enough of a roast against him, something we are going to be ending very soon as he should be finished soon.
Hey, did the Antlion use his counter on Rydia when it was Cecil that used an attack on him? That seems pretty weird.
And what was that Chocobo thing that just came up?
So for the counter, sometimes he will attack someone different as opposed to whom actually attacked him, which is a little weird, but Rydia can probably take a few more hits than Edward as he just uses items that we wouldn't otherwise use. And the Chocobo kick is a summon Rydia can use like Titan from earlier, though I don't think we'll use it again, as it's going to be overshadowed by way better summons later in the game.
And just like that, the loser Antlion's defeated, but we still have the even bigger loser Edward to get rid of still, so it's a hollow victory.
Well, now that we have the Sand Ruby, we can go back to Rosa and help her, right?
Yes, and we will cut ahead a little bit so we can save some time traveling, though we will buy some other potions and supplies off screen. Now, it's most important to wake up Rosa, as she is the white mage that will help heal us on our journey more than Rydia could with her white magic.
Well, that's nice for these two to get a reunion, but is it fine to just leave Edward here? I know I'm harping on him, no pun intended, but he really hasn't contributed anything besides using items on an already easy boss fight, so there's no point in keeping him here anymore.
You know what, I'm going to agree with Donald on this. He really hasn't done anything of value, though. I disagree with calling him the Joe Biden of Final Fantasy IV, as that kind of sounds bad for me.
Yeah, honestly, I'm sure he could have some plot importance later, but that's the only reason he could be kept around, even though Cecil and Rydia themselves have way more value and can take on the journey just fine without him.
I would agree with that sentiment. This game seems good, but the uselessness of Edward is a point of contention against this part of the game.
Wow, it's taken us so many hours of gaming together for all of us to unanimously agree on something, and it was about the uselessness of Edward. It took us a long time to get there, but we finally found unity.
Well, I wasn't part of most of it, but I'm glad I can be here for this monumental occasion for the group.
Trust me, we have had so many arguments mostly about golf, but it's really important for us to have this.
Oh, wait, what is happening here now?
Looks like the failure is back outside for some reason. I couldn't imagine what he would need to do. Not like there are many options in a desert he hasn't been to before.
He is remembering Anna, you know, that lady from the bombing in the last video that caused her to die? We only had her on screen for about a minute, so I can understand if you don't remember her.
Maybe he's playing some special song for her. Not that she can hear it as she just vanished out of the air pretty quickly. Do people just do that in this world when they're hurt or something?
From what I can tell, that sounds right. Barak, is this fight one we should worry about?
Not at all. It's one of the multiple scripted encounters where the outcome is the same regardless of your actions. In this case, Edward is fighting a standard enemy that Cecil or Rydia would have no trouble with, but he struggles, since of course he does. Then Anna's ghost appears to him or something like that.
That's kind of weird. I'd imagine it would take a little longer for him to get through a significant loss, but I guess literally the same night works too. But if he's not in the party for much longer, then I guess it makes sense why it would have to be fit here.
Anna is leaving this world for a better place. I'm guessing she means anywhere that Edward isn't, so she's definitely right about that.
Hey, if she's dead and still shows up as a ghost, can Rydia summon her in battles?
Interesting question. While we make our way forward here, I will say that summons are actually taken from a specific location we will be arriving to, and it's not from the afterlife.
Oh, okay, that's good to know.
Wow, everybody agreeing on something and Joe thinking about things critically. Did we somehow arrive in a reverse version of our normal world where things work out so much better than normal?
Unfortunately not. Otherwise, my catchphrase would be that worked perfectly except for the part that didn't, which was none of it.
Hey, Barak, is this thing in the game important at all?
Ah, yes, so this is a part of Rydia's development, mainly because the bombs that set the village of Mist on fire scarred her for obvious reasons. So she needs to overcome that to melt the ice and progress.
Wait, hold up, that makes no sense. Why is this ice here? This is the first time we've seen anything cold in this game, aside from Anna after the life left her. But it's only on this path? There is no other ice anywhere on the overworld map, or even on the screen right now. There's no reason why this should be cold other than to give Rydia a reason to use fire for the first time. I understand it's to help her development, but it would make more sense if there was more ice throughout the whole map instead of this one specific spot. Even if it was more than that, I'm sure we could use that hover ship outside or even one of those elemental items to melt it. Or just wait a while, since it can't be that cold out here.
Wow, go off, Ben. I didn't even think of that, but you're definitely right.
Okay, yeah, I can't really defend that. It's one thing to have her get past an issue that she experienced, but this was kind of a sloppy way of doing so. It seems like that's a trend with Edward getting peace with Anna's ghost and Rydia using fire now.
A little off topic, but Barak, I'm glad you're getting through this whole battle without going nuts over the bombs here. You didn't do so well the past few times.
Yeah, that was pretty weird the past few times, but you are definitely improving on that. I hope we'll make it through the rest of the video without any issues like that.
Don't worry, guys, I'll be fine. We're going to pick up some optional items here. This is not required for us to go through, but I do want to show off some areas and items if they're not too far out of the way.
That does make sense, though. I don't think it will make much of a difference to us, since I'm guessing we won't even be using most of these items we get, if any.
You are right, but for those who aren't as initiated in the game as I am, it is useful to know when there are interesting things to find.
Hey, I've noticed we haven't really talked much about the battles for a while, since I think the Antlion fight in any great detail. Is the game just going to stay pretty easy to where we won't even mention the battles?
Honestly, I'm not sure. The game is pretty easy, especially when I'm playing it, so I wouldn't doubt if it becomes too easy to really bring up all that often.
Hold up there. Barak, don't get too confident. We all tend to do that in golf matches, and most of us end up being wrong. If you stay like that, then you'll get too full of yourself and start to fail.
Nobody asked you, Joe. I am doing perfectly fine by myself. I am capable of playing the entire game without difficulty and explaining the intricacies at the same time, so I know I can do these things without issue, unlike you, where we would be here for 6 hours in the Mist Cave if you were playing it.
Whoa, where did this ego come from? Joe is right. You're getting too full of yourself, and you're going to lose focus and fail if you keep it up.
This seems to be a scripted battle since it's a new character, so I think he's actually okay right now, but you are right that he is getting too far over his head.
Wow, spoken like a true facts and logic expert. I was about to mention that, but you're almost at my caliber of intelligence and detail analyzing.
Oh, great. Now it's happening to him, too. We were doing pretty well together, but it seems like we're faltering at the halfway point.
Relax, guys. Everything's going to be fine. There is no need to worry about me right now.
I'm not too sure about that. There's a bomb ahead of you, and you know how you get around those.
Yeah, I'm with Joe on this, Barak. I don't think this is going to go well.
We're about to find out.
Oh, no, it's the mom bomb. I knew this was coming. Ooh, but I thought I could prepare myself better for this.
We're not doing too well, but I guess I've heard worse.
Okay, let me see if I can hold myself together enough to explain the battle. Basically, you just keep on attacking like normal, and then it would blow up after a while, so be sure the character health is up.
What is it with you and bombs anyway? This seems pretty weird of a reaction.
It seems as though most of us have an adverse reaction to certain events, such as Joe going nuts whenever a dancer or children appear on screen, which is incredibly concerning. Then there is Barak, whenever high concentration of bombs appear. Though smaller ones don't seem to have the same impact. Then I had it happen in one of our recent golf games when I was losing a lot. I don't think you or Donald have had that issue yet, though.
Guys, it's an even larger bomb than before.
Barak, what is wrong with you? This isn't even a hard battle.
Barak, we're going to need you to pull it together, otherwise we will never win at this rate.
It's happening. The bomb is exploding into even more bombs. Oh!
I think I speak for everyone in that we're all going to need long amounts of therapy after this battle is over, since aside from the easiness of the fight, nothing is going well.
Just a few more bombs and then it's over.
Okay, I am making the executive decision to skip ahead as nothing entertaining is happening with 5 bombs, and Barak needs to be normal sooner.
You know what? I think you're right. It's what's best for the group, so thank you for skipping ahead.
All right, are you finally done so we can move on with the rest of the game?
Yes, I'm all right now. Sorry about that, guys. I knew it was coming up and I thought I could hold it in, but evidently I couldn't.
What's important is now you're focused back to the game, and since you are, can you tell us who this guy is and how he's important to us?
Oh yes, so this is Yang. He's a monk who specializes in hand-to-hand combat, though can equip various claws to do more damage. He can use a kick move to attack each enemy at once for lower damage or focus to power up a physical attack. Soon we will be in the castle of Fabul where he resides.
Another new party member. I think that's 2 in 1 session since I think Edward joined us at the end of the last one. Is this Yang guy going to be like Edward, or is he going to be of use?
Based on the battle with him alone and against the bombs, he seemed to hold up quite well. He was actually capable of fighting, unlike Edward, so perhaps he won't be a complete failure.
Yeah, don't worry. You're really going to like him. He will provide us a lot of help quite soon, as we'll have to make it over to Fabul soon, though not much interesting happens right now.
Ooh, does that mean I can tell one of my stories in the meantime?
That is definitely not what he meant at all.
Okay, fine, but later I'll give one. I'll leave you all in suspense for a few more minutes then.
What do you mean in suspense? I am not going to be predicting what your story is, and I hope you end up not remembering to tell it later.
Ooh, come on, the stories aren't that bad. At least they're not as bad as Barack's insanity over bombs.
No, I could have been way worse, even though I wasn't at my best. It wasn't even too bad. I don't think.
It definitely was that bad, and I implore you to seek psychiatric help if you continue to react that way for bombs whenever they show up. I'm not sure what causes that, but there is for sure a problem.
Fake news anyway. This is Fabul. We could go to the king, but there is some exploring we can do in the meantime that will help with getting more items.
Not that we would really use them anyway, but I guess that's good to know. The king can probably wait for us a little while. We've accomplished so much each episode that we'll get done whatever he needs us for.
Well, it looks like we're in the chambers, but he isn't here.
But now I know who is here. Hey,
Seriously, again.
Dancer, I have been waiting for this again. Wait, hold up. Why is it a guy?
Oh, this is not what I wanted. I wasn't expecting you.
Okay, what is wrong with you people?
I thought it would be a lady the whole time, but it couldn't be again.
Barack, please just tell us something about the game so we don't have to listen to Joe. This is all falling apart as soon as we got to the mountain.
Ah, yes. So cutting ahead to the king's throne room, Baron is going to be attacking Fabul. So if we are able to stop them, then they cannot take the crystal hidden behind this room. That's essentially what is going on here. Rydia and Rosa will be doing something else, which means it's just going to be Cecil, Edward, and Yang.
Hey, Joe, I hate to ask this, but can you tell one of your stories just so we know you're relatively coherent once again?
Yes, so there I was doing my study of dinosaurs where I was trying to figure out how to clone them for no particular reason. And then my friend Uglier Joe found it. If we took the mosquitoes hidden inside amber, we would have the contained blood of dinosaurs intact, and we could clone them. I did, and then opened up a theme park place called Jurassic Park. Some people told me it was dangerous and that we were standing on tops of shoulders of scientists who did the real work, and just because we could have doesn't mean we should have, but I was eating a popsicle during that time, so I wasn't too focused. Some dinosaurs got out. I think one of them ate Uglier Joe, and then we decided to never open it up again until later, when we realized there was a lot of money in it. The end.
Okay, wait up a moment, Joe. That was just a retelling of the book and also movie Jurassic Park. That obviously was not something that you did.
Let's remember that Joe is pretty old, so this is one of the more likely stories out of all the ones he has told. Though him being a scientist does put that credibility to question.
And actually, George, did you say that there was also a book? I wasn't aware of it.
Yes, there was a book, I believe, by Michael Crichton, which was later adapted by Steven Spielberg. The book and movie are very similar, but the beginning of the book is more about how the dinosaurs were cloned, along with the idea of turning it into both a zoo and theme park-like attraction has the structural problems of both, and the movie doesn't quite go into as much detail about those parts, while the rest of it is fairly close to the book's events, though later movies will go and make up their own storylines past the original book and its sequel, The Lost World, Jurassic Park.
Wow, I didn't know I had a book and movie based on my experience. That must be pretty cool. Who would have known?
Joe, you didn't have a book and movie made about your experience not cloning dinosaurs, but George, I'm glad you mentioned it. I think a fair amount of people didn't even know it was based on a book and just know about the movie. I'm sure at least a few people learned that just now.
Yeah, it's something that I think most people know, but I can't be certain. There are other movies based on books that aren't as close to the source material, such as World War Z, which basically was completely different. It's always interesting how different adaptations decide to use and not use different aspects of things they're based on.
I can only imagine that there's going to be people learning that World War Z and Jurassic Park are actually based on books by watching political figures play a game released on the Super Nintendo. That is a pretty weird thing to happen these days.
And strangely enough is even more entertaining than what's actually happening in the game, as it's just battles one after the other, with two decent fighters and Edward.
Of course, Edward has to fall behind and make us fight another battle because he's a useless failure and should have died in Damcyan instead of Anna. She would have made for a better party member at this point.
Honestly, these battles are not too difficult. The only annoying part is there's nowhere to save in case you do somehow lose against them, other than that it's rather easy to make it through just fine. I would have asked to focus on the game earlier, but I think the other discussion was a better use of time at this point.
Hey, it's Cain. He's been gone since Mist was separated in that earthquake. I'm glad he made it out alive.
But why does he want to fight us all of a sudden?
I don't know, but I'm not sure if we can win too easily. If he can jump like he did before, as enemies couldn't hurt him before, but now he is the enemy.
That is right, but there isn't anything to actually worry about since this is another scripted fight where, for story reasons, he has to defeat us. Even if we somehow leveled Cecil to a level where we could beat him, that wouldn't change anything.
Have you actually tried that out yourself to know that?
No, I just heard about that online, and I have no reason to doubt it, as it would mess up the game story. If you somehow did beat him, and I didn't find any reason to try leveling up Cecil to a really high level, especially with something that will come up next time that I won't spoil for you all.
Oh, good. I'm glad there's something to look forward to. I'm not really sure what it is.
I'm not sure either, but more importantly, who is this guy coming in the room?
Looks like his name is Golbez, but I'm not sure if we've heard much about him, if anything, by this point.
Whoa, that attack just knocked two people out in one shot. One of them was Edward, so that isn't a surprise, but that shouldn't have gotten Yang as well. And now they're getting the crystal.
He is even taking Rosa too, but I'm not really sure how that works exactly unless he is teleporting her somewhere. I wonder why Cain has become an enemy and is working with Golbez all of a sudden.
Yeah, I don't know, but this must be pretty bad. I'm guessing them having the crystal isn't going to be good at all, though I'm not sure what they, or even we, would do with it. I think they have the one from the beginning of the game as well, so that would make 2 or even 3 if they have one of their own beforehand as well.
That is good thinking. In the first Final Fantasy game, our characters were looking for the crystal to save the world, but I never thought about what would happen if someone bad was on the same quest. It looks like we might find out soon enough.
I wanted to be sure you all could watch that scene without my input to see what happens for yourselves. A lot of these questions will be shown soon enough, but we're going to have to wait for future parts to see what that entails. Nothing else major will be happening with battles for now, mainly just planning on what to do next.
Ah, very good. I have to say the game is getting better when we can actually focus on certain characters without so many being introduced and leaving, unless it's effective, like with Golbez, where he leaves an impression the very first time and makes us wonder what kind of a person he is.
I think I met a guy named Golbez recently, though he couldn't shoot lightning at all. He might have been the White House delivery driver for my popsicle order. He comes around once every few days to replenish the supply.
I doubt that's his name, but the rest of it is the most realistic story you have ever told up to this point.
Hey, before this ends, Barak, you did a great job this time, except for you falling apart during that bomb fight. Your gameplay was well done, and I'm excited to see what is coming next.
Yeah, I hope that bomb thing doesn't keep going, but otherwise you did well, and hopefully it won't be another month until the next part.
Don't worry, there should be no more bombs next time, and I don't think any dancers, if I remember right, so we should be okay. And yes, it shouldn't take another month this time. That's the goal for now, at least.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IV. Last time we met even more characters and defended this castle except for the crystal that was stolen, and also Rosa. And also there were people here that died. It didn't go well.
Yeah, it was pretty much a disaster in the last section. Nothing really went well. But now we are moving back to Baron through this ship that is conveniently ready for us.
Ooh, a ship. This reminds me of the first time I was on a ship. I was traveling with my friends on the Mayflower to a new land that was just discovered. Good times.
That's the most believable story you've ever told somehow.
Joe probably was on the Mayflower, but I think we need to plan out our strategy before we land in Baron, since Cain isn't with us, and Cecil isn't on good terms with the king. We can't just waltz our way in.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. I would imagine there's another way in besides the main entrance, but I didn't notice anything in the first part that would let us in for sure.
Well, Barak knows this game pretty well, so I imagine he would know how to get in a different way. What would you have to say about that?
I don't typically like to spoil things, but I guess there's no avoiding it. We aren't making it to Baron this episode. We're going to hit a small problem on our way there that will throw us off course.
I hope it's nothing that could possibly inconvenience us that badly. Maybe I can play this for a bit to steer the ship in the right direction.
I think this is one of those scripted events, meaning you can't just play in a different way to get around it.
Whoa, the water is getting pretty bad.
I don't know what that thing in the water is, but I don't think it's here to help us.
This must be what's throwing us off course from Baron.
If I were there, Captain Trump could have saved everyone and probably even convinced the Leviathan to steer our ship itself.
That's definitely not happening. Also, Rydia and Yang are gone. They were actually useful.
I hope Edward falls in too.
Not exactly, but things are about to get much worse before they get better for our group.
This seems like a very abrupt way of changing the direction of the plot. I don't even think this thing has been mentioned before this moment, but now it's ruining our chances of making it to Baron. That seems very inconvenient.
That's only because it is. Admittedly, they could have built up to the idea that a Leviathan was in the water, but it will make a little more sense later, though that would be spoiling the game a little bit.
Well, that's a shame. At least Cecil is okay, but I'm a little worried for the other members except for Edward. I wonder where they ended up.
Not sure, but at least there's a town where we can ask the citizens for help. This should go well, I would anticipate.
Hey, this place looks familiar. Did we arrive here earlier in the game?
And why is the Black Mage turning Cecil into a toad? That seems like an unkind thing to do.
I think he can change us back if we talk to him again, but yeah, that is really weird.
Well, in case you haven't figured it out, this is Mysidia, where Cecil and the Red Wings killed various members of the town in order to take the crystal in the beginning of the game. Now Cecil has to face his past in order to get back to Baron, since he has nothing else that can help him.
This must be pretty sad for the people that are here to realize Cecil is back after what he did for them. I know he's supposed to be the hero now, based on his actions afterwards, but I can't blame the people here for not forgiving him at all.
That is really sad.
I'll tell you what isn't sad is this dancer. Ah! Oh yeah, this is still the best game ever.
Joe, this is not an appropriate time for this?
Oh yes, this, oh, don't ever stop dancing, please. It's what I need here.
How does this keep happening?
Hell yeah.
Are you finally done? I swear this happens like every time we play this game.
And it was actually an old lady that whole time and somehow transformed him into a pig. Is that what happened?
Oh yeah, sorry guys. I think I can hold it together now.
Maybe one day you can overcome whatever it is that those dancers do, but somehow I'm not betting on it.
It's Joe we're talking about, so obviously not.
Okay, on to something a little more meaningful. Cecil has no choice but to acknowledge the terrible things he has done to this town, and here he is finally going to get the chance of redemption. This scene is lowered in value a little based on the fact that nobody acknowledges that Cecil was turned into a pig, though.
Well, I guess he turned back when the Elder talked to him, but that is still weird for nobody to bring that up. What exactly happens here now?
Cecil has to travel to Mount Ordeals in order to atone for killing those in the beginning of the game, but he's going to be accompanied by two students learning magic, Palam and Poram.
Ooh yeah, kids come to President Joe. I'll be happy to go on this trip with both of you.
Somehow I figured this would get really bad once kids became involved. Is there really nobody else this elder could have sent? If this Mount Ordeals place is dangerous, then I don't think they should accompany him.
That makes sense. But it's possible they don't have a lot of people left to spare since Cecil and the other Red Wings probably killed the more experienced magic users. But still, that doesn't mean kids should be involved in this anyway.
I hadn't thought of it like that, but my point still stands.
All right, guys, let's heal up before we go any further. I don't think the game designers thought about this more than we have, so there's not much point speculating.
And if these kids are joining now, Barack, can you tell us what exactly they do here?
Yes, so Palom is the black magic user, and Poram uses white magic. Honestly, I'm not a huge fan of them, as their magic capabilities don't start off well, as they have lower level magic, though to be fair, they do learn better spells pretty quickly. It is a bit disappointing going from Rydia and Rosa, who have had important development both in gameplay and in story just a little while ago, to these two who don't leave a lasting impact.
Is there anything else important about them that could be noteworthy in the story without giving any major spoilers?
Not really, as they're not in the game for very long and they don't make a lasting impact even when they are here. I think they're around just so Cecil doesn't go completely alone to the mountain for gameplay reasons.
Ooh, guys, I know what to do. I can tell one of my stories since you all enjoy that so much.
No, we do not. Please don't tell another story.
So there I was with my friends at a cabin in the woods that was probably abandoned a while ago, which of course makes it the perfect place to go for a vacation. My friends Uglier Joe, Harold, Steve, and Bruce Campbell were all there with me, and we discovered a book called the Necronomicon Ex Mortis, which translates to Book of the Dead. We didn't think it was real, but then people started getting possessed, and then everyone died but me. I then met up with some other people and nearly got possessed myself, but I didn't, as I chopped my hand off and replaced it with a chainsaw. I thought this was a cool moment, so I said groovy in a shack outside the cabin, and soon after was transported to the Middle Ages. I fought the medieval dead along with other people in a castle until I slept for a long time, which was supposed to send me back to the present, but I slept too long and landed up in a wasteland. The end.
Okay, I'm pretty sure that was just the Evil Dead series of movies, and those could not have happened, just like every other story you tell.
Actually, the part about him sleeping too long probably did happen.
Come on, guys, that really happened to me.
There's an easy way for us to tell, Joe. You said you cut off your hand in the story, but if you have both hands right now, then it couldn't have happened.
Oh yeah, I'll count them right now. 1, 2, 8. What? How did that happen? I could have sworn I cut one of these off.
Yet another inconsistency, but who didn't see that one coming?
Hey, Barack, did we miss anything in the game that was important while Joe was telling his story that didn't happen to him?
Not in particular just going to a chocobo forest. And even then, the larger chocobo doesn't really help us since our inventory space is infinite in this version of the game, although there is this scene showing Golbez, Cain, and Rosa just to remind the player of the stakes. Not that they are particularly hard to remember, although it does show one of the minions, Scarmiglione, being sent somewhere. So we have that to pay attention to.
Wait, what was that? Did you say this guy's name is Scarmiglione? What kind of a name is that?
Interesting that you ask. There are actually 4 archfiends that serve Golbez that we will encounter, kind of like the fiends that were by the crystals in the original Final Fantasy. I won't say the other ones now as we're not fighting them yet, but there is another name, Gurion, who appears in the 3D versions of the game, but we won't fight that at all here. Those are actually based on Dante's Divine Comedy, if any of you have read that, though based on what I know of you all, I'm guessing the answer is no.
I have to be honest, everyone, I never learned how to read. I've just been faking it this whole time.
That is the least surprising admission you could have ever made.
Yeah, we know how you are around your teleprompter, so we just kind of figured.
Hey, this isn't really related, but I just don't want to talk about Joe anymore. Ben, didn't you feature in some new song or something? I saw your name on it and didn't know if it was one of those AI videos that just made it sound like you were talking when you really weren't.
Yes, that was really me, not some AI-generated version of me. I was rapping along with Tom McDonald, one of the best rappers I know, who constantly brings the facts to Americans in song format.
Wait a moment, isn't this that Tellah guy from earlier? He was on an entirely different continent like the last video. How did he get up here now?
Honestly, I have no idea, but yes, I did hear that song as well, though I do find it strange how Tom McDonald is a Canadian, yet he seems much more invested in American politics. Not saying you can't be involved in it, but it's rather strange how he doesn't show the same level of concern towards Canada in song format.
Yeah, I guess that is a little strange, but I think it would be a better use of our time to talk about Tellah. It's weird how there are 3 mages on our team when there's only 1 physical attacker. That does not seem very even.
Not sure, but I think you're right. I can't imagine why magic would be so important coming up unless there's some major enemy we need to fight that's only weak against magic or something else like that.
I will say that is not the case. It does feel pretty weird to have this combination of characters, though. If it helps, it won't be lasting very long. I think the main thing to remember is that Edward is out of our party and won't make things any worse.
Oh yeah, I'm happy to see Edward. Out of party. It's so good to have him.
Are you serious now? Donald is freaking out over Edward being gone? What is it with you people all having such strong reactions to things happening? Edward was out of the party like 8 minutes ago, too.
I don't know. I just didn't notice. Ha 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 ha. Oh.
Donald, you need to stop and calm down, otherwise you're going to end up like me when I see the dancers.
But I hate Edward. I'm so happy he isn't here. How do you calm yourself down when you see the dancers?
Ooh, I'm thinking about the dancers. It's happening again. I don't know what to do.
Guys, now I'm too busy thinking about the mom bomb from before. Oh no, hey. It's happening to me, too.
Ben, I think the others have lost it, and it looks like there's a boss fight coming up. I think it's up to you and I to take control while the others do whatever it is they're doing.
It looks like that Scarmiglione guy from before. I have an idea that Tellah wants to learn Meteor, and Cecil wants to receive redemption from taking the crystal and killing those in the process. I think if we get through, then Barack, Donald, and Joe will finally overcome their insanity and turn back to normal.
Oh, hold me closer, tiny dancer.
If we get rid of these zombies, we should have enough time to focus on the Archfiend alone. So maybe magic will do the trick.
Yeah, keep using fire. Just like the bombs from before.
All right, we can just keep using magic since Cecil's blade won't hurt them. Maybe that's why the magic users are all here.
Yeah, the magic users, unlike Edward, who I hate. Ooh, I hate him being in the game at all.
Will you three stop interrupting us? We're trying to play the game here since you all are too insane to play yourselves.
We can't stop the feelings, but the dancers and Edward and bombs.
It's too much to because no, we need you to beat this guy, dude.
Can't even understand you at this point, guys. You're barely even saying words.
I believe in you, even if we can't help it.
All right, guys, you are all officially lost causes. I think George and I can handle this whole playthrough by ourselves at this point.
Hey, Ben, I saw that match of golf in the volcano a while ago. I think that's the only time you went insane yourself. How are you keeping calm, unlike the others?
Not sure, but if it helps us keep focused, then I can't really complain.
Honestly, this doesn't require that much focus. It's just mainly healing and attacking, so it's at least not a difficult fight that we were stuck with.
Don't worry, guys. You got this for sure.
Not like any of you can be playing this still. How have none of you gotten better in the past minute or so? None of the things you're reacting to are even here.
I just see the dancers in my head doing their dances, and it makes me want to go back off this mountain and dance with them. Oh, boy. Hey.
Think about everyone I've ever met named Bahia. Okay, Edward, and I want to build a wall around them to get them out of here, since I don't want them near me.
I just like him. Tell bomb so much. Whoa.
Barack, are you okay there? You sound kind of underwater at this point. Don't worry, guys. We've beat Scarmiglione, and we're almost to the part where you're probably going to be better. Honestly, I don't know if it will even work.
Switch the formation for the next fight. You'll need it. Please do it.
I don't know what you mean since we already won, but okay, I suppose I'll do it.
Hold on, I think something is happening. Barack was right after all. At least he is thinking kind of clearly.
See, I knew you could do.
Just a little longer, and then you'll all be all right.
I wonder if Scarmiglione can dance for me. That would be so good if he could do that.
Hey, I just thought about something. How is it that reaching this part of Mount Ordeals would help them get better when it's just a part of a video game and not some magical force that will help them focus?
I have no idea, but I don't really have anything else to go off of. So we just have to hope this works out. Though we'll probably only have to put up with them for the next couple minutes being like this.
What do you mean I am completely fine now? That is what all the people have been saying. Donald, you are the most sane and focused person I have ever met. Unlike that Edward, who should be gone forever.
I think they're starting to get better and use real sentences, even if those sentences are still pretty incoherent.
Scarmiglione, all I need you to dance for me right now.
And now Joe wants Scarmiglione to dance for him. He has somehow gotten even worse as time goes on when it's helped the other two, at least a little. We need to get past him, otherwise he's going to be completely incoherent. Or at least more than he is right now already.
You should use a bomb. Fragment. I saw it in the menu that might work against him.
No, Barack, we are not using bombs. You need to accept that despite us having them, we will not use them.
Yeah, we're doing all right so far. It's just needing to attack him while being sure we get enough magic attacks on him as well. I think we'll be okay, as long as we don't get too many knockouts on our side.
Edward, if I see you again, I'm gonna throw this game in the garbage. I can never get over this. You're a useless bard, and I hope you always feel that every second. You're
Donald, he's not even that bad. Calm down. Even though none of us liked him, it's not enough to justify this kind of hatred against him.
I'm willing to bet he was even a Democrat that rigged the election against me. Yeah, I know that's probably what happened.
It wasn't rigged. And you know what? You Oompa Loompa.
Okay, we're finally done against this guy. Now we just have to get to whatever the next part is, and then we can have Tellah learn Meteor, have Cecil do whatever will redeem him, and the other presidents will be back to normal, I hope.
There's only one way to find out. It's time to heal the poison off screen, and then we'll get over there to see if it's going to work.
There's no more battles, so you can switch the formation. Back and you'll be ready?
Good to know now. Let's see what's in this place.
Hey guys, are you all normal now, or close to it as you'll get?
I think so, yeah.
I'm as good as new now.
What about you, Barak? Barak, are you there?
You bet Barak is back. And now it's time to help Cecil achieve the same thing. He needs to conquer the Dark Knight part of himself, but not through fighting like everything else in the game, but by defending himself against the Dark Knight's attacks. This won't kill Cecil, and the battle will end automatically, meaning he has finally conquered all the negativity that he has experienced. Thanks for helping us get through the last part, while we weren't able to help. It was good to see you didn't need my guidance when it came down to it.
Yeah, sorry about that. I let my hate of Edward cloud my judgment, and it caused me to become erratic.
I'm not sure where I'm at right now. Did I ask that dead guy to dance for me? That sounds kind of familiar, but I don't know.
Glad to see everyone is back to normal. Something I did notice was that some unspecified voice called Cecil his son. I don't think we've met Cecil's father or mother, so I'm not sure what's going on there.
I feel like that's something important that will come up later in the game, and I don't think Barak would say what it is as to not spoil anything important.
That is correct. I will not identify whatever it is that was talking to Cecil, as that will become more relevant later. Now we need to focus on heading back to Mysidia since we have accomplished our goal.
Well, that is fine. I didn't want any spoilers, so that is good. I'll say I had a lot of fun this time, despite you three being a bit nuts for a while. It was still interesting to fight one of the Archfiends myself, since I wasn't in the first game's playthrough.
I think we're okay now. I can't guarantee it won't happen again later, but it's not happening now. So that's what is most important.
Honestly, it will probably happen again the next time a dancer comes around, but I don't want to say for sure until it happens.
Overall, it was a great and fun time. Thanks for making sure we were all as focused as we could. And next time we'll go back to Mysidia and over to Baron, since the Leviathan messed up our course.
Yeah, I'm glad it worked out. Thanks to all who are watching.
We'll be back with more in a little while.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people.
Welcome back, everyone, to yet another adventure into Final Fantasy IV. We just got done with Mount Ordeals, and now we're going to see what we need to do to get to Baron, if I remember right.
You're right, Joe. We did get done with all of that, and we have to talk with the Elder again, though it is interesting talking with other people in town, as they didn't think he would be able to redeem himself, though some people aren't as forgiving, which is understandable based on what he has done.
That's good and all. But did this Elder actually send kids to spy on Cecil? I couldn't have imagined that would be a smart idea. First off, he's probably a Democrat, since he's willing to spy on people like that. And second, if he was wrong about Cecil being able to redeem himself, then he's sending two pretty defenseless kids with him, and that seems like a terrible idea all around.
Donald, I agree with your point, but I'm sorry I have to interrupt. Is any of this important information that we have to be focusing on?
Honestly, no, this is similar to the beginning of the game, where there's just text that generally says what the characters do, but this isn't required to read.
Oh, good. I was hoping we would get it done quickly so Donald didn't find another monologue in the game as an excuse to comment on my son's addiction to various illegal substances.
Hey, I haven't done it that many times, and besides, at this point, it's like a tradition to where I say that at the beginning of a Final Fantasy journey, if we start another game soon, then I'm sure it will happen again.
So while you two have been babbling about nonsense, I'm actually focused on the game. Is Tellah a part of that test that Cecil had, or was that just a coincidence?
Nah, I was paying attention a little bit, and I don't think it was planned, as the Elder didn't mention him in that plan. Plus, I think Tellah just got there at the same time to accomplish his goal. I wonder why Cecil was the only one who had to fight something, and Tellah just got what he wanted when he went into that room.
I'm not sure, but I think it would have been an interesting scene to watch Tellah's figurative darkness win, since he seems so consumed on revenge, as a contrast to Cecil fighting against his darkness in a more literal way.
I do agree with that stance, although it would be a little weird in a gameplay sense to have two fights like that in a row, along with it possibly taking away from Cecil's victory, but I see what you're getting at. Honestly, if this game ever got a remake, like the Final Fantasy VII remake, that would be the best place to put it, but I think the chances of that happening are nearly zero at this point.
Yeah, Square Enix still has multiple parts of the Final Fantasy VII remake to release, though the second part should be out a couple days after this is posted, so that should be fun. Even then, some games would arguably use that same remake treatment better, that need more improvement, such as the first couple games, or some of the more obscure releases like Mystic Quest or Adventure.
Didn't Final Fantasy Adventure get a remake, though? I think that was more in line with the Saga games rather than Final Fantasy, despite the name, but still, it did receive better versions later on, though. They weren't to the same extent in HD or anything like that.
Actually, yeah, now that you mention it, you're right. It did get a remake, but I haven't played much of the original, so I haven't kept up with that side of the franchise. I imagine it would be good to play, but I'm not too interested in it right now.
Can you nerds calm down for a moment about your adventures and everything? I bet the audience and also Joe and I have no idea what you're talking about. And plus, are we fighting Yang? How did he get here and why are we fighting him?
Well, I think he landed here after the ship crashed into Leviathan, but I'm not sure why he's fighting against us now. Maybe he hit his head on a frying pan or something and is all mixed up in his head.
I don't know the precise reason why he's fighting us either. I just know we have to beat him and these guards, otherwise we aren't able to progress any further.
Actually, now that we're back in Baron, can we stop by the dancers again?
No, Barak, please don't stop at the dancers. We need just one part of him not being insane to the dancers. I think we're 0 and 4, if I remember right.
Don't worry, we will not be stopping at the dancers, so we will move on without seeing them, if I can help it, so we can have at least one part where he is calm the entire time.
I was about to chime in, but thank you for not stopping by them. I don't want to know what would happen if we did, but I'm sure it's pretty predictable at this point.
Oh man, maybe next time I'll be back to see them.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Wait, George, have you been here this whole time? I think this is the first time you've said anything in the past several minutes.
Oh yeah, I was just listening to your discussions and didn't have much to add, so I was fine just listening to everything, but don't worry about it. I didn't feel left out or anything.
Okay, good. We didn't want you to think we were ignoring you or that you weren't being listened to. We like having your company even though you're not too familiar with this game series.
Actually, there was something we were planning on asking you. We've been playing golf every once in a while against each other, and it's just been the 4 of us for all the courses, but we've gotten a lot of requests to add someone else in, so we wanted to know if you would be fine to join us in the next course we play, which probably won't happen for a few more weeks, but it would be fun to have your input.
Oh yeah, that would be a great time. I'll admit I haven't played golf with your friends the game specifically, but I'm aware of golf a lot more than Final Fantasy, so sure, I'll join in next time you're available.
Good to know, George. I'm really excited for that gaming session then. But back on this game, we beat Yang and made him come back to his senses, meaning he will rejoin us and let us access the second way into Baron Castle, since they won't accept us coming in.
Oh, there was another way, that's right. Did we go there at the beginning of the game at all?
Not that I can remember, no, but then again, that's when we were still learning all of the characters and wasn't focused on the castle layout so much.
I'm sure Barak will lead us over pretty easily enough, but I think we should all rest at the inn after that fight.
Sounds good, George, but I do wonder if the people in the room are bothered by the fight that just happened. We killed a few Baron soldiers, and nobody else seems too bothered about that fact. Perhaps even the citizens of Baron are so sick of the king's orders that they're just okay with everything that transpired.
I never thought about it like that, but it's not a bad reasoning, though I'm sure the developers were not thinking about that very much while writing out these series of events.
Oh, hey, we got the Baron key. I imagine that will be useful for us getting to whatever the second entrance to the castle is.
It could be useful for exploring other areas in the town too, since there are probably other locks that this key could open that would give us useful items.
Both conclusions are correct. We'll first be stopping by this shop that was previously closed and see what's in there. It's not a requirement, but since we're not going to be in Baron that much after this, we might as well get what's available. I think we'll go into the castle itself 1 or 2 more times later on, but not really the town so much.
Okay, that's fine. As long as we get good equipment for everyone, that's what matters. I imagine there's going to be a major boss fight in the castle itself coming up.
I can only imagine who we might see. Maybe Cain will be back, though I'm not sure since he's a bad guy now.
I don't know, even though the king was giving bad orders at the beginning, I don't think whatever Cain's goals are now would really line up with the king or have any need to come back here, but I'm not too sure.
Not really much of a spoiler, but no, we won't be seeing Cain and Baron coming up. He has his own things going on, and we don't need to worry about him now.
That's fine. We'll find out in a little while anyway who is showing up, but I'm guessing this is the way to Baron Castle now, correct?
It better be otherwise. We're just going into this waterway for nothing, which I don't think Barak would make us do, or at least I really hope not.
I can assure you this is the correct way to progress, so this won't take long. Though, since we're getting into the random encounters again, I think I should explain Cecil's change to a paladin from a gameplay perspective. He cannot use his previous equipment, but he can use white magic spells, which he could not before. And he is reset to level 1, but he is still fine at that level, though that also means he can level up very quickly for the next few battles, which is helpful for getting more experience quickly at this point in the game.
So basically he heals people and is generally better to use.
That is a more simple way of looking at it, but I suppose that is still correct.
Is Cecil as good with magic as someone like Rosa or Tellah would have been?
Unfortunately not. He is mainly good at fighting still, but he won't learn nearly as many spells as either of them can. I mainly like using his magic outside of battles for healing, as he just doesn't have as much opportunity to use it in battle, and even then, other magic users can be much more effective.
Hey, this isn't really related, but I've noticed the fighting amongst everyone has gotten down since the playthrough continues, especially compared to other adventures. I think it's good. Everyone is getting along better, though I wonder why that is.
I think some of it is that we're just trying to keep up with what's happening on the game and asking Barak what is going on, so there's simply not as much time to argue. And the other is just not taking away from the game's important moments so much, but I don't really know what others have to say on that.
I don't really know where I'm at, to be honest with you.
I'd say it's more us being more used to each other at this point that makes it a better time in regards to cooperation, even if it is just Barak playing the game and us watching.
It probably is just Final Fantasy that brings us all together in such a way that makes us happy to be experiencing it together, that we forget about all of our differences.
No, it's definitely not that.
Well, that's good to know. I wonder if it will be like that in the golf session coming up then?
I guarantee you it's going to be a lot more competitive when that time comes around. It's a whole different environment there where everyone is in it to win. But we can save all that for when we actually play it so we can focus on this game. Though I'll admit, not much is really happening here.
Yeah, it's not much different from the caves we were traveling through earlier in the game visually. And even the enemy designs are almost the same.
I'll admit some of these caves aren't too interesting, but it does give some time for us to discuss other things and not focus solely on what's happening on screen.
Ooh, does that mean there's enough time for me to tell one of my stories to you?
No, that is not what it means. I do need an episode or 7 without your stories, since I just can't stand them, which you somehow still don't understand.
Oh, I thought you really liked them this whole time. What do you know?
All right, everyone, no time for stories. We're back in Baron, and we need to get ourselves to the king and show him how he's messed up and other important things.
It doesn't look like much has really changed here, but we'll see who is still here.
In a couple seconds, you're all about to find out.
Hey, something's wrong here with Bagan. We can only have 5 party members, but somehow he is joining us. I don't think that's going to work out.
In addition to that, I find it rather unusual that he is the only survivor while they were looking for Sid. I don't even think we know where he is, plus who would have been attacking them.
I don't think that makes much sense, but it looks like even the characters are suspicious of him too.
All right, everyone, it's boss fight time against Bagan. The basic strategy against him is going to be use one Faraga spell against the main body, and then take out one of the 2 arms with physical attacks.
Hold up, Barak. Why are we only using one Faraga spell and only on the main body? If we're supposed to take out all of him, I think it would make more sense to attack each part instead.
That makes sense, but I think he knows something we don't about this fight.
You are right, Joe. Bagan is going to use Reflect on each body part, meaning we have to use only the spell once, as if we used it more than once. Then Reflect will make it hit one of our party members instead, which we definitely don't want. The reason why we're only taking out one of the arms is because Bagan will regenerate his arms, but only if he loses both of them for some strange reason. It is a bit annoying for him to be constantly taking health away with one arm, but the alternative is to have 2 of them coming up and doing the same thing.
Oh, okay, that does make a lot more sense. I'm not sure if we've seen Reflect used in this game, or at least I don't remember it right now, so I didn't think of that as a strategy against us.
This seems like a difficult fight for a beginner, especially as you would normally think to take out both arms at the same time, but wouldn't know they regenerate like you said.
Yeah, even on this attempt, it took me several tries. So I cut out a few minutes of failed attempts, just so the viewers don't have to see all of those when they lead to nowhere.
I appreciate the effort into not boring us with those tries that you didn't succeed at. This does look like a more engaging fight than most of the other ones up to this point.
Are there any other strategies you think would work well against him or not?
I did have an idea. If one of the party members had reflect on them instead, could a Faraga be used on them to bounce onto Bagan as well?
That is good thinking, but unfortunately it's not good in practice. As yes, the idea itself would work, but Faraga could go to one of Bagan's arms or to the main body, and assuming you already took out one arm, then if the other gets destroyed, then both will come back, and it becomes more of a hassle at that point. If you get lucky and hit the main body, though, it would be much faster of a fight. So there is some risk and reward elements to doing it that way.
Maybe that would have been good to try, as this battle has been going on for a while now.
Wait a minute, Barak, are you using Faraga against him? I thought you said Reflect would make it hit someone else.
Oh yeah, there was an important detail I forgot to mention. Reflect is actually only a temporary spell, so after a while in battle, you can use it against the enemy. Sorry, that would have been better to say earlier.
That's okay. From what I could tell, I don't think the fight would have been much different either way, even if you mentioned it earlier.
All right, it looks like Bagan is finally done, and we can move on to fighting the king, or at least I assume that's what we were going to be doing.
I'm not sure if that was the goal in coming here. I thought it had more to do with the crystals. Though, if he wanted us to bomb a village, then I can see how that is the inevitable conclusion.
We're here now, so let's see what ends up happening with him.
Oh no, this guy looks like he's not really the king. It seems there's an imposter among us.
Wait, this isn't really the king after all? I think we've been bamboozled.
I always knew he was acting pretty sus to us at the beginning.
Wait, we're really doing another fight already. The last one we did was not even a minute ago. And is the game really showing this huge blue guy somehow impersonated a regular-sized human? How in the world would that work? I mean, physically, there is no way for him to occupy that small of a space.
All right, Barak, now how are we supposed to fight this guy?
That's a good amount of questions. This is Cagnazzo, the second of the elemental archfiends, and his weakness is Blizzaga, but while he is using his water attack, it's not going to work against him. So you have to use Thunder to get his attack to stop, and then you can properly use Blizzaga to do a lot of damage. Though I'm not sure how he got that small to impersonate the king. I've never understood that.
It also looks like that tsunami attack is what happens if you don't use the Thunder spell in time.
At least this seems like a more simple fight compared to the Bagan one, though not by too much.
Yeah, and I do feel bad for players that wouldn't assume there would be two fights in a row and lost to this one, having to do both all over again. I think this is one of the only times like that in the game where it happens, though it is pretty easy to save in the cave from before.
Is this guy done yet? Honestly, I'm not interested in the fight so much after two in a row so quickly. I'd rather just move on to wherever else the game decides to send us.
Yeah, I have to agree. I'm not really too into this right now. I want something a bit different coming up in the story since not much has happened here since we got Yang back.
Why is that? Do you have somewhere else to be or something? I mean, I know you're the president and all, but I didn't think you were doing much.
Oh, no, my schedule is wide open. In fact, I think my third sleeping session today is coming up in about half an hour. So I have that to look forward to soon.
Don't worry, Joe. The fight is over, so you'll be going to your sleeping session on time, unless there's a third fight that has to be done.
Nah, that was the last major fight for this episode. We don't have to worry about any others until next time. And here comes Sid. Turns out he actually was locked up, but somehow escaped, though I don't think that was ever explained. My theory is Bagan knew about Sid being imprisoned, but wasn't really going to save him and killed the others, but we'll never really know.
Hey, two old guys arguing with each other in front of everyone else, that sounds like the election in a nutshell.
I would definitely be Sid, the stronger, no-nonsense attitude person with a hammer. Meanwhile, Joe would be Tellah, where he has to stop everything to remember what he's doing, but with no magic.
No, I think I would be Sid. He kind of looks like me, and I think I have some goggles like him that I won at a carnival in 1835.
That does not make you sound any better somehow.
Wait, what's going on? I don't think this is normal.
I think this blue light is supposed to be from Cagnazzo, if I understand right, but that still doesn't explain what is going on.
Oh, the walls are caving in. I don't know how they can be stopped.
The doors are somehow locked too. That's pretty weird.
Are those two really going to try and push the walls themselves? Statistically speaking, two children are not able to stop a wall from crushing them, and although I don't have the exact numbers on how quickly the walls are caving in, there is simply no scientific reasoning as to how they can be of any help.
Did those kids just sacrifice themselves to save us?
Unfortunately, yes, they did sacrifice themselves. They turned themselves into stone so they could stop the walls from coming in.
Wow, that's pretty sad. They shouldn't have had to do that to save everyone.
Hold on, let's not get distracted by the feelings, but instead focus on the facts and logic of this. Hypothetically, let's say you could turn yourself into stone. This would just make you into a more dense and probably heavier structure. But based on the wall moving, I highly doubt the weight of them would be enough to stop the walls from coming in, as the size of 2 child-sized statues would be fairly insignificant to whatever force is bringing the walls closer. Even then, the 2 would have to be firmly stuck into the ground to have any leverage against the walls. Otherwise, they would more realistically just get pushed closer into the center, and at that point would have no real value. And even if they would be able to stop them, I don't know what they're going to do about the doors still being locked. With the smaller amount of space in there, they will start to suffocate within an hour or so. Therefore, I have logically concluded their sacrifice should realistically be worthless.
So what was with the sudden Australian accent midway through that? It was pretty weird to hear you change your voice like that. Besides that, it's a bit insensitive to dismiss what is clearly a sad moment in this game.
It's not my fault those kids are idiots and their plan just happened to work out my sheer luck. I'm just the one pointing out inaccuracies in physics to the people.
I hate to say it, but I think you're right. That didn't make much sense. And it leaves more room for a strong character like Sid, who is like me in many ways. So I think there was a net benefit.
I just didn't like those kids since they weren't very useful with magic by comparison to Tellah. So I think we may be better off.
Wow, I thought that moment was going to resonate a lot more with the fact that Tellah showed regret that he wasn't the one who did it, due to his age being much higher and just the fact that 2 young children made a tough decision. But that seems to be completely disregarded by nearly all of you without much thought. I was expecting something much different.
I like to stay unpredictable when I can. I can't explain anyone else's reaction, though.
Oh, hey, it's Kane again.
Yes, it is. Before we end the episode, he is blackmailing us with the crystal in exchange for Rosa's life. So that is what we will be doing next time.
That sounds very riveting. I'm excited to see what happens next.
As always, thanks for having me on for this game. It's fun to see what new areas are available to travel to and see how the overall story progresses.
And like always, thank you to the viewers for watching. We hope you enjoy each part that comes out.
We'll have a few more videos out before we come back to Final Fantasy IV, but until then, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
We'll be off to a brand new part of the world. Peace out, people. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IV. It's been a while since we've played through this game, so if you don't remember, we are on a quest to save the crystal so Kane and Golbez will give Rosa back to us.
I'm glad we're back. I haven't been part of the channel in quite a while since you've been doing your Metal Gear Solid playthrough. I hope that went well for everyone.
And for anyone who didn't watch the Metal Gear Solid video, specifically towards the end, we announced that the recording system for our voices was moving to Play HT, so that's why we may sound a bit different, especially George.
I could have sworn I had a different voice, but at least I know why now.
Hey guys, I don't think we've been in this town before. What exactly are we doing in this place?
For now, the main goal is just to get some items in the shop and also around the town of Troy. I don't think we actually need to go into the town specifically aside from just getting different equipment, but we do have to go into the castle before going any further with the story, so we will head over there next.
I guess it's just nice having a little bit of a slow start to ease ourselves back into the game after a while of not playing it. That, and I kind of forgot a lot of plot points in this game, so I don't really remember some of what we were doing before.
That's all right. As always with this game, I'll fill you in when something important is happening or when we otherwise need to remember something that was just happening a little while ago in the game, but a month or so ago in the real world. And actually, we're cutting out of town now and into the castle for an important scene with an important character.
Oh good, I wonder if we're going to meet the royalty here and maybe they can help us against Golbez and his fiends if we're lucky.
Not exactly. We will be getting help here for the next dungeon, and they are royalty, so you are kind of correct.
Wait a minute, is that who I think it is?
It can't possibly be that idiot.
Hey, I didn't do anything.
Not you idiot, the other idiot.
I can only imagine how he managed to get all the way over here from where we got attacked in the ocean.
Oh great, if there's one person who had to live through the attack, it just had to be you. Rydia's not here, and yet you are. You are worthless in combat. One of your abilities is literally to hide because you aren't good at fighting. You're a musician who somehow thinks he can fight with a harp. You're literally so bad that you can't even die correctly when the biggest opportunity comes from the ocean and hands you the opportunity on a silver platter. I wish I was Anna in this game because she doesn't have to be around you.
Wow, you just completely obliterated him for no reason. I don't even think I dislike him quite that much. Did he do something to you that we're not aware of?
No, it's just that I haven't done one of my roasts in a boss battle in a while and needed to let that out. Maybe I was a little harsh.
He probably did something to deserve it. You're probably fine to say all of that.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Barak, I know you're always the guy to explain things in this game, so why did we visit Edward if he's clearly in no position to help us?
Edward is going to be helping us, but I can't say how otherwise that would spoil the ending of the next area we go to. Not that it's much of a spoiler, as this game has been out for over 33 years, but still for the viewers that are new to this, I still want to consider that.
That's good thinking, Barak. I was hearing about this game when my father was the president, but I never got around to playing it myself, so I'm glad you're not spoiling it for us.
Hey, should we be worried about the fact that these trees are on fire? I'm not sure if the whole area is going to be burning because of this or why they're on fire to begin with.
Maybe they're on fire from when we blew up the village of Mist a while ago and they just wandered over here.
My initial thought was that your idea was terrible, but if a tree is somehow sentient, then it's not any less likely than Edward going in the town while he came from a much further distance.
Hey, what's going on with this chocobo thing that seems more important than however those flaming trees got over here?
This is a black chocobo. It's required as it can land on the forest when the airship we would normally use cannot make it over here, making it the only time I can think of where a chocobo is required to progress.
What is this green stuff around us?
I knew I shouldn't have eaten that green jello this morning, and now it's coming back to haunt me.
No, Joe, this is not Jello. This is essentially the gimmick to this area. The Lodestone Cavern has this magnetic field that prevents characters with items affected by magnetism. That means we will have to carefully remove items from our party members, so that means our magic users are going to be better, as the physical fighters won't really have their weapons to use. If you don't take them off, then the character will be immobile through the whole battle.
This is pretty interesting of an idea, but I imagine it would be hard to tell at points what qualifies as a magnetic item. Like, I don't think a ruby as part of a ruby ring would be magnetic, but I don't know if the ring itself would. Besides, they must still be contained in their bag, or however they hold all these items, so they should still be immobile, even if they're not wearing them specifically, if that makes sense.
Now that you mention it, how do these people carry all of their items? Even if they had 4 or 5 people, they can't carry 99 potions, and ethers and tents and cottages along with all of their weapons. Do they have some other way of carrying all that?
Maybe there's a really fat chocobo that holds everything in when the players need to put things in there.
You're actually not far off. Earlier versions of the game had limited item space, so there was a fat chocobo that would hold items that the player couldn't. This is not the case with more recent versions of the game, so there isn't really purpose to it. That doesn't really explain how the characters can hold so much to begin with, though.
That's interesting. I wonder why someone would choose to have someone eat items and expect them to come out the same way.
I don't know how these developers come up with these weird ideas for gameplay mechanics.
No idea myself, but this does remind me of a story from my youth that I've been meaning to share for a while.
Oh, great, just what I wanted to hear right now.
So there I was in the depths of the ocean with my friends Uglier Joe and Harold. We were tasked to be a part of the first submarine that ever went underwater, because the Deep Sea Association was testing how far it could go before anyone couldn't breathe. It was a great time until we got to the point where we couldn't breathe due to the lack of oxygen so deep below the surface of the water. What made it worse was all the water coming in, which we were told was a bad thing. I had the idea of putting Harold's mouth up to the part where water was coming in. You might think that's a terrible idea, but I remember hearing there's oxygen in water, so it was probably the best idea in the situation. That, and I had basically no oxygen, so my brain wasn't working at full capacity. Uglier Joe and I forced Harold's mouth to the part of the submarine, and he was getting really full of water, but the submarine itself wasn't. I kind of felt bad, as Harold was probably motioning us to stop, but I wasn't paying attention. Once Uglier Joe and I could maintain our thoughts, we managed to get the submarine back up to the surface. We were congratulated on the mission, as the submarine went an entire 10 feet underwater before everything bad happened. The end.
Wow, Joe, that was a pretty bad story, and I didn't enjoy any part of it. In fact, I feel much worse than I did before. What even happened to your friend Harold? There was no resolution on him.
Actually, I don't really know what happened to him. We had a lot of adventures after that, so I'm sure he's still around, but him and I haven't kept touch recently.
Yet another Joe story that has no coherency or any real value. It's just a typical day here.
Hey, Barak, did anything valuable happen in the game while Joe was rambling about nonsense?
No, basically it was just more fighting the same enemies that have been coming up for a while, so nothing that I feel the need to go over at all.
Oh, good, a save point. Now our characters can heal up for what's without a doubt going to be a difficult fight for the crystal. Or at least I think there's going to be a fight. There usually has been some sort of major encounter each time we're near a crystal so far.
That's a pretty good bet, George, but I can only imagine what it's going to be. Perhaps it will have something to do with the magnetic properties of the cave itself, or maybe it's going to somehow use the crystal in the fight as a power source. I wonder if they can be used for that purpose or not.
I'm not really sure about that, actually. Now that I think about it, I wonder what the crystals seem to actually do. I know they're important for some reason and are supposed to be kept at the kingdoms around this world, but are they supposed to stabilize the elements like they did in the first game, or something else entirely?
I hadn't really thought that very much myself, but I don't think the game is going to explain exactly what they do, but I'll leave it up to everyone to guess just in case they do reveal it later, as I can't think of a specific reason off the top of my head.
That's fine, as long as we know they're important and the bad guys shouldn't have them then. That's what really matters. Then again, we're going here to exchange the crystal for Rosa, so maybe that wasn't the best example of keeping it away from them now that I think about it.
Hey, this must be the guy guarding the crystal, so now is the time where we have to focus up and beat him.
All right, Barak, you've probably got this.
So the thing we're fighting is a dark elf who is actually based on the appearance of Astos from the original Final Fantasy game. George, since you weren't there for that, he was basically another elf that was guarding an item in an empty place just like this one. This battle is like many in that it's actually unwinnable to start off, so if you decide to play this, just don't worry about this beginning section.
Oh, okay, I was about to say you're getting absolutely destroyed in this, but if it's intentional, then I guess that's all right then.
Yeah, he's pretty strong. I wonder how you're going to fight him if he can just knock everyone down in a couple attacks.
I wonder what he does all day when he's not fighting someone for the crystal. It has to be pretty boring here with nothing to do.
Honestly, I have no idea why he's here, but in just a moment, we're about to find out his weakness and take the crystal from him.
I'm trusting you know what to do, as I can't think of any ideas on my own here.
Oh, great, it's Edward, just the guy we needed to see now.
I have no clue what he's supposed to do from in the castle, but that bed does look nice, and it reminds me I have to do my 10 a.m. sleeping session pretty soon.
Classic Joe to be thinking about sleeping yet again, but that's nothing new at this point.
Why would he be going to his harp? And how does he know Cecil is in danger when there's no way of him communicating with anybody there?
Some of that will be revealed in just a moment, so be sure to pay attention.
Okay, fine, we'll watch him.
So that's it. He just suddenly knows they're in danger and the music makes him weak somehow. That makes no sense.
Yeah, I'll admit this isn't really explained well here, but the music keeps him down, so off-screen I made all of the characters equip their weapons again so they can actually fight him. This is the real start of the battle, as you actually have to win now. He will use weaker versions of the attacks he already had, so as long as you keep yourself at good health, this battle shouldn't be much of an issue.
Hey, I don't mean to take away from this incredibly important battle, but isn't this just the whole group breaking into where he lives and killing him to take what's rightfully his? I mean, legally, I don't think the nearby castle or town could own anything in the cave, as nobody there can access it with a chocobo, much less if they had any of the equipment affected by the magnetic field. This makes me think the elf is the owner, as he actually lives here, despite not really doing anything with his life, as he has nothing else to do here besides guard this crystal. I realize him trying to kill us all may have been overkill, but it's not like we aren't breaking and entering to a degree by coming in here. Even if we get the crystal back to the castle somehow, I'm not sure if it's morally right for anyone, much less a group of people, to take ownership of a crystal that is this vital to the world, despite us not knowing its exact purpose.
I didn't understand any of what you said, but it took up so much time that the battle is over now. Is this what all of you feel like when I tell my stories?
No, with your stories, I usually feel a combination of bewilderment and disgust, but with Ben's, I just think he's thought more about this than anyone else ever has.
Yeah, Ben, I never thought about it like that, but I think we have to do it to save Rosa, so it kind of needed to happen. Also, apparently, the crystal gives him eternal life, so it does help him in some way, but that must be a pretty boring life.
That was a very thought-provoking monologue you made while the battle just kind of played itself, but now we're going back to the castle to advance with the plot since we need to get a move on with saving Rosa.
Hey Edward, how's it going? Thanks for not being 100% useless, unlike you have been throughout the entire rest of the game so far and probably the rest of it coming up.
This is honestly the most useful thing he's done and will do in the game, so it's best to savor this now as you're not going to get anything else from him.
If there's one thing I'm glad everybody here can agree with, regardless of politics, is the fact that Edward is basically useless in this game and has no real worth.
I still think it's a little strange with the writing for there to be no real explanation as to how he knew there was an elf or any danger the group was facing. It just felt like a weird way of making him feel useful with no proper setup. Unless I missed something really important, but I don't think I did.
I did have an idea on that, actually. Earlier, while Ben was roasting Edward, there was a mention of an elf, so I guess that's how he knew there was one, but I still don't know how he knew exactly when they were fighting. My only idea was since the twin harp made it so the elf heard the music from the harp that wasn't being played, perhaps the harp could relay the first fight sounds so that Edward could hear when they were losing, but honestly, I don't know for sure.
That's probably the best explanation we're going to get, even if it turns out not to be correct.
Hey, what's going on with the lights and who could be talking to us? Is this Kane or Golbez or someone else like that? They seem to know what we're doing, even though they're not in the same room as us.
I have no idea myself, but at the same time, they should be expecting us to give the crystal soon.
I wonder why they didn't just take the crystal themselves. Maybe Golbez was so heavy that he couldn't get on the black chocobo or something like that.
Honestly, I have no idea myself, but I don't think that's too important at the moment. Before actually leaving this place, we're going to get a few items down below the castle that will probably just be collecting dust in the inventory space, though if anyone watching this has any use, then just follow along.
I kind of wonder if people are actually using this as a guide to play the game itself. I was under the impression that people just wanted to see political figures play video games together and see how they play off the footage that we're recording.
I'm sure a lot of people are getting enjoyment out of us open the treasure here 20 times.
Actually, there's only 18 here, but okay.
Yeah, 1820, same idea. It's just a figure of speech, Ben. You don't have to be so literal.
1820, that was pretty close to the year I was born. I'm pretty sure I might be a century off or two.
Oh wow, George gets one voice change from Play HT, and all of a sudden he's sounding a lot more confident. How about you and I go on 11 labs where you're quiet and just be confused for the whole game again?
Now we'll do this right now, short stack. I'll show you why you don't mess with Texas.
Guys, calm down. We're supposed to be playing the video game here, not fighting each other.
Oh, great Yemen leveler is here trying to
up right
mediate
now.
again. Nobody saw that one coming a mile away.
Yeah, this is between us right now, Barack. You stay out of it, and George, perhaps if you weren't so incorrect on simple numbers, I wouldn't need to correct you, so step up your counting game if you can.
If this turns into a fight, I'm betting on Ben as the winner.
Who can I be like that lady that goes into the ring and shows when each round starts I have a whole outfit ready to go?
No, Joe, you cannot, and I'll explain the game again when you two get done arguing.
Good call, Barack, but Ben, you better believe I have a bone to pick with you. You're right ever since my voice changed due to the recording software being different, but I've always wanted to tell you this. I signed up to be on Daily Wire back when it first started, and you rejected the application by throwing it into a fire laughing, but I never forgot. This is the perfect time to mention this and show you why I'm ready to fight for your place on the website.
George, you imbecile, that was not what happened. I was throwing away the first draft of my expertly written books. Not because there was anything wrong with it, but because I needed to keep myself warm while I was writing it. I was laughing because of a joke that I heard earlier in the day. I fail to see why this is the perfect time to mention this issue you suddenly have with me, but how would you have even known what I was doing then?
Oh, it looks like this was all a big misunderstanding. I can explain me knowing about what you were doing, though. I secretly put some cameras near the workspaces of people I thought would be political enemies back when my presidency started to get lower approval ratings, and then I just started recording others just for fun. Yours was one of those I was doing for fun.
That is very weird, and I will be blacklisting you from ever being involved in Daily Wire, but good to know you're not so ready to fight me anymore. If it helps, I do apologize for being so stingy with number accuracy.
That's all right, Ben, and I apologize for holding a grudge over a misunderstanding and also wanting to fight you.
Okay, guys, can we actually talk about the game today if that's all right with everyone here?
Yeah, go ahead. I think the tension is finally gone.
Thank you very much. After we left the castle, Kane commanded us to come through the Tower of Zot, and we'll need to progress in order to make the exchange with Rosa and the Crystal. This will have us encounter some new enemies, though the general method of fighting them won't make it too much difference aside from the fact that they are a bit more difficult than the regular enemies in the rest of the video so far.
Wait a minute, how did we even get here? I certainly didn't see an entrance to this place on the map anywhere. And I also don't know why the exchange couldn't have happened on the ship earlier, since I can't think of a reason why we would have to make the entire journey if Golbez can just teleport to begin with.
Hey, I didn't remember him teleporting earlier. When did that happen?
Well, he can use his voice to talk with people telepathically like earlier in the castle, and he's able to make this tower appear out of nowhere, so I just assumed he could teleport. Even if he can't, that still doesn't explain why they can't just all meet up at the ships in the air to make it more convenient for everyone.
Before I respond to that, I should mention that this puppeteer can infinitely spawn these puppets in case anyone needs to easily train a few levels, since he can't really attack himself, and as long as a strong character is ready to attack, then the puppet is no threat. You are correct in that meeting. Anywhere else besides this tower would have been much more convenient, admittedly. This game isn't always great at justifying how or why characters need to go to specific places.
It's nice that even though this place has no business being here, it at least has a good way of making the characters stronger. If they really need it, as the Dark Elf certainly didn't give much of a challenge on his own.
It also looks quite a bit different than all the caves and medieval-looking castles, so it's good to see something newer. It makes me think about how it was built and by whom, since it looks so much more advanced than everything else here.
Yeah, it's nice that it looks more unique, but I still can't get over the fact that there's no geographical location for this tower to be kept, unless it's just floating in the sky for no real reason.
If it helps anything, I think we'll be out of this place by the next video, so you won't have to ponder it for long at all.
Hey guys, this enemy reminds me of a time I was in a factory and accidentally invented gremlins, and some people made a movie off of it. Can I tell it now?
No, Joe, you already told a story today, and besides, we're almost done for the day, so there's not really enough time.
Oh, all right. I suppose the story takes about 2 hours to tell, and so maybe I'll tell it another time when we're not so close to the end of a video.
Wow, a 2-hour Joe story. I think we just dodged a bullet with that one.
Make sure to comment down below if you want to hear a 2-hour-long Joe story. It'll be fun for the whole family.
Joe, I would rather lose the presidency than hear a 2-minute-long Joe story, much less a 2-hour story. I really hope our fan base doesn't want one, because that wouldn't be fun for anybody except you, and even then you would probably sleep talk through the whole thing and not enjoy it yourself.
I don't want to listen to that, but more importantly, I have to go right about now since we're about done for the day. I look forward to continuing on with this adventure and hopefully doing another golf match soon.
That will be good, George. I look forward to you coming back on and us finishing out this tower.
Thank you to everyone watching.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IV, this time with us getting through the last part of the Tower of Zot. and hopefully save Rosa?
I can't wait to get out of this nonsensical tower that's just floating in the air for no reason.
Hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? We've barely started today and we're already getting into a fight with someone.
Actually, it looks like there's multiple people here, and they seem to be serving someone named Barbariccia, but I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name or not. Either way, I think we need to take these otherwise completely random characters down.
Barely 30 seconds in, and we're getting straight into the action here. Let's do this.
Guys, maybe we can reason with them. I mean, to be honest, I think the tall one needs to get to Joe Riz, if you know what I mean.
Oh no, not
I also
this
think
again.
some hair sniffing is needed if I have the chance with the one in front.
Joe, please, I can't exactly remember which one of the Magus sisters do which attack, and you getting attracted to every feminine-looking character in the game certainly doesn't help me.
Come on, Barack, you can't blame me for this. I think it's a very reasonable reaction.
I may regret asking this, but is there any reason why you haven't said anything about the one in the middle? I'm not complaining that I haven't heard your Joe Riz attempts on her, but I thought it was interesting why you only focused on 2 of the 3.
It would be best for everyone if I didn't explain that one. Since I don't think you've done it for a while, do you want to do one of your roasting sessions for the boss fight, Ben?
Oh yeah, you better believe it. Magus Sisters, you are about to fail because the presidents and I are about to show you what it's like to be superior gamers. All of you are only technically considered a boss fight because you probably would be nothing more than a regular encounter on your own. You pick fights with us out of absolutely nowhere and you're going to be losing just as quickly. I assume you all have parents, but they should be ashamed of themselves for letting you out into the world.
I don't know, Ben. I think only some of these roasts are really sticking right now.
That's all right now that 2 of them are down. I only have 1 of them to focus on now. Objectively, you are heavier than the others, which isn't an indicator of your overall value as a person, but is indicative of you eating more than your other sisters that got destroyed figuratively and literally. When you go to the afterlife, and if you go to heaven, try not to eat the halo thinking it's an onion ring.
Wait a minute, guys. How did those 2 come back? I thought they were supposed to stay down, but they're not.
So the middle one can actually revive the other 2. I knew one of them could do that, and I just forgot which one it was, so that's my mistake. We can just cut ahead a little bit since this battle is really just more of the same, and there's not much variation from here on.
That's fine. If anything, it keeps them from being the constant target of my roasts, so they should be happy they don't have to be in the battle longer than they have to.
Honestly, your roasts weren't all that great. The one about the onion ring was pretty funny, but other than that, I don't think they really stuck the landing.
Yeah, I'll admit I'm a little out of practice since our editor decides he's going to upload every other video type besides this one. We'll be lucky to finish this game by the end of the year at this rate.
You are definitely right on that, but now it's time to actually focus on the game. This is a pivotal point where the characters are finally able to make the exchange of the crystal and Rosa, but Tellah is more concerned about getting revenge than anything else.
Considering how he was in some part involved in killing his daughter, yeah, that makes a fair amount of sense. I can't really blame him on that one.
Now, Ben, you don't have to worry about bringing out your roast game as the encounter against Golbez is completely scripted and there's no input from the player at all. Tellah will just use his more powerful spells until he decides to pull out the Meteor attack. What's interesting about that is it requires 99 magic power to use, which Tellah doesn't actually have, so he has to use his own life force, which isn't a good idea, as you can probably tell.
He seems to be really old, so yeah, him taking the last bit of his life in some sort of revenge quest isn't really the best plan, but given his circumstances, it is still an understandable, if not flawed, motivation.
I feel like there's a lesson in here somewhere like don't throw meteors at someone, otherwise you'll probably die.
I feel like that's a little too specific to this exact situation. And I think a more general lesson would be that revenge is bad and you shouldn't do it.
That would be correct, George, especially since your Tellah was able to weaken Golbez and break his concentration on controlling Cain, but he didn't kill him like he intended, so it really was just him wasting his life. Also not really related, but some of you may have noticed we are speeding up some of the footage for these scenes as they were initially very slow and wanted to have less downtime. Please let us know if you like the idea of speeding up the battles and scenes or if you prefer them to be longer.
Wow, we really moved past Tellah's death quickly. I mean, sure, it's sad that he got into this situation that he did, but really in relation to the party, I don't think we'll miss him all that much as he didn't have that much magic to use, as he had some great spells, just not enough chances to use them. Plus, his daughter actually liked Edward, so I'm glad his lineage won't continue for that reason alone.
On a way more important note, Rosa, my second favorite lady behind Rydia, is saved. I'm so glad to have her back in the party. I can only imagine the usefulness she's going to give to us. I'm so happy she's back.
All right, Joe, don't get too excited about Rosa, otherwise you're going to distract Barack with your simping for sure, and we don't want that to be a problem.
Trust me, Ben, I wish it were as simple as that, but I think we're going to have bigger problems than Joe simping of Rosa because I know who we are fighting next.
What does that mean? Is it going to be a really difficult fight or something like that? I think you can make it through just like you have been doing already.
I appreciate your confidence in me, George, but no, it's not going to be a difficult fight in that sense, but rather it's going to be hard for me to focus when Joe sees the next of the four fiends in a moment.
Come on, what's the worst that could happen?
Okay, now I see what you mean.
All right, here is what's going on. When she is in that tornado form, she is not able to really be hit by standard attacks all that well, so you have to use Kane's jump attack, and maybe magic could work, but we lost Tellah a moment ago, so it's not so easy to test that out.
Sorry, Barak, I was listening, but I couldn't really hear you over Joe losing it over her. And I imagine she's going to go back out of the tornado form soon, and it's going to get worse.
Don't worry, George, I thought of an idea for that. It's going to require me breaking the fourth wall a little bit, but I think our audience will understand considering what we're dealing with here.
That's a great idea, Donald. It'll take me a little while to defeat her still, but you censoring her makes it so Joe doesn't get worse. The main things to worry about aside from Joe are the ray, which causes gradual petrification, which needs to be healed by a gold needle, or Isuna, and tornado, which lowers health to the single digits.
Barak, I hate to suggest this, but are we able to skip through any of this fight, since it looks like it's going to be more of the same based on what I can tell?
Yeah, I don't know how much longer I can hold up here for.
All right, fine. I know it's a major encounter, but yes, it's not much different from here out, and we need Joe to get back to normal, or relatively normal at least.
Oh man, I'm going to miss you, Barbariccia, or however you say your name, I'm not really sure.
I'm glad that went relatively smoothly, all things considered. I do wonder if the last Fiend will be any more challenging since the other two have not posed much of a threat so far.
I'm kind of doubting it, as most of the boss fights have not been all that challenging, so I'm not sure what the last one is going to do that the other ones haven't already done. Does that sound about right, Barak?
Actually, yes, that is a good assumption. This game isn't all that difficult to begin with, and having increased experience in the Pixel Remaster version only makes that more apparent. I don't exactly remember what the strategies are for each fight, but even when I didn't like with the Magus sisters a few minutes ago, they barely posed a threat to us.
You know what's even more of a threat than the bosses of this game? Hunter Biden, since he is clearly irresponsible with weapons, and him getting 3 guilty charges proves that.
Oh great, I knew this was also coming at some point. This can only go well.
Actually, Donald, that was a rigged trial, and I'm sure you paid off the jury and judge to find him guilty, since that's clearly what happened, so I expect not to have a loss of any voters coming up because of this.
No, Joe, this trial was perfectly legitimate, unlike mine, which was completely biased against me, so that's how I know this is going to come across as looking bad for you and not me.
That's fake news. You know that the trial against Hunter was rigged, and your fan base will just take your word for it that yours was rigged, so my fan base will take my word that his also was, since that's how it works now. And although I'm not going to pardon him, I might as well, since even if I didn't, your fans would still hate me, so I could at least help my son out if it won't make a difference to you either way, right?
Actually, do you mind if you could pardon my guilty counts if you could? I didn't think to ask earlier, but it would really help me out if you did.
I'm not quite sure that's how it works, though. I don't think he can just pardon any crime, and I don't see why he would do it for you anyway.
Should we try to stop them from arguing or something?
Normally I would, but for this, I think it's best to let them just get it all out now rather than later.
I knew you wouldn't pardon me. It's not like you have anything else in your day going on, so I thought I would ask. I should have known you'd just be eating popsicles and ice cream all day, since what else would you really be doing?
I do way more than just eat popsicles and ice cream. I also do things like stand around and think about uploading to my 30 followers on Instagram. I got quite a few more since I posted that picture of the Metal Gear a while back.
This is really getting us nowhere. I'm sure we can talk about this on the debate stage or something, but I don't want to keep us away from the game so much more than we already have.
Thank you for finally bringing that to a close. I'm sure it will be coming up again at some point, but I'll take what I can get. While they were arguing, some rather important things happened in the game. The party were teleported to Baron, and Kane gave the magma stone. It turns out there's a town where dropping the magma stone will actually open up a hole in the mountains that lets us travel to the underground, where there's more areas to explore. Somehow the Red Wings were already here, which doesn't really make any sense, and the airship has crashed, meaning our main way of traversal is not working.
I think there was also something about there being more than 4 crystals, which I thought was interesting. It's also odd how there seems to be an entire other civilization that the other characters didn't even know existed until now. I can imagine that would be really weird to find out. Like, imagine you dig far enough in the ground or look up at the moon and there's a lot of people who just were there for a long time.
That is weird to think about. I'm sure there are conspiracy theories around that say there are people like that, but of course none with real evidence.
You're right on that, but let's keep going before we talk too much.
Okay, Barak, what are we even looking at? Are we really supposed to be afraid of a few dolls or whatever these things are? This doesn't seem like it will pose much of a challenge.
I'll admit this is a very strange setup for a boss fight, but these are the Calco and Brina dolls. There's going to be a fight against them, and if you want to fill the bestiary, you will have to kill one of each. Regardless of how many you kill, the remaining ones are going to combine into a larger Calcobrina. It does get a little more difficult, but not very much so. Honestly, this is more of a warm-up to the next fight that is a fair bit more difficult.
You know, I've noticed something about this game that's really coming up a lot more. There's these caves or random towers or something, and this boss fight will come up with barely any build-up. They're not even really characters, as they're just here for the purpose of fighting. like these dolls or the Antlion or the Magus sisters or even the four fiends as they just kind of show up. I suppose ones like Byagan and Cain at least have some appearance before as to not make it two out of nowhere, but I don't think this game is good at justifying why there's a fight, and I don't think it'll be changing soon from what I can tell.
I can't even argue with that. You are right in that it's pretty out of nowhere, and you are also right in that it will continue on for the most part. I don't think it makes the game that much worse, but at least it is a little more entertaining of a fight than the standard encounters, or at least most of them are.
This isn't quite as important, but I see that the boss fight has the last part spelled as B-R-E-N-A when the singular dolls were spelled B-R-I-N-A. That's kind of weird how the spelling changed.
You're right, it's not very important, but yeah, that is weird. At least we're probably almost done with the fight and can move on to something better, is that right?
Yes, you are right. In fact, right about now, the last attack should be happening and Calcabrena is down. Like I said, this is more just a warm-up to the next part coming up in just a moment, as this isn't the last fight.
This is quite a lot for one video. There was the Magus sisters, then Golbez, but I guess that was scripted. There was that attractive tornado lady, and then the dolls, but you're saying there's even more still? I think we've already had a lot going on for today.
Yeah, that is quite a lot. I wonder how many more major enemies we're going to have in the next 4 or so minutes. I would hope it's not that many.
Don't worry, George, there's only one more, and I'll explain what's going on when it happens, which will be in just another moment, actually, as it's 2 back-to-back fights with no healing in between.
Oh wow, after that really difficult doll fight, I'm really scared as to what's coming next. Maybe there will be 7 dolls coming up instead of 6. That would be really bad for us.
Actually, it's Golbez coming back as he is still looking for the crystals. This first part of the fight is actually scripted, so we won't have to pay attention too much until the midway point, where we're going to have to start doing things.
Well, if you don't have to do anything now, then why are you putting haste on Cecil? I'm guessing he's going to need to do something coming up soon, but I couldn't think on what that would be.
I suppose I should have been a little more specific earlier, but I didn't want to give away what would happen in the fight. Let's just watch and see what happens for a moment.
So he's just killing the characters and there's no way to avoid it? This is almost as rigged as the guilty counts against me, but still not quite that bad.
Hey, was that a Miss Dragon there? I could have sworn I've seen one of those before. It was a while ago, and I think the first part many months ago, where we killed it and then killed the summoner who had the daughter.
Hold up, I think Joe's right. And the only summoner we know is that Rydia girl that fell into the ocean when the Leviathan attacked. I didn't think it could happen to where she's alive, but she must be if the Miss Dragon is back.
Does that mean Joe is going to start acting up again?
While Joe continues to do whatever it is he's doing, I'll explain that Rydia actually did survive the Leviathan. She landed somewhere here, and due to a change in the passage of time, she is actually an adult due to her being here much longer than the other characters have been going on their adventure.
Oh, wait, she's an adult now. Never mind, guys, I'm fine now.
I don't want to even think about the implications behind that sentence, so I'm just going to move on now. I used haste on Cecil to make sure he can revive the party members sooner, as by the time he's free, there isn't much he can really do before Golbez will attack again. This make it easier to get the party back up and fight. Rydia does have some summons to use along with black magic, but her white magic is gone and we won't have the really good summons until a little bit later.
That was a pretty intricate strategy, even though the fight's already over by now. At least we won't have to worry about so many more fights by the end of the video. And we finally saved a crystal for once. And we got Rydia back, which gets our party members back up to 5, and now have someone who is actually good with black magic ever since Tellah died earlier. Perhaps things are finally starting to look up for the group as long as we keep the crystal here and nobody dies.
Hold up on that Donald is that Golbez's hand. Is him removing his hand just something he can do now?
And he just teleported away with the crystal? Are you serious? This is coming out of absolutely nowhere and nobody even motions towards it to stop him. The whole game is just out to inconvenience the main party members and they're not even trying to help themselves.
So we pretty much lost Tellah, got back Rydia. Golbez got at least 2 crystals. We traveled underground and now we're stuck here. I think we lost more than we gained overall.
That is pretty much what happened. Yes, I did also want to briefly bring up the developer's room, or lack of one, that's in most versions of the game, though there's nothing here this time. I think that's the end for today.
I think we mentioned it earlier, but please let us know if speeding up some of the overworld parts and cutting out less necessary battles makes for a better video, or if we shouldn't do that anymore.
Next time, I certainly hope things will go better for our heroes, and maybe we'll actually get one of the crystals away from Golbez, but I'm not betting on it.
And if we're lucky, maybe the next part will take less than a month or so to come out, but really, who knows at this point?
We still have a lot of Kingdom Hearts videos to do, so I don't know.
We still appreciate those waiting for these videos and watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you to everyone that supports us, and peace out, people. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IV, where we are moving out of the castle area and progressing further with the story, which requires us to explore further into this lava-filled area.
Hey, didn't we go through a volcano in the first Final Fantasy game? I hope we don't have to go through the actual lava itself again, since that would be really inconvenient.
You are correct on that, but no, we don't actually have to go into the lava itself, as you are correct, that would be bad. There will be a more dangerous ground section that's similar in concept, but not actually required to take damage from.
Wait a minute, you had to walk in lava in a previous game? That doesn't make any sense. Nobody could survive that.
There's a lot of stuff about this game series that doesn't make any sense. Apparently, the designers of the first game thought that walking through lava was a really good way of challenging the player to just use healing items or magic more often, as it did 1 damage point per step, which you'd think it would cause a lot more damage than that. But no.
That is pretty weird. I think it would have been funny to see that happen somehow.
Hey, Barak, isn't this place the Tower of Babel? I feel like I've heard about that in another story or something.
You are correct, Joe, and it actually is visible if you go to an island near the bottom left of the map on the overworld, though I don't think we actually made it over there, so you wouldn't have seen it. It's the tallest structure in the game, as far as I can tell. While we go through this section, I think it's time we give a couple updates to the channel in this game.
After making a post and thinking it over, we've decided to speed up the gameplay in the overworld, as the default speed is still a little slower than we'd prefer, and some of the scenes go on for a while. We don't intend to speed past the major battles or even skip them unless it's taking quite a while, but it will cut down on the less important parts and leave more room for story moments, and so our conversations aren't being spread too thin or become less creative.
Aside from the game itself, we have also become one of the main creators featured in the AI Force 1 Discord. This was originally called PokeForce 1 and was mainly for Pokemon content creators, but has since rebranded into more general content creators. You can find a lot of discussions and updates from various others, including President Central, of course. It's a great time there, and as of this moment has over 600 people there. If you enjoy what we post, there's a lot more variety there compared to just the games played here.
There are also community streams that happen on an almost weekly basis that happen on Thursdays, so if you enjoy games like Jackbox Party Pack or Minecraft, or just watching other people have fun on games, then that's another reason to join. I don't think we'll stream on this specific channel, but we'll likely provide links when our editor is in the streams on occasion.
All right, guys, let's not go too hard on the advertisements here. We have to focus on Barak going through this tower place, because after the Tower of Zot, that I still don't know where it's supposed to be geographically, we needed yet another tower. I wonder why we couldn't just make it so they had to go to this tower both times if it's also on the top part of the world.
Interesting how you mentioned that, because we actually do go through the Tower of Babel again later on, but it's not something where they climb to the top of it. Maybe the designers didn't want us going through the same general structure 3 times, but they look pretty similar anyway. So I do think you're right in that it would have made more sense.
I noticed a lot of these enemies seem to involve fire in some way, both in and out of the tower. Is there any reason why there are enemies in this place to begin with? Like, what do they do when we're not here?
I don't think there's any real reason why there are enemies in places across the game, or at least I don't remember there being one. If I had to guess, it's because there had to be some way for the characters to get stronger, so they always have something to fight. It's kind of weird for a mechanical tower to be built like this and inhabited by so many things that couldn't really survive here, as there's no clear place for food. Then again, I'd imagine all the rocks and lava outside don't really give that many options either.
That sounds about right, George. There's no explanation I'm aware of.
Barak, did you just kill that egg? What exactly is an egg doing out in the open like this? Where are this thing's parents? What could have laid an egg that large anyway?
This is yet another one of those things that I cannot explain. It can hatch into several different enemies, so there's no one thing it will become. It's best to just fight it or run away, as it's not going to do anything on its own except for hatch into something you're going to fight anyway.
You just said you couldn't explain it and then told us what it did right after.
What I meant was, I don't know how it got there or what exactly laid it, but at least in the battle I know what it does. I could have been more specific though.
Hey, have we ever talked about if we're doing a Final Fantasy game after this one? I'm not sure if we've really had much of a discussion about that yet.
I'm not sure yet, but I suppose we can mention it now. At this time we already have this one to finish, though we are already over halfway there, so we'll be done before the end of the year at this rate. I know there's still Kingdom Hearts, which is going to take quite a while, along with any other Mega Man games, since Ben really likes those ones. Plus, there's still plans for Donald playing Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, so even if we were going to play it, then it wouldn't be for a long time, since aside from the Mega Man ones, these are all pretty long games. Even then, the more popular requests we've gotten are Final Fantasy 6 and 7, which are both really long, and I'm not sure we'd get them done in a reasonable time. In all likelihood, this is the last Final Fantasy game we'll play for the channel for the time being, though. That doesn't mean we won't play another game in the series a lot later. Hopefully this doesn't sound too disappointing.
I think it's reasonable enough, since I'm excited to play my game later this year, and for Ben to continue his. Hopefully George will join us on occasion for some of those games, as I'm not sure if he's too familiar with those ones.
I'm sure I'll have some time in my schedule in the upcoming months, so I might stop by even if it's not for a whole playthrough. That being said, I don't know if I'll be in a whole playthrough until the next Final Fantasy game, which based on what you're saying sounds like it could be in quite a long time from now, if you're only uploading one part a week.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do more than that, especially with Joe being the president, Donald campaigning to be the president, and dealing with court cases, Barack doing whatever it is he does since being president, and me being host of the most important website known to us that gives us a good amount of time to relax together and entertain others.
Yeah, I do get busy being the president and all, plus sometimes I even have to leave the White House every once a month or 6. Hey, Barack, we haven't talked much about the game. Is anything important going to happen soon?
Yes, Joe, we will be getting to something a little bit more substantial soon. It's just that there's not much to talk about before this section. We're about to meet a few characters that are going to cause us some problems in this part, and a few coming up soon.
Looks like one of them just teleported away, so I don't think we really met them exactly. I wonder what they're even doing here.
And it looks like this one is pretty excited for some reason. I think it would be funny if he just fell off this level and we didn't have to fight him. I'm guessing we have to fight him at least, since it seems like every character we meet for the first time in a new area inevitably leads to a fight that Barack wins without much difficulty.
You are correct on that, Donald, as we have to fight Dr. Lugay and his robot Barnabas. I'm not sure where the robot came from exactly, but still, we have to beat them. This fight is unique, as the order in which you finish one of them off causes you to fight a slightly different character by the end of it. Defeating Barnabas first will cause the Doctor to take over and create Barnabas Z, which I'll be showing off in a moment. Defeating the Doctor first doesn't really do anything special, though. Regardless of which order you choose, you will have to fight the Doctor again directly after.
Thank you for the explanation, Barack, but I think it's time I finally get my roast skills started up, as I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah, let's hear it.
I'll start with Barnabas, as he won't be in the battle much longer. Barnabas, I would say you have a face only a mother could love, but this is actually not true, as since you are a robot, you do not have a mother, and even if you did, she wouldn't love you. You're so ineffective in battle that by the time I've started roasting you, the battle is almost over. You may be required to fill the bestiary to completion, but you are not required on this earth, since you bring no value to it, you loser.
And with that, the first fight is done, and some of those roasts were actually pretty good.
Do you think you'll be able to handle roasting the Doctor alone in the second fight?
You better believe I am, George. Dr. Lugay, you are so dumb you probably got your doctorate after graduating from Trump University.
Wait, what?
The only time in my life I've wished I was your failure Barnabas was right now, since he doesn't have to look at your ugly face. If I had a nickel for every time Barack had to fight you, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it's happened twice. I'm not sure where you live exactly, since I haven't seen any homes around all the lava outside, but perhaps it would be best if you didn't talk to anyone ever again, so they would be spared from having the displeasure of being acknowledged by you. You may have just transformed a moment ago, but I would have preferred you transformed into a corpse instead. You look so old and decrepit you would have fit right in during the most recent debate.
Wait, what?
I hope this battle is almost over, as I'd rather sniff gasoline than continue watching you fight, which is probably what your mother was doing while she was pregnant with you.
All right, Ben, you were starting to run low on roasting material towards the end, but it worked out as he's finally done. That wasn't overly difficult, but really I've come to expect that at this point.
You both did a good job at fighting and roasting everyone over the past minute or so. I'm guessing this is the main important fight for the video, though I suppose there's still a while left, so a lot could happen.
You are correct in that this is the most important fight in the video, though the important story elements will continue on as we're getting the key, which will allow us to enter an area that was previously not accessible.
I don't think we mentioned this section earlier, right? I think we were talking about something else and just walked right by it, but I'm glad you know where to go.
To be fair, we've been talking about something else for the majority of the video so far, and unless something crazy happens in the game, it might go back to that.
Hey, why did Rosa use haste on herself when it seems like the battle is already almost over? I don't think that really helped anything.
Well, sometimes I have the auto battle function on, and apparently Rosa's last action was to use haste, so it was just an accident, though this fight is really easy, so it doesn't affect anything. Still, the fact remains that it was a small mistake on my part. The real important part happens after the battle. The Goblin captains aren't content with losing, so they have to sabotage the machine that they're stationed at. Not sure what exactly they do, since they don't have any other duties in this place. Kind of makes me wonder who is employing them.
Hold up, Barack. Is Yang sacrificing himself here? I hope he can make it out okay from that room.
Based on the red screen and shaking, the room seemed to have exploded, so he probably didn't make it out of there. What I'm confused on is the fact that he didn't even really explain what he was doing. It still exploded, so it's not like he prevented anything from happening. And the door was open, so it's not like he couldn't have just went out with everyone else. It seems like he just needlessly left himself in there when it's treated as a sacrifice. He must have taken one of Joe's pills before to make a decision like that.
Yeah, I agree with Donald. Even with the speed up, it seems his alleged sacrifice was for nothing and went by too quickly to really comprehend. And now there's a bridge falling and a ship here. This went from 0 to 100 really quickly.
At least Sid is back here now. I didn't really care for him. In fact, I don't think anyone really did when he was in the party, but at least he can fill in the spot that Yang left us with. May his useless sacrifice carry us forward onto a better party of characters.
Actually, that's not quite what happens.
Wait, what? I thought that would have made the most sense for Sid to take over since we're down a party member now. I mean, even if he's not all that great, he would have some purpose since he saved us from falling. Actually, now that I think about it, how exactly were the characters falling in a position where they would be outside of the tower when they were falling downwards from the bridge inside the tower? Did I miss something, or did they somehow teleport outside it? Actually, why couldn't Rosa just teleport them out of the tower? Or even to the overworld? I don't know why I didn't think of that earlier.
Although you are right on that, I do have to ask now, I think Sid is about to do the same kind of sacrifice as Yang did a minute ago. Is that really happening?
Oh no, not another old guy exploding. That's the third time this week I've seen that happen.
I'd rather focus on Sid dying than ask you what you mean by the third time this week.
Unfortunately, yes, everyone Sid is also doing a very strange idea of a sacrifice, as the Red Wings need to be trapped down there in order for us to make it back to the surface.
Are you serious? I can't even count all the things wrong with this. First off, he's this great mechanic that can build a floating ship, but he can't make a timer for a bomb. Why does he even have the bomb to begin with? It certainly could have helped against the Dark Elf earlier. Next is the fact that he could have just stayed on the ship and threw it downwards to where it would still explode and he would have been fine. Third is the Red Wings managed to get underground already as they were here before the main party dropped the magma stone down the well and opened it up that way so it wouldn't trap the Red Wings down here, as there logically should be another way to get back to the surface. Fourth is simply the fact that there are now two guys who get themselves blown up within the span of 2 minutes where they could have easily avoided it. I don't know who came up with this section of the story, but they need to be fired immediately. Well, I guess it was written a few decades ago, so they're probably not still there, but you get the idea.
Yeah, I can't even argue with that. This is probably the weakest part of the story, as the motivation for those two really isn't explained at all, and their sacrifices seem pointless. We will be getting a new member to take Yang's place, although it's not happening yet. Ben, you are very accurate in your description what happened. I suppose that's why you talk about facts and logic so often, is because you really can bring them when they're needed.
That's good and all, but what's going on at Barren here? I'm not sure what we would have to do if we can already fly around in the airship.
I've got no idea myself, honestly. It's a little hard to take the story serious at this point, with all the strange decisions that have taken place over the past few minutes. I feel like a lot of this game so far is the gang finds some new place, a new character sometimes appears, they fight someone they've never seen before, get a crystal, lose the crystal, and repeat itself. It's not that I don't like the game, but it is pretty repetitive. At least Edward isn't here now, so that's nice.
I don't really have any defense to your assessments. Although I do like this game a lot, I can see why others would not appreciate aspects of the story or even gameplay with so many characters going in and out, sometimes with little reason. I do think it gets a lot better from here on, though. For now, we're actually going to focus on the Eblan Castle, or rather what's left, as it doesn't have any people in it, and there's several items. I don't have anything interesting to say about it, so if anyone else wants to talk about something else, now is the time.
I could tell one of my stories since I have so many that I haven't said before. I've only maybe told 1% on all the videos we've done so far.
Joe, the idea of you having that many more stories absolutely terrifies me, but before you start your ramblings, there was actually something we did want to try out. The 5 of us have been talking and want to try and interact a bit with the audience by asking them questions on occasion in some videos. I figured we could start with this one and ask what your favorite Final Fantasy game is. Barack is this one for some reason that I can't quite understand, but we'd be curious on knowing what the viewers prefer. If I looked it up correctly, I think Final Fantasy 6, 7, 10, and 14 are the really popular ones, but I think all of them probably could be someone's favorite.
That would be interesting to know. Perhaps if you haven't played a Final Fantasy game before then, maybe you'll start after watching this or the other series. If not, that's okay. We'll come up with other questions to ask and get feedback on too.
I would like to see answers to those questions, but I'd also think the listeners and you all want to hear my story like you always do.
We really don't, but you're just going to tell it anyway.
So there I was traveling with Harold and Uglier Joe, as I tend to often when I suddenly realized the entire world was in danger of these things called sentinels. They were killing a lot of my friends, so I decided the only way to save the world was to have my mind be transported a few decades ago to stop the assassination of someone important, as that would change the future. I ran into this bald guy who could inject himself with something that made him walk but made him psychic when he wasn't. Anyway, we stopped the assassination attempt, but then it became public knowledge that these people with mutations were all over the world, and that caused people to hate them because they were different or something. I think one of them kills people by touching them, so I can see why that would be a problem. We convinced Magneto to stop killing people. The end.
Joe, that was just a shortened version of X-Men Days of Future Past. You may have even told that same story before, or maybe that was another X-Men story at this point. It's kind of hard to tell your stories apart as they're all about as nonsensical as each other.
I do find it kind of strange how your Uglier Joe and Harold friends just didn't really do anything in that story, but you still found it important enough to bring them up. I'm surprised you didn't mention your lizard that's somehow becoming another recurring character.
I would never put my lizard in danger for any of my stories, Sometimes it does appear in a dangerous situation, but I'm always sure he's safe even with all the mishaps I am around sometimes.
Before this video is over, I did want to mention a couple things on the game. The reason we went to Baron was so Sid's people could make it so the airship could bring that hovercraft to this section, as we're only able to access this cave with it, but I didn't actually say it when we were there. In addition, this is the cave where many of the Eblan Castle residents went to before or while their castle was destroyed, so there were a lot of survivors, even if they're not in the best condition. We'll meet an important one next time.
As long as his name isn't Edward or he doesn't try to blow himself up at the first sign of danger, then I'll be happy with it.
I'm hoping we'll have all of our characters actually stay in the party, as to me it's getting a little tiring to see so many changes to the characters, so it's harder to get invested in some of them if they just end up leaving, especially if it's for a dumb reason.
It is getting close to having the final party members here, but if it helps anything, most of the characters we have will stay for the remainder of the game. I don't remember if I've mentioned this before, but in the Game Boy Advance and PlayStation Portable versions, you actually could switch between characters that left the party earlier, except for ones that completely died, like Tellah. And don't worry, Donald the Edward you are thinking of will not join us here.
That's good to know. Is there anything else major happening in the rest of the minute we have left, or not really?
Not really, it's just more of the cave and a save point, but that's it.
Oh, good. At least this game does give us a bit of rest from the multiverse adventure we've been going through on our other playthrough.
Wait, multiverse in another playthrough, what does that mean?
In a not very subtle way of advertising, we're playing Kingdom Hearts, and there's this whole story arc of meeting up with other characters and seeing what other versions of us are like. At least that's what we're doing when this part is getting uploaded, as this might not make sense if you're watching this in a year or so after it's out.
That sounds kind of confusing, but also fun. I had a good time here today.
Aside from a few logical issues, I did too, and I'll be excited to see what comes up next.
We hope people enjoyed this today.
As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, plus join the Discord group.
And as always, peace out, people. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IV, where we will continue going through the cave of Eblan and meet the newest party member.
I maintain that as long as it's not Edward, then I am fine with anybody joining the party to help us.
Hey, didn't we see the guy in the red earlier with that Doctor and Barnabas a while ago?
Yes, it is Joe, and we're going to get right into it by introducing Rubiconte officially as the last of the four fiends, and he is in a scripted encounter against Edge, who is very unprepared to fight at this point.
Rubiconte certainly looks more intimidating than some of the other fiends we've seen before, but unlike them, it looks like there's some actual build-up by seeing how strong he is, and the connection with another antagonist.
Wow, that Edge guy got hit with over 3 times his maximum health. He really did have no chance to win that fight.
That is correct, which although does show how powerful Rubiconte is, it also is a rather strange introduction to Edge as the first time you see him. It's when he's absolutely obliterated by someone else, which funny enough is a good representation of him in battle.
Oh no, Rydia, don't cry. Come on over to Joe. I'll make you feel better, but not in a weird way unless you know that's what you want to do.
Joe, we are not having you infatuated with Rydia again. It was bad enough when it started, and I don't anticipate it getting any better with her being here for probably the rest of the game. You need to control yourself and not take every opportunity to make it into something that isn't meant to be. Especially since she's a character in a video game that isn't real, but you don't seem to acknowledge that detail often, if ever.
I definitely agree with you, Ben, but aren't we back in that Tower of Babel? I thought we went through that last time.
I don't recognize this part from last time, so I'd assume it's a different part of the tower that we didn't get to.
There's a lot to go over, so we'll go one at a time. Ben, I also agree that Joe needs to stop simping for every woman he comes across in this game, but I'm not sure if he's realistically going to learn his lesson soon, if ever. George, you are correct in that we are back in the Tower of Babel, and Donald, you are correct that it's a different part that we didn't get to the first time. It is kind of weird they're using assets again, but at least the design is different, so it's not completely reused. Also, I have no idea what Edge actually did to have everyone go through the wall, as he never does anything like that again.
I'll try to get myself focused on the gameplay, but with Rydia and Rosa in the party, it'll be a difficult task, that's for sure.
It shouldn't be this hard to not do something as simple as that, but that's what happens when we bring along Joe each time we play something together.
Hey guys, while this game goes on and not much is happening, I was thinking we could go over some responses to that question we asked in the previous part a while back.
That is a good idea, George. We try to have these parts recorded a while in advance, so it's possible more will be added in that comments section after we're done looking through them. The most common answer was Final Fantasy 7 and 10, but there were some other ones such as Tactics and The Legend of Dragoon, which I don't think is part of the series. Some of the others were 8, 9, 5, 13, and 13-2.
Hold up there, did you just say 13-2? Like a sequel or something?
Yes, I can explain that. Although the games generally are unrelated in the actual plot, there are some games that continue the story directly. Examples would be this game in Final Fantasy IV, The After Years, but we won't be playing that one. There's also Final Fantasy X and X-2. Later on there was Final Fantasy XIII, XIII-2, and Lightning Returns, which ended up being a trilogy.
I thought this series couldn't get any more confusing, but now there's direct sequels as well. I'm glad we probably won't be playing those later ones if they're going to have us need to know what happens for each one. Or at least I'm guessing we're not playing those ones.
Not for a long time, if ever, but we'll get to that once we actually decide to play something else in the series.
Hey Barak, is something important going to happen? I'm not sure if anything is going on now.
That's a good question, Joe. Something important is coming up right now. You may have heard that the king and queen of Eblan weren't at the castle, but they also weren't at the cave. It turns out they actually are here in the tower, although due to Dr. Lugay's influence, they're not who they were before.
Oh wow, the doctor actually influenced something after he died. Usually these boss fights just end and the characters have no real impact on the world before or afterwards.
I think it was actually before he died, but otherwise, yeah, that is right. These things really don't look like how they should, and it's yet another boss battle.
Guys, I know this is supposed to be a deep emotional moment, but since it's a boss battle, I have to get my roasts going.
Oh no, this can't go well.
I'll start with the queen. If I had a nickel for every limb you have, I would have no nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird you don't have any. You named your child Edge, so you kind of deserve your fate when you think about it. Your fire spells are somehow even less effective than Edge's ninja skills he tried and failed to do earlier. Really, I should be roasting him for trying to kill one of the 4 fiends alone like his 3-digit health bar could really handle it. Now with King Obvious over here saying he's not human as if their appearances didn't make that clear enough. Personally, if I were you, I would jump off this platform not for what you look like, but for thinking I can't tell you changed.
I have to be honest, Ben, these roasts aren't all that good this time.
Well, I'm sorry, George, I didn't realize they existed until 1 minute ago, so it's not like I had that much material to work off of. Besides, it doesn't look like they're going to be here a lot longer, so it doesn't matter at this point.
Okay, yeah, I guess I can't be too harsh on you given the circumstances.
Wow, that sure looks like a difficult fight. I can't imagine how you managed to beat them both at the same time. You must be really good at this game.
Joe, that was a scripted encounter and Barak didn't need to fight them at all. They barely did any damage anyway, so no, that was not a difficult fight in any conceivable way.
You're right on that, Donald. No, I didn't need to attack them, nor would it have done anything even if I did. We'll talk about that later, but for now, Rubicante is back, and he doesn't seem to entirely agree with what happened to them, but is still going to fight the group anyway. It is interesting in that he actually heals your party before you fight him. Not that you really need it after the previous fight, but it does add to his character as seeming more honorable.
I don't have any more roasts in me. You can just fight him and explain what you're doing.
Sounds good. Honestly, there isn't a lot to this fight, just like many of the others in the game. The part he mentioned about the cloak basically means he is weak to ice attacks, though only when he doesn't have his cloak up. When it is up, then he gets healed instead, which for obvious reasons we do not want. Edge gains some of his ninja skills suddenly, but Rydia's magic spells are much better since Edge is just at a lower level and isn't leveled up that much by now. His skills won't get used barely at all in the playthrough.
It looks like Cecil's Ice Sword did over 5,000 damage to him while Edge did nearly 400. I would think Cecil and probably Rydia would be best to keep attacking, and I can see why Edge isn't all that useful. He's almost like having another Edward, just not a bard this time.
Kane got himself healed with his jump attack and did an all right amount of damage, but it seems Cecil is still the best one for the fight. It's probably because he's always been in the party, so there's never a point where he is more underleveled compared to someone else.
That's a really good point, George. I think you're right on that. Barak, are there other things about this fight that are noteworthy or not really?
There is an attack called Inferno that does a lot of damage and at this point would pretty much instantly knock out Edge or Rydia if it hits them. I know the fight started a little while ago, but since it's more of the same, I think it's best to just skip ahead a while. There's nothing he does differently to where it's interesting to go for another 2 minutes of the same thing.
It looks like almost everyone got knocked out on screen, but I'm glad you made it through anyway, Barak. I can't wait to see what the next fight is like. Probably more of the same, I'm guessing.
Not like Barak has had any real difficult time with any fight. We're a few hours into the game and probably over halfway through, and there hasn't been anything that he's actually struggled with.
You are definitely right on that, but I think it's important we talk about what happened. For some reason, before Dr. Lugay died, he experimented on the King and Queen of Eblan, although there wasn't all that much foreshadowing to it. I think there may have been a couple lines of dialogue that alluded to it, but certainly not showing the full extent. I don't think it hits as hard because we never saw them before they just abruptly showed up and started fighting the group. There isn't really much they can do about what happened, and overall doesn't have much impact as it's not something anyone really talks about going forward, including Edge.
At this point, I'd be more surprised if there actually was some lasting consequences of character actions. I suppose there have been some like Rydia's mother and village getting killed and fighting Cagnazzo to free Baron from someone who was impersonating the king, but most of who we fought just don't do anything substantial.
Hey, you know what? I just thought of a comment question for this video. Out of all the boss fights that Barak has done so far, who is the most useless and forgettable? There's a lot of contenders like Bygan, the Dark Elf Antlion, Barnabas, Dr. Lugay, and the Calcabrina dolls.
That's actually a really good idea, Joe. I'm surprised you came up with one. There's also the Dark Dragon Magus sisters, the King and Queen of Eblan, debatably Octomammoth Mother Bomb, and probably even more yet to come.
Although I completely agree with your question for the episode, I do have to ask, did the characters just fall down due to a trap? If they really needed to get back up, couldn't they just have Rosa teleport them? Or Kane could just jump back up to where the crystal should have been at the very least. I swear this game won't let any of the good characters have any crystal for more than a couple minutes at a maximum. I get there's some suspension of disbelief for a fantasy game such as this, but this is really starting to push those limits.
I would normally agree with you on this, but in this case, there is actually a reason for them to continue the way they're going. It just isn't apparent quite yet, but it will be very useful.
Now, I have to agree with Ben on this one. I'm liking the gameplay from what I'm seeing, but this story isn't good at all. Things just happen out of nowhere, and people just appear and fight us and die on repeat until the game's over. I get this was released decades ago, so maybe I shouldn't expect better, but I still think it's fair to point them out when it happens.
Here's the reason we're supposed to be going forward. Despite falling down the trap, it's another airship we can use to not only get out of here, but also get around the underground better than we could before.
There's really just a free airship here. Where is this even being stored? I think it's in the tower still, but there's pure darkness around, and it's not like I could see an exit for where airships could just come and go. I mean, it's good that there's a way out, but even then, it's not like the characters knew they were going to be finding one here. This is still really dumb.
I don't think we should let Barak choose the next game if this is the kind he likes when it's not making sense at all.
Nobody asked you, Joe, besides your stories are all way less logical than this game, so that's really hypocritical coming from you.
Yeah, Joe, that's a little bit harsh. I mean, yeah, the game isn't making sense and the bosses are easy, probably due to increasing the experience manually, but that doesn't mean Barak shouldn't choose the next game we play inherently.
Thank you, Ben. Now we have a necklace, which is used to access something later, but for now we actually have to meet Sid, who is currently resting due to the previous events.
Hold up, Barak, you mean Sid is actually alive? He took an explosion to the face that destroyed the part where the Earth blocked the Red Wings from going to the surface, and not only survived, but is completely intact and also somehow landed near the castle. That dumb sacrifice out of nowhere happened, and the game didn't even make it stick since the previous part. Joe, now I am on your side, Barak. You are not choosing the next game. This is so dumb, and you need to pick something that doesn't have a terrible story like this does.
Are you really going against me now? Like this is somehow making less sense than sneaking around and fighting psychics, ninjas, and a twin who survives everything in the game? Or less sense than a Disney Square Enix crossover with Donald and Goofy? I can't believe you are turning on me like this just because a game made 30 years ago had some questionable design choices in the story and character development.
It's not like I can just get the scriptwriter on the phone so I can tell them how much the character motivations here suck if they exist at all, but since you wanted to play this game that makes less sense than Joe's stories, then I have to blame someone.
Oh, hey, that reminds me of when I...
Joe, I'm in the middle of criticizing Barak for something that isn't his fault, and your sudden storytelling is really harshing my mojo up here. Anyway, I cannot imagine how this game is going to get worse with its character writing unless Yang also survived his explosion, got knocked out, and is just sleeping somewhere too completely intact.
I can't believe I have to be the mediator here, but Ben, even though I agree with what you're saying about the game story, Barak is at least playing well, so I don't think we should dismiss his choices of games just because of some lackluster writing.
Thank you for coming to my defense, Donald. Ben, I get it, okay, this is an old game and the story isn't the best. In fact, a lot of the times things do just kind of happen with no reason to them, but that's no reason why we can't still enjoy what is here. Since it is relevant to what we're doing, there's a few things we can do here that aren't necessarily required, but are still good to do. We're in a town here that has some good equipment for this part of the game. There's another house on the bottom right of the underground, but we're not going in there for a few more parts. There's the Sylvan Cave, the Cave of Summons, and the Sealed Cave. The Sealed Cave is required, but we'll still explore the others as there's some good things to obtain in each place.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. What are we going to be doing for the next few minutes?
We'll do the Sylvan Cave as the way to get to the end is pretty short. We won't find a lot of useful items there, but I didn't want to skip it completely. The next part is where we'll go through the Cave of Summons, where Rydia spent her time after the Leviathan attack, then the Sealed Cave where the next crystal is being kept, which will take up most of the next video.
At least we know what to expect, that being 6 or 7 fights with characters newly introduced and defeated within a minute, probably.
Hey guys, would now be a good time for that story I was going to mention earlier?
I can't think of a good time for one of your stories, but you're just going to tell it anyway.
So this is the story about how I met my pet lizard. One time I was going to the Amazon and I saw this lady who looked pregnant and some other person who were searching for spiders. The guy who was there sounded really unnatural, as if he was saying one thing, then he was having his words changed and dubbed over. Anyway, he started killing everyone around, and the pregnant lady gave birth to some girl that ended up having powers of seeing through into the future. She met with some teenagers out of nowhere and decided to fight the guy who was killing everyone because he saw a future where they killed them. The 4 ladies went to a diner, and the person who saw the future was a paramedic. I don't think I mentioned that before, and she just crashed through the wall of the diner, probably killing some people in the process. They later went to some fireworks factory and fought Spider-Man, but without the webs. Some of the fireworks could break through walls, but some only inconvenienced the bad guy because I guess some of them weren't as lethal as the others. It turns out the guy's future was actually one where he caused his own death, kind of, and got hit by a Pepsi sign. One of the fireworks blinded the paramedic person because that was one of the less powerful fireworks at the end. Oh wait, I forgot about my lizard. While I was in the Amazon researching spiders with the mother right before she died, I just found the lizard on the ground and named him Alejandro.
Okay, Joe, I'm pretty sure that was just the plot of Madam Web, that really unsuccessful movie earlier this year, since none of that happened to you. Also, most of it wasn't even about you or the lizard, it was about other people entirely, and you just found the lizard in some Amazon? And I've never heard of a lizard named Alejandro.
That's just kind of par for the course. It was at least more interesting than just watching Barak fight a few trees and ghosts-like. Is that really what constitutes his enemies here now?
Let's just skip ahead. This isn't really interesting anymore. We know Barak is going to be just fine by the end of this fight.
Yeah, that's fine. There's not much else going on. We hope the viewers are fine with this shorter video since we just have a lot to do. and want to split it up amongst multiple episodes without any of them being too lengthy with how repetitive some of these Final Fantasy IV ones in particular can get. Plus, I don't have to listen to Ben complain about how Yang is also alive too since the video's ending now.
Wait, what are you serious, Barack? I am definitely going to bring this up next time we play. I won't let my voice and complaints go unheard.
What do you know, he is back. We'll talk about it later, but for now, thank you to everyone for watching. We know there is more to come soon.
We'll be back with even more characters surviving explosions to the face. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more.
And as always, peace out, people.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to another part for Final Fantasy IV. We're going to be exploring a few caves today, so it's best we just get right into it. The first area we're going into is actually not required, but it is useful for Rydia specifically, as it's where she lived for the majority of the time in between the Leviathan attack and her rejoining the party. We're going to get a few new summons for her, and then after that, we'll go to a different cave, which is required for the story. There's a little bit after that too, but nothing too important.
Hey, I noticed you did something there where you used float on everyone. What was that all about? Why would you need to float in here?
I'm just going to take an educated guess and say it was meant to prevent the characters from taking damage on some of the floor tiles. I remember something like that happened back in the original Final Fantasy game where everyone had to walk on lava in order to go through a volcano and there was no way around it besides just walking right through it. This seems like a way of avoiding that damage, even if it was a very strange design choice to begin with.
You are correct, Ben, that is what it's for. That and for avoiding some ground-based attacks in battle, but those are much less common.
I'm still kind of stuck on that part about walking through lava, like why would someone even do that? What is the purpose of going into a volcano for something? That must be a common thing for characters to do all sorts of strange things when the game designers want them to do.
George, this is the same game that had two characters sacrifice themselves when they didn't have to only to be revealed as alive within the same few minutes of a single video, so I wouldn't put it past them to get killed by a tree branch who shoots lightning in the next game.
Yeah, that very specific example would be weird. Anyway, back to the game, I have to give a little bit of an explanation on what's going on. So the area coming up is called the Land of Summons, and it's where most of the summons end up living, though not exclusively. This is where Rydia was, and it's where she met the king and queen of the area, which we're going to spend a few minutes fighting, since there's not a lot of other reason for coming here, though we are going to pick up the rat's tail, which will be important later.
Hey, I remember a rat's tail a while ago in that other Final Fantasy game where we gave it to Bahamut. Is he here or something?
You are correct, but no, Bahamut is not here, and we won't be giving it to him. We're mainly just looking around to see what's here, fight the king and queen, and then leave.
Wow. So that's two kings and queens that we had to fight in just a couple videos. I guess the other ones you didn't really fight so much as let them attack you, but still. I also imagine most of the next few minutes is going to be discussing how to fight the summons.
That is a good guess, but actually no, I've pretty much accepted that most of these fights are very easy and don't require much strategy, so I'll just say them ahead of time. Asura uses multiple attacks against you, but if you just use Reflect on her every once in a while, she can't heal herself like she normally would, and Leviathan uses Tidal Wave, but as long as you use Jump for Cain and keep everyone at a decent level, they're not that difficult. I wanted to give us time to discuss something new here to mix things up a little bit more.
Oh, thank you, Barack. I appreciate you thinking about that for us. I was about to go on a tirade of how dumb this game is for keeping Yang and Sid alive, but maybe I won't do that. I was actually wondering something for the sake of a thoughtful discussion. I was thinking about the Purge and was considering the legal ramifications on if that were to actually happen in the real world.
That is very unlike anything we normally talk about, but sure. For those of you who don't know, The Purge is basically a movie series where there's a 12-hour span of time that all crime is legal, though you still can't harm certain high-ranking people in the United States.
I hadn't really thought about it before, I just thought it was a weird movie. I wasn't really considering what would actually happen if you did certain things. Like, for example, if I were to put a bomb inside a building during the Purge, but it blew up and hurt people after it already ended then, would that still be illegal?
That is an interesting question. I think it still would be illegal as the part that actually killed people didn't start until after it was over, but since you would have only acted on it during the Purge timing, I'm not completely sure.
Yeah, I don't really know on that. Hypothetically, if I needed to use some nukes on some states I thought would cause Donald to get more votes in the election, could I be impeached for that? Is it right to impeach someone for a crime that happened during the Purge at all? Again, I probably won't do that, but I was wondering. Hey, Donald, you know all about impeachments. What do you think?
I am completely in support of impeaching you, so I say yes, but I'm probably a little biased. I was thinking, let's say I shoot someone with a gun, but I fire the gun 1/1,000,000th of a second before the Purge ends, and it hits them right after it ends. Is that still illegal since the main damaging part happened afterwards? It's just a similar answer to the bomb one now that I think about it.
I think the same idea would apply there. You're probably right. I was thinking, let's say someone crosses the border illegally and it happens to be on the Purge time. Are they able to get deported since the act of crossing the border at that point wasn't illegal then? Even if they are faced with being deported, could the other country they're being deported to fight against that at all? I wonder how other parts of the world view this if it's just happening in the United States.
If I had to guess, it would likely be fine for them to stay, but I don't really know. I've got something different. Let's say I kidnap someone during Purge time and I keep them for several days afterwards. Is it still considered illegal because I did kidnap them when it wasn't illegal but continued it later? I don't know if it's all considered one illegal action or if it's looked at differently because it's an ongoing crime.
All right, I've got one. What if I steal someone else's popsicle? Is that bad?
Well, morally, yes, that would be bad, but that's by far the most tame example so far. George, I think that still would be illegal as it's continuing. Granted, none of us have formal legal authority to say whether this is the case, so I don't think we'd have a clear answer.
Guys, I think there's a different way to look at this. So typically in the court system, you're innocent until proven guilty, and it's on the accuser's end to prove a crime happened. I'm curious how, if at all, that would be different here. In these situations, it's not really a matter of if they are a crime or not, since these examples are objectively seen as crimes. It's just a matter of if they should be punished or not.
Oh yeah, that is pretty weird. I wonder who the burden of proof would be on. Let's say I steal someone's wallet right around the end of the purge time, but neither me nor the wallet's original owner knew what time it was exactly was when it happened, and it went to court. Who would the court side with if there was no proof either way?
Yeah, that leads into what I was thinking with the fact the crime being done isn't the question as yes, you are guilty of what happened, but I wonder if that guiltiness in itself would cause the favor to go to the accuser despite no possible proof being done.
This is all pretty complicated, so I don't think I'm going to do that nuke thing just to be safe.
Joe, we're not actually planning on these things, and the purge isn't real. You would still be in legal trouble anyway.
All right, this makes me curious outside of the scope of the United States. Let's say I upload some sort of illegal video online and anyone in the world can see it. Can anyone in the United States take it down as it's not illegal, or do all of the copyright and user agreements on sites still apply for not doing those things?
All right, before we continue with this discussion, this sealed cavern is required, and it's Luca's necklace that opens it. There's a lot of trap doors, but we'll skip most of them. Anyway, George, let's say you put that illegal video onto YouTube. I'm pretty sure the videos can still be blocked in specific countries, though I'm not sure if that would actually happen, as I don't think those individual countries have to manually request for YouTube staff to take a video down or limit the people who see it, though I don't know for sure. It probably would stay up until the purge time ends.
Hey, now that I think about it, I don't think that the purge allows explosives due to the weapon class it's in. Have any of you actually watched the purge movies at all?
Oh, this came from a movie? I was just signing the documents to make this a real thing just yesterday. I thought that's what you were talking about. And I think I may have read it said 12 months per year rather than 12 hours per year.
Ben, to answer your question, no, but Joe, more importantly, you just signed something that is going to make crime legal for the entire year. Sometimes I don't know how you got the presidency with things like this.
I'm about to get myself ready to go into the bunker, but before I did that, it's time for the question of the day. What crime would you commit if the purge was real?
No, that is not the comment question of the day. We're going to get so many illegal and horrible answers. The actual question is, what is your favorite Final Fantasy character? Not even from this game, but across the franchise is good. There's a lot of really well done ones that stand out across the decades.
Certainly not any of these ones where they die and come back 20 minutes later with no reason on how they survived.
I think a couple of them are all right. I think the story of Cecil is nice, where he learns to move past his awful actions at the beginning of the story, and Cain with his difficulties with being controlled. Hey, Barack, isn't there some sort of sequel to this game? I think I heard about that once or so. I'm not sure if that's something you wanted to play or talk about.
Yeah, I suppose I can talk about it in more detail. I don't plan on ever playing it for the channel, so there's not much point in hiding what happens to an extent. I'll try not to spoil much of what happens in this game to talk about it. Quite a while after this game was released, there was a sequel called Final Fantasy IV: The After Years on the Wii, where you could buy individual episodes of character stories for a few dollars. Later on, it was released on the PlayStation Portable, but as a whole game rather than separate parts, and a 3D remake on Steam. I suppose it was also on iOS and Android devices, but let's be real, maybe 5 people played it on there, much less finished it. The game adds new stories onto characters and introduces some unique characters, such as a group of ninjas with Edge and children of the current cast. They explore areas in new ways, but a lot of it feels like the same because a lot of the time they are straight up reusing the original map design. To be completely fair, there are new sections to existing maps, so it's kind of new, but even then, I can't say it's really better.
George, this is why you don't ask Final Fantasy questions to Barack, because he never stops answering them.
There are some actually good story moments for characters like Cain and Golbez that make things almost seem worthwhile, though it's a very small amount of time compared to most of the game where it's retreading previous content. Cecil is not done well because he spends most of the game not responsive to other characters and acting very strangely compared to this game. There's also another type of character that looks a lot like Rydia but is otherwise not connected. Most of the other cast members don't go through a lot that justifies having a few hours all to themselves, in my opinion. Gameplay-wise, it's mostly the same, though there are some new combinations of attacks by using specific characters that does make it worthwhile to try variations of party members. In addition, there's phases of the moon which affect how powerful certain types of attacks become, which I don't think was necessary, as it just complicates things by making certain strategies less viable if you don't have the right timing of the moon. If you have to play this game, I would recommend the PlayStation Portable version. The Wii Shop channel isn't open anymore, so that isn't an option, and the PlayStation Portable version comes with the original game. The 3D version isn't all that bad, but the battles go by more slowly in general, and also cuts out a lot of boss fights in the last section. When you get to the moon in the sequel for the 2D versions, there are fights from enemies across Final Fantasy 1 through 6, but in the 3D version, they cut out entire sections and only left in the ones from Final Fantasy 4. I think this is so they didn't have to make new 3D models and could just use the old ones again when they could.
Wow, Barak, that was a really interesting description of a game none of us are ever going to play. I'm glad you shared that with us. Did anything happen in the game that's important at all?
Yes, actually, we finally got a crystal, and now we're going to fight this wall that just comes up out of nowhere. Well, I guess it doesn't come from nowhere, but I'm not sure why it's attacking only after we got the crystal rather than before it.
Hold up now, Barak, I'm a little skeptical on how this wall works. So we were going from the door down to the bridge towards the bottom of the screen, and now we're fighting the demon wall. I am not sure how this is even a threat realistically. It's only coming from one direction, which is the way all of the other characters were coming from. This logically would mean the way through the bridge is still accessible and the characters could just run away and actually be in a much better condition since they don't have to fight this. The only way I could see this being a threat is if we did have more than one wall, so hypothetically, let's say that was the case. The wall would have to come from the direction of the bridge, so that would trap the characters, though in that case there would be two walls to fight, which is clearly not the case. Even if it was coming from only the side of the bridge, that would be very unusual since the battle area should have a bridge present to show they're on it, but they're not. And really all of this is absolutely useless, as Rosa can use her teleport ability to get everyone out of here with no difficulty since she's done it before, and I don't see why she can't again. We should just skip to the end. I don't want to see this illogical, sad excuse for a boss fight on screen anymore.
You talked through the whole fight, Ben. It's already defeated before I could make a single joke about it being a wall, because you know how I am with walls.
That might actually be for the best, Donald. Good job, Barak. It didn't look all that difficult, but you still did fine. I'm guessing the wall would have ended the whole party if it got close enough.
You are right on that, George. In the game, you have to walk all the way back to the beginning, but for the sake of the viewers and us, I'll skip ahead to the end.
Thanks for considering us there. I hope the crystal is safe with us.
Are you actually serious? We got the crystal not even 2 minutes ago and it already got lost. Has the party had any crystal for half an hour cumulatively across the whole game yet? I swear their level of success is so low it's making Joe's approval rating seem high by comparison.
Unfortunately, no, Ben, the characters here are really bad with holding on to the crystals. In fact, I don't think they'll get them back at all for the remainder of the game, except for maybe one more time at the very end, but I don't want to spoil much. Anyways, now Golbez has the crystals, so everyone else is left to return to the castle down here and report the fact they failed massively.
I think they could get Sid to show up and help. I know he was in an explosion a while ago, but that didn't stop him from surviving. He's probably good enough to work on an airship right now.
I'm surprised he hasn't tried to fight Golbez himself. After all, the characters can't get the crystals safely for the life of them, and everybody except for Anna and Tellah can just escape death when they please.
And would you look at that, there's Sid right here, just like Joe said. I know we've complained about the game's story quite a bit, so I really don't mean for it to be annoying to the viewers, listen to me, or anyone else complaining of a game that was released decades ago, but this game really makes no sense, and I struggle to think how this ended up being the final product. I can only imagine the other versions and their script didn't have much else to work off of, so I feel bad for those who had to translate it and not be able to fix any of the weird story decisions.
Yeah, at some point, even someone like me who really likes this game has to admit there could have been more edits to the story to make it more sensical. I don't think there would have been an issue with a lot of the character deaths, for example, if there was a more specific reason why they needed to happen, or even if they just made them stick rather than be fake outs twice in a row. It was probably hindered by the fact it was on the Super Nintendo originally, but even later games in the series on the same system handled these plot issues much better by comparison.
Hey, now that I think about it, I don't think we've talked about much else this episode. Most of the first half was just talking about the Purge, and the last half was mostly about how this game doesn't make sense, which we've already talked about extensively. This seems like one of those filler episodes in anime where not a lot really happens. I mean, the summons were fine, and the net crystal amount for Cecil and his group is the same, but Barak probably won't use those summons much, if at all.
I think I may have made the Purge legal all year, though, which is kind of concerning, so I hope that doesn't cause any problems for us later on.
I mean, it probably is more of a big deal than we're making it out to be.
Maybe we can focus on the game and not worry about that right now. Barak, is there anything left that's really important before we're done here?
No, this is just getting an item from Yang's wife, which will wake him up and then get us a summon called Sylph, though I don't think I actually use it. Nothing else important happens right now.
We can end the video in just a moment then. Make sure to check up on further announcements on when that Purge thing I sent through gets started so you can do whatever it is that people do in that time.
I personally won't be doing much but hiding out in Mar-a-Lago while getting rid of a few documents in my bathroom during that time.
We hope people ended up enjoying our rather strange discussions today. It was a fun time, as always, to be around you all.
It was a decent time altogether. Thank you all for your continued support by viewing the channel.
There's only a few parts left until we're done with the game. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Final Fantasy IV. No time to explain anything yet, as we need to focus up here before going any further.
Wait, was I supposed to be reading all of that? I just figured you would explain things, but I didn't hear anything for a while, so I figured it wasn't important.
Well, it was kind of important, but mainly there's going to be something called the Lunar Whale coming out of the water, which is going to allow us access to the moon and set us up with the next character to help us since Cain left yet again last time.
Now, I've heard of some crazy stories, most of them coming from Joe, but I don't think the game designers thought of something that insane here.
I'm with George, that's just too weird.
Okay, fine, I suppose it came out of the water just like you said, and I'm not sure how that's supposed to work at all, but I still doubt it can bring us to the moon. I mean, who even would have made this? Why would they need to go there? I don't think this has been mentioned before, as other characters haven't expressed interest in going there, so why start now?
If I've learned anything from this game, is that things don't have to make sense for them to just happen. We may as well accept it now.
Despite your doubts, yes, we are on the moon. There's a lot to explain about this. Gameplay-wise, we'll find some new enemies here, or variations of existing ones too. There's a place with the naming ways, which are seen every once in a while in the game, but mainly the 3D version. There's also a cave that allows access to fight another summon, but we won't be seeing it today. There's this weird stone face on the surface, and while it does nothing in the original release, in the Game Boy Advance and PlayStation Portable versions, they allow you to access the lunar ruins for your characters and go through new scenarios. In the 3D version, after getting a specific item, you'll fight a new boss fight called Proto-Babel. They're not here, so there's not much point discussing those. In regards to the other questions, it actually wasn't built by anybody on Earth to go to the moon, but rather the other way around. There were some characters that look very similar to people on the moon, but we won't see most of them now. They were called Lunarians, and before anyone asks, no, I don't know how they're breathing in open space like this.
At this point, we've already seen so many crazy things happen that this is definitely the strangest one, but not exactly something that should surprise us all that much by now. I don't anticipate we'll go to any other planets. Can you describe what a Lunarian is exactly and how that's relevant to our quest?
That's going into spoilers a little bit, so I can't fully answer it. They vary a little bit. One of them looks like a pretty old person, and there's a few others that aren't entirely Lunarian that look pretty much identical to a normal person, though one of them appears to be much darker in the after years, so there's no one consistent description. Also not related, but this is what it's like when Leviathan is on our side. Not sure where he's getting the water from on the moon, but the effect is still nice.
I don't really care about that as much as how long this travel is taking. I'm just guessing we're going to that crystal tower in the center, but couldn't you have parked the lunar whale a little closer to the entrance? I'm not sure why we have to go through these caves.
It probably couldn't land on the sections where Cecil was mainly walking on, otherwise I'm sure Barack would have put it closer like you mentioned.
Hey, where did the lights go? Did I forget to pay the electric bill again? I hate it when that happens, since then I have to take it from the defense budget, and then my administration gets upset at me because I bankrupted the defense budget already by using it to get some currency to help me get through levels in Candy Crush Saga. I spent a few billion already, but I'm up to level 27, and I might make it to level 28 before my term is over.
There's so much wrong with everything you just said, it would take all day to go over it.
Joe, your story distracted from the incredibly important story details. The Lunarians were mostly asleep, so that's why they're not here, but then one of the named Zemus is controlling Golbez, who is controlling Cain, and that's who the main villain is. Fusoya's brother Kluya had 2 children, and one of them is Cecil, so that makes Cecil half Lunarian. That's why it's kind of confusing, since he looks like a normal person, and so does Fusoya. Now we have to use the lunar whale and stop what's happening at the Tower of Babel, since that was lighting up in the last part.
That is certainly a lot. The last part was mainly going through caves and not accomplishing much, if anything, but we're only 4.5 minutes in barely and went to another section of space, learned the name of the real main villain, and have more background into Cecil's heritage. And it was interrupted by Joe misusing the defense budget on a phone game he's barely made any progress in.
Hey, Barak, I think you mentioned something about a proto-Babel earlier. Was that the prototype of this thing?
I'm glad you caught that, George. You are correct. It is a prototype of this. What we're seeing is the Giant of Babel, and it's obviously a threat to those here. Well, not really on this island specifically, as it's just near the ruins of the Antlion Castle, but still it would be a threat if it got around to other more inhabited places.
Somehow I doubt the lunar whale is going to be enough to stop it. I mean, it can travel pretty far, but I don't see anything that looks like it can attack with.
You are right on that, but thankfully we very suddenly have a few others that are willing to help us from the other parts of the game.
Oh, hey, there's Yang and the Sylphs. I'm glad they're here. I wonder how they got to the surface with those tanks exactly.
Yeah, that is a very good question. The party had a lot of trouble with just the airship, so I don't know how the tanks got up here unless they were carried this way, which is incredibly unlikely.
And there's Sid, too. I figured he would be back at some point as well, since we already saw him alive working on the airship.
Okay, hold up now. Is that Palom and Porum? I thought they sacrificed themselves by turning into stone earlier. It looks like that's 2 more sacrifices that meant nothing at all. Plus there's Edward too, like this couldn't get any worse as it is.
All right, so I'm going to explain things a bit before Ben inevitably goes on a tirade about how this doesn't make any sense. The characters on the airships and tanks are mainly just a distraction so the others can get into the Giant of Babel to destroy it from the inside. That's going to be where the next several minutes take place with more new enemies to fight, as it's a much more mechanical area than we're used to aside from the Tower of Babel and Zod, I suppose. Now, Ben, if you want to discuss how bad this story is yet again, then feel free.
So I didn't realize this game could top itself with Yang and Sid blatantly surviving death when they shouldn't have, but they have unfortunately succeeded. This makes absolutely no sense, as unlike the explosions, which is point blank, as they had no logic to them, but the twins petrifying themselves was established in clear detail that they did it to themselves and couldn't just be cured by someone else. I still think the walls realistically should have crushed them all regardless, but if that's just how this world works, then so be it. Now, it just breaks its own rules by having the Elder change them back, where at no point this was established that he could do so, and I'm pretty sure he never mentioned he could do it either. Or he actually could do it and just didn't say anything to the party to make them stay sad, with no hope of the twins coming back, which is not a great alternative. At this point, I wouldn't even be surprised if Anna and Tellah actually did come back to life, because why does death even matter in this game when it just gets undone off screen 4 times at least?
I have to agree with Ben here. This game already made no sense at points before, but it's really going off the deep end with the lack of logic. I don't think the Giant of Babel is even a threat. If people come back to life so often, it may as well not even be here. I wonder if the King and Queen of Eblan can be brought back, since the game seems willing to let everybody be here. It would have been a more effective moment if the characters hadn't come back, and even when they did, I don't know what they're actually doing. Yes, they're here to fight, but even if they didn't show up, it's not like the other airship members couldn't have done their goal themselves. Why did they need Edward and Yang and Sid and the twins specifically?
I don't really mind. I'm happy to see the twins back. When they were stone, I couldn't sniff their hair much, but now that's not an issue.
I don't agree with Joe for obvious reasons, but for Ben and George, yeah, I'm on board. I'm surprised this took the approach it did, and I'd be willing to bet there's even more characters coming back soon.
All right, guys, if you're all done grilling on the game, I would like to explain what's actually in here. We're almost done with the insides of the Giant, though. There's actually a spot to rest and buy items, so if you're willing to grind a little bit for experience, then this is a great place to do it, since the enemies generally are good with experience and you can't come back here later on in the game. I don't plan on buying anything now, though. Up ahead are 2 major boss fights, and one of them is going to be a bit more lengthy, or rather 4 of them.
Wait, what do you mean 4? I think that's quite a lot back to back, if that's what you mean.
You'll find out in just a moment what I mean by that.
Oh great, even more revived characters who didn't see that one coming. At least them coming back actually serves a purpose. It looks like I'm going to have to bring back my roasting for all 4 of them yet again.
Before you start that, we may skip around a little bit in the individual fights, so we'll cut ahead as to not make it too long. Otherwise, the main strategies against them still apply for the most part. All right, Ben, do your thing.
All right, Scarmiglione and Barak beat you once and technically twice when you came back on the bridge, and now it's time to take you down a 3rd time. You are so ugly that Edward runs away from you in battle. Your breath is so disgusting it inflicts status effects on the party.
All right, Ben, what's the next roast?
I'm not really sure. For some reason, I can't think of any more roasts for him. I don't want to repeat what I said before for these fiends, but I think I'm out of roast for now. The game has been going on for a while, and most of my good material has been used up.
That's all right. His part of the fight is almost done anyway. He's pretty weak to fire attacks, so he isn't going to be a focus of your roast, since I'm already roasting him in game.
All right, you've got this, Ben. Now it's Cagnazzo's attempt. You've got more material to work with now.
Yeah, you're right. I've got this. Cagnazzo, your mother is so fat, she's even heavier than you. You are so stupid that you probably came up with the idea of fighting the party one at a time instead of all at once. You're so fat that you probably are going to break this bridge-like area and cause us to not progress with the game. You are so watery that you can't swim.
You were doing all right there for a moment, but you're really falling apart now. This guy should go down to lightning quickly enough so you don't have to focus on him much more.
Yeah, Donald's right. You don't have to worry about him. Just be sure you get focused on the next one being Barbariccia.
Donald, can you do your thing before Joe goes nuts again?
Oh yeah, sure, here I go.
Thank you, Donald. Now, as for Barbariccia, you are so... How am I even supposed to roast her while Joe is going nuts anyway? Even if Donald wasn't covering her, she's still in her tornado form, so he couldn't see her anyway.
At this point, I'm just hoping he calms down, but you may not even have the chance right now. Okay, we're skipping ahead to Rubicante. I'm not having Joe do this any more than necessary.
Hey, sorry about that, guys. I went a little crazy there. I don't know if I caused much of an inconvenience for anybody.
You did cause an inconvenience in many ways, but now we should just focus on what's ahead. Rubicante is here and Ben has to roast him soon or he won't have the chance again.
I don't know, guys. I think my roasting skills are out of commission. I'm sure there's a lot of people in the comments section who could do a lot better than me right now. In fact, I think we should make that the comment question of the day. Do you have any roasts for any of the four fiends? I'd like to see some of those if you have any, since I didn't come up with a lot.
Yeah, that would be a pretty interesting comment section to see. Right now, we're planning on reading some of these answers from this video and the previous one later on, so we'll acknowledge those at some point. Right now, we just need to focus on Rubicante. In some ways, he's actually easier. He never does anything with his cloak, and though his fire spells tend to do a lot of damage, it's not typically that difficult to heal from.
Hey, that Fasoy guy looks like a puddle with how he's positioned. That's kind of weird.
Now that you mention it, yeah, he kind of does. These fiends never could take us down before, so that's not changing now that Rubicante is defeated. Something interesting before we move on is there is an exclusive boss fight in the 3D versions that's a combination of the fiends, but actually is fairly difficult. You can fight it on the second playthrough at the Mount Ordeals Peak if you go back there later in the game, or I think you can here as well optionally, though I haven't done it here specifically before. Its name is Geryon, and if you have the adamant armor, you'll be in good condition. That's an armor I'll go more into later, but we can't get it quite yet.
That sounds like a special name for an armor. Are there other ones that are unique like that?
Yes, there are some weapons, mainly in the Game Boy Advance versions, that are new along with the Onion equipment in the 3D versions. The adamant armor is infinite in theory, though very difficult to actually obtain due to the rarity. That's more important once we're in the final area, though. For now, we have to fight against the computer of the giant.
I don't know how to even start roasting a computer, so Barack, I'll just let you explain things from here.
All right, so this can be a little tricky. The main part is the CPU, obviously then the attack and defense nodes. The defense node heals it a lot, so you're going to want to destroy it first. Reflect is on the CPU, so you won't want to use magic right now. Maybe towards the end of the fight, if anything. The attack node does a good amount of damage, but you'll actually want to keep it up until the end. The CPU will not do a lot right now, but if the nodes are gone, then it will revive the nodes fully and use Object or Globe 199, which will be very bad for the party as you can't really defend against those attacks. The piercing laser does less damage, so that's what you'll need to do. Just use physical attacks and heal. In the 3D version, it's the opposite, where you should take out the attack node before the defense node, but otherwise that's about it. We're skipping ahead now as it's just more of the same.
Aw man, I can't believe we missed out on seeing the same thing over and over again for another minute. Well, I'll try to recover, but no promises.
All right, now that the fight is done, are we going to do anything important here?
Yes, the computer is destroyed, so the giant won't be attacking anymore. Also, if you don't talk through it with your defense budget mismanagement again, then you'll see some other important details.
It seems we're not alone here.
That must be bad timing on his part. Like he couldn't come by at the same time the CPU was being destroyed, because that would have been too difficult if he was there too.
Hecluia was also the name of Cecil's father. That must mean they are brothers after all this time. That must be a weird feeling for him to have.
So now Golbez is finally not being controlled by Zemus at this point. Was it ever shown why Golbez is more susceptible to being controlled than Cecil would be despite the same Lunarian blood?
Kind of. I'll explain soon. So this is in the 3D version, so it's not going to visibly show up here. His name was Theodore and was the first child of Cluia and Cecilia. Cecilia died right about the same time Cecil was born, and she actually couldn't be brought back, unlike mostly everyone else here. He started to blame Cecil for her death, and this is what allowed Zemus to take control of Theodore. After a while, Theodore left Cecil alone and was found by the King of Baron. The real one, not Cagnazzo. Theodore became Golbez at some point and was controlled by Zemus for a long time, up until now.
That seems like Star Wars, but with slightly less death involved. Golbez even acts like Darth Vader a lot with the Zemus guy as the Emperor role, I would say.
Oh, hey, does anybody want to hear about the time I fought a guy named Darth Vader? That happened to me a while ago, and it would make for a good story, probably.
Sorry, Joe, there's not too much left to today's video, and besides, I don't really want to hear it anyway, so it's best to save it for next time, or just not at all would be even better.
I'm sure there will be some time to tell your story in the next couple parts. The last areas can't take all that long.
I did want to point out something before we're done for the day. In this point, the men essentially tell the women to stay behind so they can defeat Zemus. I find this really weird, as it's not like any of them have had any objections to the women being involved at any other point of the game, including going to the moon earlier in this video. It doesn't even last the whole scene, as by the time it ends and they're on the moon, there is no change to the party setup. It comes from nowhere and it ends just as quickly.
It's probably some sort of commentary on gender equality, but I don't know what the message would even be.
All right, everyone, we're almost at the finale. Barack, how much is there left to do before we're done?
We will have 2 more parts after this, one being the majority of the last section on the moon and some side activities, while the last part will be confronting Zemus and finishing the game.
Yeah, that means more time for Joe stories and comment questions.
I'm always glad to see more progress on the game.
As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of Final Fantasy IV. Last time we learned more about Cecil's heritage and also saw a bunch of characters come back, but we beat most of them anyway.
Hey, didn't we end on the moon last time? What are we doing back on Earth exactly?
Yes, Joe, we did, but there is more we're going to do off the moon that didn't really become available until after the Giant of Babel was defeated. Using the hovercraft, we're able to access this cave to obtain 2 items. One of which we'll get right now, and the other will be here later on today. The first item is actually the adamantite, which we can't do anything with alone. Once we obtain it, we'll get the Excalibur for Cecil, which at least in this version should be the strongest sword he gets. I believe the later versions on the Game Boy Advance and Nintendo DS have some better ones, but this will work fine for us.
Hey, you may have mentioned this place in the underground before. Is this where we get to use the adamantite?
Yes, that is the case. Once we give it to him, he will become inspired to make weapons again. Or at least this specific one, I don't think he makes anything for us aside from the Excalibur. Either way, it's definitely going to be helpful for dealing even more damage than before.
I'm glad someone here is helping us. I don't think we met really anybody besides the king in the underground who benefited us. I suppose Sid did, but he wasn't born down here. Now that I think about it, this wizard guy doesn't look like the dwarf, so I'm not sure he was born here either.
I'm not sure how he got there either, but that's not really too important. The real important part is the next task, which is getting a new summon. In the Barron Castle basement, there's the spirit of the real king, which changed into Odin for a fight. This is him testing your strength, and there's a rather simple strategy to fighting him.
Barack, are you going to get in legal trouble by killing a king? I think that's regicide or something like that.
No, Joe, he's already dead, so I don't think it counts. I'm not really sure, but it's not like we're going to announce it to everybody after it happens anyway. The fight itself is very simple. He will only use one attack, which is the Zantetsuken. It takes a while to charge up, but at this point it will kill pretty much everyone here. If you're doing this before doing much of the moon activities, you'll probably struggle here, but just use a lot of standard attacks or summons. Once the attack from Odin is almost ready, you can use Kane's jump ability to dodge the attack. Keep attacking from there with who you have left, and you should be able to win easily enough. In this case, I actually did enough damage, so I didn't even have to use Kane avoiding the Zantetsuken to defeat him. Once you defeat him like Leviathan and Asura, you can summon him in battle. I don't think I will much if at all, but still it's nice to go after him to show how to get it. Then again, this game has been out for a few decades, so I doubt I'm actually showing people things they haven't seen already.
I'm not too experienced with the mythology of Odin, but I don't remember him using any attacks like a Zantetsuken. I'm also not aware of him being on a horse like that. Did Cagnazzo also kill a horse that reincarnated into that fight, or did he come back as 2 separate beings somehow?
This game probably made up a few details to make the fights more memorable and interesting, even if he never actually got a chance to attack in that example.
I don't really know either, but yes, the general character and attack does come back in many other games. Next up is the Naming Way Cave. There's not much important here for us, though. One of them sells various items. One very important item is the Siren. I'll be getting some more probably off screen later, but you'll want a lot of them for another item that we'll want to get. There isn't a lot to this place, so I'll move on to talking about the next part of our quest, which is the Cave of Bahamut.
My memory isn't the best sometimes, but I think we saw this Bahamut guy in the first game and gave him a rat tail. What do we do now that we don't have one anymore?
Are we able to give him a different animal's tail, or will that not work?
Unfortunately, no, Donald, no other tails are going to work for us. We're just going to have to fight him. Before that, we're moving through the cave, which requires us to fight some required enemies, though I'll still show a few standard encounters here, as there are some more Moon-exclusive enemies we haven't seen yet.
That's good and all, Barak, but will I be able to tell you one of my stories today? I've got a good one while we're in this cave.
You can tell your story soon, but there is one enemy encounter coming up that I do want to acknowledge before you do that. Once I'm done, then you can say whatever nonsensical event that never happened to you.
Don't worry about your story, Joe, at this point. They all kind of feel the same, so we won't be happy to hear it, but you've told so many at this point that I'm not sure what we can really do about it.
Perhaps we can delay his story so long that by the time he starts, it's the end of the video and we won't have to hear it after all.
That may be a good idea, but I'll let him say it in a moment. For now, there's this thing blocking our progress, which is weird, as earlier versions had this as a fixed encounter rather than an overworld sprite. Anyway, this is the Behemoth. It becomes more common in later areas of the Final Fantasy games, starting with Final Fantasy II. This is generally considered to be a very powerful enemy. In some games, it will use Meteor as a counter to magic attacks, though usually will counter here with strong physical attacks, so it's worth keeping someone who can heal a lot ready. There's several to fight in this place, but we won't show all of them, as it's essentially the same fight multiple times. There's not much else to this fight, so we'll skip ahead and let Joe say whatever it is he was going to earlier.
Oh, great. Get ready, everyone. I'm sure this will be a good one.
So there I was being my usual Joe Biden self when I saw an ice cream cone on the ground upright. I thought that was weird, but it was ice cream, and so I ate it. The ice cream was really good since it was that chocolate flavor I've mentioned before, and it gave me a vision. It said I had to stop being the president so I could go full-time into trying and inventing new ice cream flavors. That's when I announced on Twitter that I would not be running for a second term, and now I'll be spending my time playing video games on YouTube and also eating ice cream. The end.
Wow, that actually wasn't all that bad of a story. It was still a pretty weird one, but nothing overly illegal or bad happened in it, so that was kind of nice.
And it led to Joe's best decision as a president so far by not continuing it, so that was actually a really good story, Joe. I'm proud of you. It only took about a year to get one that didn't disgust me to my core, but I'll take it.
You are correct, Donald, but more importantly, it's time to fight Bahamut. This is actually the same general strategy as Odin, except he is going to use a different attack called Mega Flare. The same idea applies where you do a lot of damage before he can use Mega Flare, but I don't think I'm going to beat him before he uses it. I think there's another strategy, but I can't really think of it right now.
Hey Ben, do you have any roasts ready for this guy?
Not really. In fact, if anything, Bahamut might be roasting Barak if he's about to hit him with that Mega Flare.
That could definitely happen. More importantly, Rosa recently leveled up and got the Holy Spell, which is a really good way for her to do damage. It costs a lot of MP, but it's very powerful to compensate. Glad to have her as a healer and also skilled at damaging at the same time.
I mean, it's kind of weird to have a spell called Holy be a damaging spell. I don't think that's usually what that word means in other contexts, but if it works, then that's fine.
I think he's about to get that Mega Flare out now.
That worked perfectly except the part that didn't, which was most of it.
Congratulations, Barak. Most of the party is dead or nearly dead while Bahamut is getting ready for another attack. What exactly is your strategy now?
I'm doing the same strategy again. Nobody's stopping me from victory here.
I don't know, Barak, that didn't work all that well for you the first time, so I'm not sure how it's going to work here.
Listen to Joe this time, Barak. This is not going well, and there has to be a better strategy than this.
No, don't worry, everyone. It's time you all start believing in my skills on this.
Barak, I know I haven't really played this game before, but I'm pretty sure your character's having 0 health is bad, right?
Yes, it is, but due to my expert planning, I was able to defeat him anyway, and Cain got a lot of experience for this. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure I could have used Reflect and made this significantly easier, though this way also worked out by the end of it. Now, you all know to trust me even when it looks bad.
You're right, Barak, even though I was pretty worried for most of it, you did get through it in your own way. So although I wouldn't want you to be in that position again, you did prove yourself as very good at succeeding anyway.
All right, what's up next for us in the journey to defeat Zemus?
I can give you some more specifics in a moment, but for now, just watch as we make our way deeper in the Lunar Subterrain, which is the final section of the game. All right, so there's a lot to unpack here. This is the Lunar Subterrain, which is the last and longest section in the game. This part will get us through all but one of the optional bosses up to the last save point and will grant some unique items. If you just want to reach the end without the boss fights, it doesn't take that long, but it's still good to get them as they give good experience and the weapons themselves are good. One of them is good for Cecil and probably even better than the Excalibur. I know I said that was the best one for him earlier, but it didn't occur to me until now that the one coming up is likely better. There's also some really powerful enemies that do require more than just the standard attacks. There are various dragons or robots, and even some more behemoths. A lot of these can be taken down quickly with the Bahamut Summon and Rosa using Holy, while staying with standard attacks for Cecil, Kane, and Edge when he's not knocked out.
That is a lot to take in, but since you beat Bahamut, I'm sure these guys wouldn't give you too much trouble. I do find it interesting how just the last part we were surprised the moon was even an area in the game to travel on, and now we're going into it to defeat the main antagonist.
I think it's just that we've accepted this game got really weird suddenly and can deal with it better. Can we get into the comment question for today now, or is something else happening that you wanted to explain, Barak?
I'm not sure of anything too important for a while coming up. I'll let you know when it happens, though.
Oh, okay, I've got an idea for a comment question. What is everyone's favorite ice cream or popsicle flavor? I like eating them so much I'm basically the expert on it. My personal favorites are the Necronomicon and Sonic the Hedgehog popsicles since they taste so good. Well, the Necronomicon one was right before I got possessed that one time, so I wouldn't recommend it if you're not open to that, but otherwise I'd like to hear what everyone else thinks of.
Are we really doing this? Is that the question we're going with now? There's nothing Final Fantasy related that's a better use of our time?
I think we could let him have this one. After his story wasn't all that bad today, I think he deserves it. Besides, I can't think of much else right now.
All right, fine, we'll go with that question for today. I'd say my favorite popsicle is that star-shaped one with the red, white, and blue because they're the colors of America, obviously. That and the star-shaped ones are easy to bite into after a few minutes, but just enough to where they don't fall apart when you're not eating them. Not that I eat popsicles often since I am in the peak physical form for someone my age, but still.
I don't mean this to sound bad, Donald, but calling you the peak physical form is like calling Joe the peak at memorizing quite literally any detail ever. Anyways, my favorite flavor is the plain white ones that are shaped circularly but come up to a half-sphere shape at the top. Very basic in concept, but if it isn't broke, then I shouldn't try to fix it. I'm pretty sure that's the expression.
I don't really have a favorite popsicle flavor specifically, though I do like the strawberry flavor of ice cream. It really goes well when I'm in Texas since it's pretty warm there in general, so ice cream of some amount is pretty much a necessity.
I have to side with George on not eating popsicles much, if at all. For ice cream, I tend to enjoy the mint with chocolate chips in them. I know mint isn't something a lot of people like, but that with the chocolate is always a great combination. Also more related to the game, but I have been cutting out some parts of the longer battles as they tend to be repetitive. Some of that is understandable in a game like this to a degree, but I think it could be easier to the viewers to take a little bit of the filler out.
I'm pretty sure we've cut out most of the random battles in this game as it is, and even most of the required fights we've edited out a portion of it, so that's not really surprising. I hope it's something that the viewers have enjoyed so they don't have to sit through the less interesting parts. Then again, we're at part 12, so it's a little late to change it now.
Hey Barak, you've probably mentioned this before, but since this playthrough is nearly over, are there any plans on what Final Fantasy game is coming next at all?
I don't really know. This may come as disappointing, but there probably won't be a new one coming anytime soon. I've seen many comments asking for more specifically the 6th and 7th games in the series, but when I think about it realistically, even if we cut out a lot of battles there too, it's going to be a very long series regardless of if I get no game overs and play optimally. It would probably take nearly a year, even if we upload only that each week, and I don't want us to stay only on one game or have it be a multiple year-long project that just won't end, especially if the viewers want something different.
That's a little disappointing to those who are looking forward to more, but perhaps it can come back one day.
I can talk about that a little more later. Right now I have to talk about a very important room. Remembering what I said about the sirens, I got some and they're very useful here. This is the room where using the siren will get you encounters with the pink flans. These will cause characters to become berserk and won't be able to use specific attacks like magic or summons. If you're able to get a few attacks off without turning berserk, then that's great, but otherwise you'll mainly do damage to them individually before they all go down.
That's good and all, but what's so special about Flan princesses who get the other characters to dance?
It doesn't really matter what they do in the battle so much as what they drop. There's a low chance, but it is possible for them to drop a pink tail, which allows you to give it to that smith guy in the cave towards the beginning of this video, and that will let you get the adamant armor I also mentioned earlier. You could get them for all 5 characters if you really wanted to, but that's not necessary by any means. Unless you were fighting Proto-Babel in the 3D version, I suppose having more than one would help, but not too much. Especially in this version where there's not that much to fight by this point and wouldn't really need the adamant armor anyway.
Hey guys, is it just me, or are these things kind of cute? I think I want to take one home and dance with it for a while. I can let it interact with Alejandro. That would make for a great story.
Joe, I am absolutely certain that nobody has thought that way about these flan things before this moment right now. I can't imagine your lizard or anything else wanting to interact with these things. Now that I think about it, do they even have tails? I'm not sure I really see any.
Apparently they have tails if they can be dropped, though I don't see them either.
Yeah, I don't see them either. They're really rare drops, so for the viewer's sake, we're only showing the one battle, but sometimes it can take a lot of tries before getting one to appear. We'll skip the other attempt after that and deliver the tail. Believe it or not, I actually got it the next time after that battle was recorded, so it took way less time than normal. I'd recommend it as a spot for grinding more experience and money at the same time while you're there. Back to the topic of the Final Fantasy games, if we do play one in the future, it would likely be a shorter one like Final Fantasy 2 or 3, as those take a lot less time than they would here. Maybe we will do 6 or 7 in the future, but not for a long time, if at all.
It's sad to know this will be the end of Final Fantasy games coming up soon, but on the other hand, it's nice to know there are still more things to look forward to. Don't you all have some Metal Gear Solid 2 and Mega Man videos too?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a self-advertising moment, but we've still been traversing the multiverse with having other characters show up in Kingdom Hearts for a while and having Ben play Mega Man 1 and 2. He should be playing later games in the series at some point as well. I'll be playing through Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty in a little while too, so there's a lot to look forward with outside of Final Fantasy.
I'm not sure if this is important, but why is Bahamut back? Why isn't he counting down like before?
No, this is different. Dark Bahamut is another boss fight and more difficult than Bahamut. He uses Mega Flare much more quickly and has more attacks, so you do have to try harder. He gives you a weapon by defeating him, but no summon. Then again, I actually got 2 adamant armors, as you may have seen earlier, so this isn't going to be that difficult with those on.
It looks like this is a separate entity from Bahamut as they are attacking each other.
I think it's kind of funny watching them take turns using Mega Flare on each other. About 11 parts ago, this was 2 guys fighting with swords, and now dragons are shooting fire at each other on the moon.
Yeah, these RPG games get pretty extreme in how the enemies change from the beginning to the end. This is a rather strange example as it's the same type of enemy that's being summoned. We'll skip ahead soon enough to the end of this fight since it's a lot of shooting flares and healing, but in the Game Boy Advance and PlayStation Portable versions, there's a lot more lunar summons, so you get to fight a lot more summons than this, so there are several Bahamuts to fight in those versions.
Barak, are you just cutting up all the parts of the battle where someone is using Flare or Mega Flare? I feel like we're missing a lot.
Yeah, it's amusing to me how much it uses the same attack. That, and also Edge is down just like he normally is, so we didn't miss anything important with him. Anyway, the fight is at the end, so once this is all finished, we'll get the Ragnarok. This is yet another very powerful weapon, and in my opinion is worth getting despite all the flare attacks.
I think it's interesting he used Reflect on himself before using Flare. I think it's so he won't miss any of the party characters, and so that you can't hit him with magic yourself. That's probably why, if I understand correctly.
I think you're right on that. I haven't played this, but I think we have a good idea on how to play it just based on Barak's explanation and what he showed us about the game so far, except for Edge's abilities. I'm not sure if he's used those ninja powers or even throwing items once yet, but they can't be that hard to understand.
All right, Barak, do your explaining so we know what these guys' deals are.
So these 2 Lunasaurs are guarding 2 ribbons. The ribbons in the Final Fantasy games are basically items that negate pretty much all status effects on your character, so they're definitely good to have. They use Reflect on themselves, so summons are very helpful in this fight since they go past Reflect. I'll probably skip ahead once there's only 1 left as it becomes a lot more manageable. They can actually do a lot of damage with their attacks, but there really isn't all that much special to this. It's one of the last optional fights in the game, and nothing all that spectacular.
A lot of these major boss fights, whether optional or not, seem pretty easy. I hope the next Final Fantasy game that's played has a bit more strategy that goes into it.
It probably will. And not exactly related, but since we've been focusing so much on how weird the game story is, and all of Barak's explanations, we haven't been fighting with each other all that much. It's nice to get along a little more.
Now that you mention it, yeah, I think you're right. Not that some friendly banter isn't fun, but it seems as though we've been getting along more compared to some other games we've played together. Hopefully Donald won't have any major fails in Metal Gear Solid 2, otherwise we might do some roasting to him after Joe did well on his playthrough of the first game.
It wasn't exactly my intention, but I'm glad that's how it turned out. The last part to this is getting the Holy Lance for Cain by fighting the Plague. Not the real world ones, but the one that looks like an Ahriman. He just casts Doom on you, and that's it. As long as you do enough damage to him before everyone's time reaches 0, then this will not be a challenge. I'll even use Edge to throw a few items. This has nothing special to it, so if anyone wants to say the outro to the video, now is the time.
Yeah, it's been a fun time so far, but I'm sad to see the game almost be over. The next part is the last one, and knowing there won't be more parts of the series for a while isn't great, but at least we know what is ahead for us.
In some ways, I'm going to miss this game making absolutely no sense in any capacity for most of it. Not that much, but a little bit.
I'm still not going to miss Edward at all, or even Edge that much.
I don't think anyone is going to miss Edward here. Anyways, I think we'll talk about all of those comment questions in the past 3 parts and the final part to get those addressed.
Thank you all to those who have stayed with us in the journey so far.
Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the final part of Final Fantasy IV. It's taken a while, but we are just about to fight Zemus, but first a few other things to discuss. We're about to fight Ogobogo to obtain the Masamune weapon, but there's no summon with him. It's basically a stronger Leviathan, but at this point, with the adamant armors and leveling up, there's no real harm in this guy. Just use regular attacks and the Bahamut summon and you'll be fine. We did want to acknowledge the comment questions we've asked over the last 3 parts before going into the main story again.
From part 10, several people commented on the questions giving answers, such as Cecil from this game, Red 13 from Final Fantasy VII, along with Torgal and Frimelda Lotus. Do you know a lot of those, Barak? Plus Kefka and Terra from Final Fantasy VI, along with Delita and Ramza from Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions.
Those are interesting choices. Cecil is definitely a good one, and though I'm familiar with Final Fantasy VII, I'll admit I hadn't considered Red 13 as one of my favorites. I always preferred Cloud, Aerith, and Vincent in no particular order. For Final Fantasy VI, those are good choices, and yes, Kefka succeeding at his goal made things very interesting for the rest of the game's story, and I always found Terra to be a very empowering character. I'm not too familiar with the others you mentioned, but I've heard good things about the games they're in. Maybe one of these days I'll have a proper opinion on them.
Along with that, thankfully, the comments restrained themselves from saying all of the crimes they would commit during a purge, so I'm glad they kept their focus.
Okay, I think that's it for that part's answers. For part 11, I don't think anybody actually answered it. The question was what roasts you would come up with for the four fiends, but we didn't get any responses. To be fair, even Ben, the alleged roast master, was having difficulty with them, so we can't expect there to be much material there.
That's all right, but Donald, I am for sure the roast master, though even someone with as much roasting skill as me has difficulty with some of the characters we've fought, especially when some of them are just color swaps of existing boss fights like Leviathan and Bahamut.
I will say the Lunar Ruins in some of the other versions also has a lot of recolors since they have lunar versions of the summons, so there's quite a lot of repeated sprites there. Of course, there are some new weapons and enemies, but the majority of them are the same. Granted, we're not seeing those anyway, so it doesn't matter as much for this playthrough, though. If you saw it, then it would only strengthen your point about fighting recolors, even if their battle strategies are different.
Do I even want to ask what the abomination we're fighting is supposed to be doing here? I can't see a reason for this existing, much less being an enemy.
Honestly, I have absolutely no idea. This has no real explanation for being here that I'm aware of. There are going to be a few other unique enemies based on Zemus very soon, but this is a very weird design. We're just going to get rid of it because, honestly, it probably wants to be destroyed at this point in its life if it even is considered alive.
All right, everyone, we're moving on to the real main event for today. I don't care about Zemus or saving the world or anything. I just want to read off the comments for part 12, which was the favorite ice cream flavor. There's chocolate and strawberry, which are both classics, along with the bomb pop, which I'm sure Barack would really like for no reason in particular. I have to say, as you all know, chocolate chip is my favorite for sure, but really I'll eat in any flavor as long as it's ice cream. I once filled up the whole freezer with them, and when I couldn't fit more, I had to demolish one of the White House rooms that was used for managing security or something I didn't really care that much, and made it into a room full of freezers just to put in more ice cream in case I ran out from the first one. It's still getting a lot of use, and I'm not sure how I'm going to transport them when my term is over. If Kamala wins, then I'll just stay around and eat ice cream all day instead of 7 hours a day like I do right now.
All right, we didn't need to hear any of that, but thank you for sharing. Donald, if you win the election, please be sure to get Joe away from whatever room he got rid of, since I can't imagine that's a good use for it. More importantly, those were the end of the questions, and now we have to prepare for the final battle. There's a lot at stake, and we need to be sure we can win. Even though the characters are at good equipment and at a high level, there's still a chance we could fail, and I need everyone to be thinking about the future of the world here. And yes, Joe, you were right. I do like the bomb pops the most, but that's really aside from the point.
We're with you, Barack. It's about time we show Zemus what the warriors of this world can really do when they work together. I'm talking about in game, because in the real world there's a lot that we have great difficulty with alone, much less together.
I don't really have anything encouraging to say, so I'm just getting one of my chocolate chip ice cream cones while the main story and battle comes up.
You've got this, Barack. You've done well before this point, and you can keep it going through the end.
Yeah, what everyone else said, you got this.
All right, everyone, it's time to focus up now. Fusoya and Golbez are about to launch their attack on Zemus. It's basically a fight between most of the game's Lunarians at this point.
This guy looks pretty threatening. I wonder who made the outfit that he's wearing or how he's just kind of levitating there, since it doesn't look like he has legs.
A little weird how that's the part you notice most, but yes, that is a good question.
All right, let's see the actual battle that happens and not questioning the wardrobe decisions.
It looks like they're just doing a lot of attacks to Zemus, and he isn't really fighting back at all. I wonder why he's so purple when the other Lunarians so far aren't.
Yeah, Barack, there are a lot of questions to be asked for his design choices, so it's natural for us to ask a lot about it, since it's our first time really seeing him.
I should have expected that by now.
Hey, I'm pretty sure that's the Meteor spell that Tellah used and died from. That seemed to have beaten him. That was a great game, Barack. I'm glad we watched you play it for so long.
No, Joe, the game is not over yet. There's still more to do, even though this exact fight is done.
I don't know about that when they very clearly killed Zemus right there. It seems the game should be over now.
Maybe there's something else we're not seeing that will cause him to still be a problem for us. I'm not sure, though.
Ben is right. Just keep watching.
Oh, okay. That saves us from getting rid of him. That's nice.
Despite their initial victory, Zemus lived on through his hatred and has become Zeromus and is no longer weak to what he was before.
Well, how are we going to beat him then? Even the most powerful spell in the game didn't do anything against him. So what chance do we have without Meteor as an option?
I don't have any ideas on my end. Perhaps this is it and we can't defeat Zeromus with his new power.
Although the battle may seem over, this is not the end for our journey. Throughout everything we've learned that many strange things can happen when they make the least sense, mainly with others coming back when they should have been dead. Now it's our turn to come back when it seems hopeless and finish what we started months ago with the beginning of our journey.
It would have been nice if these people actually showed up on here to help with the fight, but I suppose them helping from another planet works too. Still, there was enough room on the ship.
Since Golbez chose a much worse path, then that's probably why him trying to use the crystal didn't work. Perhaps if Cecil were the one using it, then it might open a way to beating Zeromus.
And now our friends are here to cheer us on. Wait, are they actually seeing them? Is this some sort of holographic thing, or are they really helping us by healing the party? And was that Tellah? Does he give holograms from the afterlife? Is that an option? This is confusing.
I think you're taking this a little bit too literally, but otherwise you are correct. I don't think we are supposed to be looking into it this much.
Okay, everyone, it really is time to stay focused. No more skipping or speeding up any fights. We're about to take everything we've learned in this game and apply it here. Not so much the auto-battling and 2x multiplier for leveling up more easily or having Donald cover up the enemy, but how our items can be used. The best magic, the summons, the best weapons and armor we've obtained. We've been through quite a bit over the past 13 parts, and this is the last challenge before we save the world.
All right, Barack, we're here for you in the last part. I'm not sure what we can do for you in terms of strategy since you know this game a lot more than we do, but perhaps us just being here will help you in some way I don't really know.
I can tell you a story if that would help at all.
No, Joe, please do not tell one of your stories right now. Barack has enough to focus on without getting confused to no end by the fictional events of your life.
Thank you, Ben. A story from Joe would not have helped me or anyone else. Now that the crystal has been used, it's about to start. I think I speak for everyone when I say it's time to show Zeromus what the Daily Wire and Presidents can do when they work together.
Wow, this guy really let himself go in the past minute or so. I can't even tell what part of him is supposed to be a face. I think it's the large blue part in the middle that could be an eye, but I'm not really sure.
I think it might be that section below the blue part on the very far right, but I'm not very sure either. I just know we have to get all of him defeated, regardless of where his face is.
Barack, that Big Bang attack did a lot of damage to everyone. I'm guessing you have a strategy on how you're going to take him down?
You are correct, George, I do. For the most part, Kane would be jumping a lot, so he stays out of Zeromus' attack range. Rydia would be summoning Bahamut a lot. Cecil keeps attacking with the sword he has. Rosa is either healing or using Holy. Edge is mainly using items or throwing whatever weapons, mainly shurikens, since there's no other point to having them this far into the game. That being said, if there's a part like now where there is a lot of damage done to the party, I may have more characters using items like Phoenix Downs and Elixirs to get everyone back up. As to what Zeromus specifically can do, there is the Big Bang attack that George mentioned, which just hurts the party by a lot each, so that's why Rosa is constantly healing. Right now, most party members are done, so now the main focus is getting all of them back up rather than attacking. I know it looks bleak, but we can still make it out of this. The other main thing Zeromus does is the black hole, which negates all status effects for everyone. That's why I'm not planning on using slow or protect or haste, since it won't be effective after he uses that attack.
This seems like an actually interesting fight since you can't just auto-battle your way through it. It's nice to see the last fight is a bit more thoughtful on how you approach it compared to most of the ones in the game, having very simple strategies. Kind of weird how this is still the first time we're seeing the main overall antagonist in the game, but otherwise it seems to be a nice conclusion so far.
Hey, Barack, I thought of an idea that might work for you. Could Edge throw the Excalibur at Zeromus? That would probably do a lot of damage.
Joe, you spooty bard, that's a terrible idea. That's one of the most powerful weapons, and you're just going to have Edge throw it at him and lose it? No wonder you're dropping out of the election coming up with ideas like that.
Actually, that's not as bad of an idea as it seems. The Ragnarok from the last part is more powerful, so the Excalibur wouldn't have any further use at this point. And there's nothing else to fight after this, so we may as well use it while we still can, even if it's arguably not the best use for it. I won't throw it now, but that would be doing a lot of damage for sure.
Hey, now that I think about it, a lot more Zeromus using the black hole is actually a good thing. Mainly since it doesn't do anything when there's no statuses for anybody, and it's an opportunity for him to not use Big Bang or anything else that might cause us to lose. It does make it so we're not going to be any faster or more protected, but if you look at it that way, there are some benefits.
That is a good way of looking at it. Yes, I'm not nearly in as bad of a situation as I was in a minute ago, where most of the team was knocked out, so any chance to have him not wipe out the party is nice. I suppose while I'm doing all right, I could mention the 3D version of the fight takes place at a different angle and makes the face visibility a lot more clear. It also has the sprite changed on the easy type version, which was released in Japan, that made the game easier. That sprite made it back into an optional area in the Game Boy Advance and PlayStation Portable versions. It was weird as he had 4-leg structures, a sword, and some random lady near him, but it looked more like a living being of some sort compared to this.
That does sound pretty weird, but at least we won't have to fight that one too. I think this is giving enough of a challenge without adding anything else to it already.
Even if there was something else after this, I think Barak could handle it. The party is in good condition, plus Rosa and Rydia have a lot of magic to attack and heal as necessary. Though you are right, it's good that it's ending here.
Thank you for the confidence, Donald. It means a lot. Also, I'm using your strategy, Joe. It's a weird feeling to throw a weapon like this, but I know it will be useful.
Oh yeah, thanks for using my idea before the fight was over.
All right, everyone, this started with Cecil being a Dark Knight. Now let's see him end this as a redeemed person.
Barak, you saved the world. You did a great job making sure Zemus didn't spread his hate and control to the rest of the world. Even though this journey definitely had a lot of low points and wasn't all that logical, it was still a fun time.
Yeah, I think my favorite part of the game was those dancers at the beginning. I wish I could have seen them dance again, but I'm also glad I'm not reacting like I did before. I think there was a lesson in all of that somewhere I don't really know.
The lesson was to not get infatuated with characters in video games, but we all know you're not learning that lesson anytime soon. Probably never being realistic.
You are definitely right on that, Donald. He will never change on that. But Barak, you really did well through the whole game, and I don't think you were ever truly in danger of losing with your skills.
Thank you for the good words, everyone. While Fasoya and Golbez say their goodbyes, I do think it would be good to have a little bit more silence for some of the upcoming scenes to let the game play without our constant input.
Yeah, that sounds fine. We'll pay attention to the game right about now.
We will let the game continue as it is in a few minutes, but for now I wanted to say thank you to everyone who has watched this far. It's been great still getting support by all the views, interest, comments, and subscribing. This has taken a while to complete, but it's finally finished. A lot has happened in our world, with switching from 11 labs to play HT to get our voices out, starting new playthroughs in the Mega Man and Kingdom Hearts games, finishing golf with your friends. It's been an exciting time for the channel, and we're sure it's not done now. There's new playthroughs coming up in the near future, along with the games we've already been playing.
And I'd like to thank you all for letting me join on this playthrough. I'm not as used to all of your interactions, so it's great having everyone come together to listen to Barak play a game he likes a lot. I don't know when I'll show up again, but I'm sure this won't be the last time I'm here in one of your games.
Oh yeah, thanks for being open to being a part of the playthrough. It must have been confusing at first, but you did add a lot to our conversations the whole time.
I'm not sure what's coming up next for the games in the Final Fantasy series, but I'm sure whatever comes up next will be an interesting time, especially with Barak playing as well as he did here.
Ah yes, even if I wasn't a big fan of many creative decisions with the plots and characters, Barak playing made it go much more smoothly than if anyone else here was behind the controller.
I appreciate all of the praise, everyone. Thank you all for watching the experience and even putting up with a lot of strange parts. It's been a fun time throughout, but I think that's enough of what our experience is like. I think it's time we keep watching what the characters in the game are doing now that the threat is gone, at least until the sequel happens.
I still hate Edward.
Wait, did I miss something there?
Hey Donald, you've had a few marriages. Were they anything like this?
I know you're trying to diss me, but the answer is no. They were way better, way bigger, had way more people. They were fantastic weddings. People were telling me the whole time, Donald, this is the best wedding I've ever been to. It's even better than your last wedding, and I was like, thanks, maybe I'll do. Another one soon just to see how I can improve on this.
I was about to question why you choose now to ruin this great moment, but thinking about who's all commentating, I don't know what else I was expecting.
Thanks again for watching, everyone. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.
And peace out, people.